The whole village of 16 young people tested their spiritual roots together, with 15 having spiritual roots, and the worst ones having earth spiritual roots. Only Hua Luyun, a time traveler who grew up drinking milk from 100 families, is a waste person without even mixed spiritual roots. The immortal who came to test him took pity on him and gave him a basic breathing technique. However, Hua Luyun, because he did not recognize the characters of this world, turned a normal breathing technique into a body-forging secret technique. At this time, Hua Luyun looked at the little companions in front of him who had finished testing their spiritual roots, 2 with immortal spiritual roots, 6 with heavenly spiritual roots, and 7 with earthly spiritual roots. There's also one waste. Hua Luyun felt a sense of desolation in his heart. All 16 people under the age of 18 in Shangba village are of the earth's appearance. Only he is of the farmer's appearance. All the buddies have consciously stood by the immortal, afraid that the immortal might leave without taking them. Seeing the despair on Hua Luyun's face, the buddies kindly comforted him. Brother Nyo, you have to hold on. We are all going up the mountain, and you will be the only hope in the village in the future. Isn't that right? In the future, the farming team in Shangba village will be directly discontinued. All the farmland will be his, and 40 to 50 elderly people need him to take care of them, and the team to carry people up the mountain cannot be assembled. Thinking of this, Hua Luyun became even more desperate. No, immortal, take me with you. I can farm, cook, do laundry, and make beds. If you leave me behind, how can I survive? Li Lanqing was also a bit embarrassed. What is all this about? In the genius team of the whole village, there happened to be a weirdo who couldn't cultivate. You said even if you have a mixed spirit root, it's fine. You're empty every day. Looking at the young man crying in pain while hugging his thigh, she felt a bit unbearable in her heart. You let go of me first. This is not proper. I'm not immortal. You might as well kill me. I have no courage to live anymore. Brother Nyo, you have to cheer up. We have all left. There are still 40 to 50 people in the village counting on you to support them in their old age. The villagers standing by also offered words of encouragement. Yes, Luyun's actions can be considered a good thing, leaving us a way out in Shangba village. Hua Luyun felt sad and angry in his heart. It may be a good thing for you, but not for me. No matter how Flower Luyun cries and makes a fuss, the matter has been settled. In the end, Li Lanqing still took away the little companions. However, he did leave some hope for him, giving him a cultivation technique book, which can be considered as a compensation for him. Returning to the dilapidated earth house, he couldn't wait to take out the martial arts techniques and began to flip through them. The cover of the techniques was inscribed with several embossed characters, looking quite extraordinary. Mind, breath, drinking water. What the hell is this written? There were 5 large characters on the cover, and he didn't recognize any of them. These weren't even Chinese characters. That person wronged me? Coming to this small village for 16 years, Hua Luyun realized for the first time the importance of knowledge. The words in this world are actually different from what he had seen in his previous life. Negative reviews, no sense of familiarity at all. Turned to the first page. Looking at the densely packed words inside, he felt even more headache. He didn't even recognize the cover, let alone the content. But as a time traveler, was he going to be stumped by this? Impossible. Words are usually evolved from shapes. There must be some similarities. He could only guess and learn as he goes. The martial arts manual has 10 pages, and it is rumored that there are 10 realms of cultivating immortality, namely Qi refining stage, foundation building stage, golden core stage, nascent soul stage, divine transformation stage, void refinement stage, tribulation crossing stage, sage realm, celestial lord realm, and emperor realm. Could it be that each page represents a realm? Hua Luyun pondered to himself. It must be so. Otherwise how could there be such a coincidence? Although many characters are not recognized, fortunately, there are some diagrams in the martial arts techniques, making it easier for this illiterate person to learn. It's just that the postures of the little people in the diagrams are a bit strange. After practicing for a full half hour, he suddenly felt a slight pain in his lower abdomen. It's working. While he was diligently studying the path of cultivating immortality, the door of the earth house was pushed open. The neighbor next door, Aunt's son, walked in holding 2 steamed buns. Luyun, what are you doing? Aunt's son had a smile on her face. Her son was taken away by the immortal on the mountain to cultivate immortality, and she felt very happy these days. Old lady, why don't you knock before coming in? You little rascal. The old lady is not afraid. What are you afraid of? The old lady has seen it all. Aunt's son placed the steamed buns on the table, reminding Hua Luyun to remember to eat before leaving. Now this child is the only child in the village. Everyone treasures him very much. Seeing that Hua Luyun was not moved by the delicious food at all, still staring at the martial arts manual, Aunt's son sighed deeply. This child should be quite affected this time, even holding the book upside down. Sent away Sun Dajiang. Hua Luyun took 2 bites of the steamed bun. Watching the white steamed bun that he had bitten on was stained with fresh blood, he frowned slightly, his gums bleeding. Half an hour later, he finally realized that something was wrong. Not only were his gums bleeding, but now every inch of his skin was bleeding, and his whole body had been dyed red with blood. Hua Luyun was shocked. Have I reached the stage of refining qi and washing the marrow? Could the expelled substance be impurities in the body? Whether it is impurities or not, it is always right to wash them away as impurities. Anyway, once they flow out, they cannot be taken back. Took a bath, took out the bronze mirror and glanced at it, only feeling a black aura lingering between the eyebrows, faintly forming a pitch-black flame. 3 flowers gathering at the top? Hua Luyun was very sure that this was the highest realm of martial arts. 3 flowers gathering at the top. It can only be said that it is worthy of being a cultivation method of immortality, reaching the peak of martial arts as soon as one enters the door. Upon stepping outside, for a moment I only felt refreshed, but things seemed a bit blurry. It must be due to suddenly gaining powerful strength, so my body is not used to it. And Wang, are you going to work in the fields? The old man at the door looked towards Hua Luyun with a cow. I am your uncle. Hua Luyun squinted his eyes. What about that one ahead? The old man shook his head. This child indeed suffered a heavy blow. That one ahead is your cow uncle. Hua Luyun shook his head. Dizziness is normal, and blurred vision is also normal. Even if all symptoms are wrong, the qi and the dantian will not be wrong. In the Faxian Holy Land, Li Lanqing led a group of talented people from Shangba village to complete the registration. Each peak elder heard that a group of outstanding talents had been recruited, and they all came to watch, wanting to select their favorite disciples. Sensing the extraordinary nature of this batch of kids, everyone had their eyes glistening. Immortal spiritual roots. This land hasn't appeared for how many years, and now there are 2 of them all at once. Even the sect leader is alarmed. Li Lanqing smiled like a flower. According to the rules, qi practice stage belongs to the enlightenment stage of immortal cultivation, while only reaching the foundation stage can select the elders and peak masters of each peak to worship. Even the most talented immortal spirit roots had to address her as teacher before reaching the 10th level of qi refining. These were 15 great emperors' postures. In the future, when they grew up, as their enlightened mentor, wouldn't she be able to walk horizontally in the cultivation world? And as the guide of this group of geniuses, it is most convenient to have a good relationship with them. The peak elders and peak masters who want to take in disciples in the future are afraid that they will have to come to her to beg for a few words of praise. Think about it and feel comfortable. After arranging for a good place to stay, she solemnly distributed the cultivation technique to the people. It could be seen that this technique was exactly the one she had handed over to Hua Luyun. This kind of qi refining stage enlightenment technique had been circulated a lot and wasn't a valuable thing. Everyone, this is the Xian Tian Qi practicing method. There are 10 pages in there, corresponding to the 10 realms of the qi cultivation stage. Practicing skin, blood, tendons, bones, 5 viscera, 6 internal organs, and God. At this time in Shangba village, Hua Luyun was vigorously scratching her hair. My head itches like I'm trying to grow a brain. Chapter 2, Qi practicing triple sky. Killing a bull with 1 punch. There are no years in cultivation, and it has been 3 years since the turn of the year. Hua Luyun had also grown from a 16-year-old youngster into a 19-year-old young man. His eyebrows became more and more mature and stable, and his clear and handsome face revealed an evil, gangly aura. These 3 years door-to-door matchmakers have stepped on the threshold of his house. Who does not know the reputation of the only seedling of the village of Shangba? Married to him can inherit all the fields of the entire village of Shangba. In the future, there will be endless rice to eat, endless fields to plant, and life will be well off. However, Hua Luyun did have only the great Tao in his heart. The first page of the Gongfu was now so well practiced that he could say that he had memorized every punctuation mark. It doesn't seem right here. It should be that the old god who wrote the Gongfu in the first place wrote the wrong words. As he practiced, he took a brush and tinkered with the technique, and the first page had already been altered and labeled with Chinese characters. It can be said that now any little friend who crosses over can get this Gongfu and directly cultivate it, and there is absolutely no need to worry about crossing over and not being able to read and write. Not only the text, the small figure of Xingong was also refined by him. What the hell was drawn before? Not even a small koan. After his modifications, all the little figures were visualized and looked alive. After cultivating all morning, he stood up and stretched. At this point it was time to go and plow the fields for the Sun Dinyang's family. Just last year uncle passed away, and naturally such a heavy job fell on his head. The sun was shining outside the house and it was a great day for farm work. He walked towards the mountain path. Although he did not see him running, his speed was indeed as fast as thunder. When his figure disappeared at the mountains, Two masked figures sneaked out from behind the earthen house. Go farther. I'll keep watch. You go faster. One man looked around warily while the other quickly tumbled into the small mud courtyard. Ma Anshan up and down who do not know Hua Luyun got the immortal bestowed treasure. Before they do not take it seriously. But recently Hua Luyun fell more and more handsome martial arts, which naturally attracted the attention of others. Coveting this gong method of the people can be not a few. The masked man rushed into the room and caught a glimpse of the loan book tossed casually on the table. Got it. He rushed out of the house and the two met up and quickly left the crime scene. Hua Luyun naturally didn't know that the gongfu had been stolen, and was pulling a plow to plow the land at this time. No way. The only plowing ox in the village was killed by his punch, and now he is the ox of the village. Ryun, why don't you take a break? Sun Dan Yang advised rather heartily. Hua Luyun, on the other hand, was not amused. What a joke. I need to take a break to plow a field for an immortal at the chi refining stage? Don't worry, ma'am. I'm an immortal now. Pulling your 2 acres of land isn't a breeze. Seeing that Hua Luyun insisted, Dame Sun also stopped speaking. This child has grown up and has not married a daughter-in-law, so he really has inexhaustible strength. After turning over half an acre he sat crouched at the edge of the ridge and took a sip of water. A few years ago, before the little ones were taken away by the fairies, the fields were full of laughter at this time of year, and now they are rather dead, and I wonder what realm they are in. A person with no spiritual roots himself was at the chi refining stage. They should have already formed Dan, or Yuaning. It couldn't be that they had already transformed into gods. Thinking of this he instantly got up and punched a set of boxing skills. This was his recent discovery, that there was even a matching martial arts skill in that gongfu. Luckily he's good at research or he wouldn't have found it at all. Lu Yun, there's a teacher in the village. You're the most educated in our village. The village chief asked me to ask you to go back and entertain him. On the mountain beam, Auntie Zhao yelled at the top of her voice into the distant fields. There are no telephones in this world, and communication is all about yelling. If you want to talk about who is the loudest, it is Auntie Chiu. If you want to say who is the biggest threat to Hua Liuyun's position in the village, it is also this Auntie Zhao. I heard that her family is preparing for the birth of a third child. If she was allowed to succeed, Hua Liuyun's status as the sole seedling of the Upper Dam village would definitely not be guaranteed. Coming. Hua Luyun picked up the linen clothes that he had thrown on the ridge and rushed towards the village in a flurry of wind. These days, teachers are very rare, and the number of people who can read and write together is less than a handful, while those who can teach and educate are even harder to find. Rushing to the village headman's house, I finally saw the first teacher in 19 years. I saw the person wearing a turban, wearing a green shirt washed to white. His age was about 27 or 88, and his every move made people feel elegant and easygoing. Hua Luyun hurriedly arched his hand and performed a deacon's salute. Kid Hua Luyun, meet you sir. Bai Tao turned around and looked up and down at the young man in front of him, nodding his head in a rather satisfied manner. I heard the village chief say that you are diligent and studious, but you suffer from the lack of a good teacher, and now that I am passing by here, I can guide you a little. Flowers Luyun heard the heart of the great joy. This is not sleepy to have a pillow it. That book of Gongfa a lot of words he did not recognize it. So immediately, he dipped his hand in some tea and wrote a few words on the ground, the very words on the cover of the Gongfu. Sir, I wonder how to pronounce these words. Bai Tao looked down and saw that the character was written horizontally and vertically. It was very hard to read. Luckily he wasn't a prodigal. These 5 characters are the Xian Tianqi refining method. Just as he finished speaking Hua Luyun froze. 5 words? Isn't that 7 ing words? Isn't this the great Taoist monument wrestler? Bidding farewell to Bai Tao, Hua Luyun was a little muddled on the way home. 3 years. A full 3 years of practicing wrongly, and I don't know if it's too late to change it. The Xian Tianqi practicing method was concerned with absorbing the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth, while the great Tao Wuji monument wrestling hands of his own understanding was focused on horizontal training, and when a punch was thrown, it would open up the monument and break the stone, and nothing would be unbreakable. It was a completely different direction, and this time it was a little too far off topic for him to take in for a while. Welp, looks like we'll have to take the book to the gentleman and ask for advice word by word. After making up his mind, Hua Luyun pushed open the door of the earth house. He froze. The gongfu that normally lay honestly on the table had disappeared. Shijiatan, next door to Shangba village, Shilong and Shi flew all the way back to the house. After locking the door, Shilong took out the stolen gongfu from his arms. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. This time it could be said that they had made a lot of money. Shi rummaged out another book from under the bed, which was quite old, with densely written text, and next to the text were some patterns to contrast, equivalent to the Blue Star's dictionary. The two men began to look up the dictionary and translate it. Found it. The word reads Shen. The Xianmen vomiting technique. Quick! Check what's in there. Big brother. There are illustrations of how this looks a bit like the art of boudoir. What do you know? That's what makes it subtle. The two of them checked for a while and probably knew how to cultivate inside. So they began to cultivate according to the little figure on the chart. At this time in Shangba village, Hua Luyun was vigorously scratching her hair. My head is itchy. Like I'm growing a brain again. Chapter 3 Xian Tian Breathing Method Version 3.0. Although the Xian Tian breathing method was stolen. However, Hua Luyun was not discouraged. 3 years this gongfa has long been he turned over thousands of times. Can say that inside the content of 80% of his memory? As for the remaining 20%, no before and after the content of guessing the middle can be said to be as easy as a slap in the face. He immediately found a tree branch to write and draw on the earthen wall and began to repair the contents of the Xian Tian breathing method. It took a full day for him to recover the feats. It is slightly different from the original text, but it should not be a big problem. The original gong method given by the fairy could be called the Xian Tian breathing method version 1.0. What he has misinterpreted and practiced is version 2.0. As for the original loss of the gongfu now, the modified content after the mimeograph, Hua Luyun called it version 3.0. I was already cultivating version 3.0 when the people of the flying immortal Holy Land were still cultivating version 1.0. How can they compare to me? Moreover, this time, the writing of feats he used was not the script of this world, but the Chinese characters of the previous world, so it can be said that whoever came here could not read it. It's also time for the people of this world to get a taste of what it's like to be illiterate. Putting down the branch and running his gong method, he immediately felt the bottleneck in his body loosen. In less than half an hour the chi cyclone and the dantian exploded with the blood flowing throughout the body, and at this moment one could even feel every cell in the inner body leaping. I'm making a breakthrough? The powerful sense of strength gave Hua Luyun a feeling of being invincible in the world, and he immediately got up and blasted his fist towards the gate. The wind of the fist sent a cloud of smoke and dust curling and shattering the furniture in the room. With a loud boom, the wooden door suddenly exploded into pieces. Strong, too strong. This door, forget it, it doesn't matter. Being the only child of Shangba village, would he care about the wooden door of a broken earth house? After the breakthrough, Hua Luyun once again checked the gongfu on the wall and realized that there were no more reference points in the book. The gong method is written with the cultivation of the dantian cyclone will get bigger and bigger, and finally cast the Taoist foundation. With the Taoist foundation as the space to condense the core is the golden elixir. But my chi spin is gone, and I didn't find any dioji. This gongfa is not written wrong. This night, Hua Luyun lost sleep. He felt that the other party, a hallowed immortal of the flying immortal Holy Land, would not be so bad as to cheat himself with this fake gongfu, but how can he say that this is not the same as the gongfu after cultivation? Early the next morning, although he hadn't slept all night, Hua Luyun was still in high spirits. Thinking about it, one possibility finally came to mind. It was rumored that all cultivation should be accompanied by pills and supplemented with heavenly materials and treasures, and it was most likely that the lack of pills had led to the dispersal of one's chi cyclone. When I think of it, I will do it, and I will find a hoe in the yard. And I will go up to the mountain today to dig up heavenly treasures to make pills. Along the way the villagers greeted each other warmly. Lu Yun, is this another trip to hoe the fields for Widow Li's family? I'll be damned. Widow Li's land was finished hoeing 2 days ago by the second master. Lu Yun should have gone to dig a ditch for Sun Ernyang's family. Mr. Bai landed in Shangba village in the past 2 days, and when he saw Hua Luyun from afar, he performed a hand salute. But Hua Luyun did notice that the other party's eyes kept glancing in the direction of Aunt Zhao's house. This guy doesn't have a fetish. Hua Luyun thought so in his heart, but he returned the other party's salute. Although Auntie Zhao was a beauty when she was young, but now she's over 40, plus rural women face the soil all day long, and has long been dark and dull. It should be their own overthinking. Shangba village is built on the mountainside. The foot of the mountain is sparse fields. Out of the village to walk a mile or two is a steep saddle hill. To dig the heavenly treasures is certainly to go farther. Based on the experience of his last life, Hua Luyun knew that the deeper the mountains and old forests, the more off the beaten path the more heavenly treasures there would be, and if there was 1 or 2 strange ferocious beasts guarding next to them it would be even more stable. Over the saddle hill, looking at the endless deep forests ahead, it was as if he saw countless precious medicinal herbs beckoning to him. Once again, he passed through this woodland and felt like he was about to reach his destination when Hua Luyun was dumbfounded. Ahead is a small village. Shijiatan. It shouldn't be. Shijiatan doesn't go this way. They were all neighboring villages, and naturally he had been to Shijiatan, remembering that it was first down a hill, then across a river, then over a hill, then across a river, and then over a dirt road. How could it be in this position? Despite no longer believing it, The facts were in front of them. Hua Luyun could only give up the struggle. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a strong stench did waft through the air, which caused his raised footsteps to come to a halt. This smell he had smelled on a dead dog in his previous life. It was the smell of a corpse. Whispering softly over the cluttered vegetable fields outside the village, he finally got a glimpse of the village, only to see that the not-so-large village was strewn with corpses. The whole village was unusually quiet and seemed to be devoid of living people. Holy, I'm scared less. Hua Luyun pulled his legs out and ran, both his legs inverted into phantoms. How had he ever seen this kind of scene in his 2 lifetimes? He only felt his little heart beating hard in his chest. The trees he passed along the way were knocked sideways as he ran out 30 miles before he stopped to catch his breath. It's not tired. It's scared. After only 30 seconds of rest, he once again lifted his pants leg and ran wildly, this time running back to the house in one breath, pulling the yard door shut and then starting to shiver as soon as the quilt was thrown over him. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Scared the hell out of me. Village entrance. Bai Tao carried a pair of hands on his back, his eyes staring unblinkingly at Aunt Zhao's hut, his eyes full of hope. While he was having a cozy look on his face, the green shirt on his body was suddenly swept up by a gust of wind, and he saw a figure swept past like lightning. His mouth fell open in dismay. The one who just went over was Flower Luyun? So fast. As a Confucian practitioner, this kind of speed is not something he has not seen, but that is the speed of the Foundation Stage Imperial Sword. Running on the ground can be so fast he is the first time to see. See a ghost? No, ghosts he'd seen before, but ghosts certainly weren't this fast. After a slight hesitation, he still walked towards the Hua Luyun family hut and pushed the courtyard door, which seemed to be resisted by something from the inside. Around the courtyard gate to the side, the mud courtyard wall was only a meter or so high, and it was clear to see into the courtyard. The yard was small and clean inside, with a stone mill set up at the edge of the yard and a few dead orchid plants planted next to it. The earth hut in the back was very simple, not even a big door. Through the doorframe could see a figure shivering on the old wooden bed in the house. After a moment of contemplation, Shirato braced himself against the fence with one hand, rolled over, and jumped into the yard, hiding under the covers. Hua Luyun had just calmed down somewhat when he heard footsteps coming from within the small courtyard. The footsteps were slow and light, unhurried, but as if each step was on his heartbeat. This scared him even more inside. It just felt like I was already in a desperate situation. The voice quickly came to the bedside, and Hua Luyun curled up under the covers and shrank towards the wall. His fingers lightly clasped his brow, his head still itching. Chapter 4: Confucianism's Vast and Positive Spirit Technique. Shirato came to the bed and lifted a corner of the covers to look inside. The ear-piercing screams resounded throughout the small mountain village, directly shaking the eardrums of this Confucian great cultivator. The figure on the bed froze for 2 seconds before making a flying leap to hug his thighs, tears and snot wiping straight onto his green shirt. The voice was even more shaky. Sir, help! Bai Tao sighed as he looked at Hua Luyun, who was hugging his thighs in tears. He originally thought that this guy was a recluse, but it seems that he was overly concerned. Someone's after you? No. What powerful figure have you offended? Doesn't seem to have one either. Hua Luyun wiped a handful of cold sweat from his forehead before he trembled and told what he had seen in Shijiatuan. Bai Tao helplessly glanced at Hua Luyun with some good humor in his eyes. That's it? What are you doing in Shijiatuan? Hua Luyun also does not hide. The main fight and honest explanation. The immortal from the Flying Immortal Holy Land gave me a copy of the immortal cultivation technique, and lately I've been feeling rather sluggish in my cultivation, so I thought I'd go up to the mountains to dig up some spirit herbs. Black lines sprang up on his forehead as Bai Tao's gaze went to the words and images carved into the earthen wall. What is this mess? Not to mention that the text is all wrong. Just look at the illustration of the line of work. Cultivation is bound to go into the fire. Just, having known each other for a while, Confucianism preaches that there is no such thing as teaching. He pulled out a green leather book from his pocket and handed it to Hua Luyun. This is for you. Don't practice recklessly in the future. Hua Luyun's eyes immediately sparkled when he saw the cultivation technique, and he hurriedly received it with both hands. Haotian longevity technique? Shut up you. This is Confucianism's Weiren-Jingqi skill. Practicing it can cultivate Weiren-Jingqi. It's endlessly useful. What does the Haoran-Jingqi look like? And how is it so wonderful? Haoran righteousness is formless and colorless. It is the righteousness of heaven and earth. It nourishes the soul, and it does not invade evils. You'll know about it later, White Tao said, but in his heart he thought that Flowers Luyun will not be able to cultivate the spirit of righteousness. Want to cultivate the spirit of righteousness must have a heart of justice. The heart is not tough. People cannot be initiated in the end. After an explanation he left the door, originally wanting Hua Luyun to take him to Shijiatuan to take a look. But Hua Luyun was deathly unwilling to go out. The face full of fear made him quite annoyed. With this kind of mind still wanting to cultivate Haoyan Jingqi, it was simply delusional. Hua Luyun began to study this newly acquired technique after sending Bai Tao away. The main point of the Haoranjiang Qi skill is to do as one pleases. Farming can raise Haoranjiang Qi. Laundry can raise Haoranjiang Qi. And teaching can also raise Haoranjiang Qi. When he said he would do it, after understanding the idea of the gong method, he carried a hoe and plowed the soil in the yard to plant. As for going out, no way. Absolutely no way. In just half a morning, Hua Luyun felt a trace of qi appear in his body. Spreading out his palms to run the gong method, a wisp of airflow rose up from the palm of his hand, which was colored like a reddish haze and looked ethereal and divine. Something's not right. Sir, said the Haoranjiang Qi is formless and colorless. Hua Luyun furrowed his brows, somewhat unable to figure out why his Haoran Qi was red. Retracting his qi flow, this time he began to meditate and read, reciting the Tao Te Ching. Half an hour later it raised a strand of Haoran Qi again. Only this time it was different again. This time it was cyan in color. It's not right. Keep changing. Sword dance in the courtyard. In gold. Sitting still and fuming. White. Sleep with your head covered. Blue. Tossed for several days. Only feel now in their own body colorful. What color of the vast and righteous qi have? Just no formless and colorless. Holy, there's a mistake in the kung fu. Hua Luyun turned over the gong method and began to repair and change it. All said that it should not be passed on lightly. Mr. Bai gave himself the gong method must have been simplified. After figuring out the key to it, he started tossing around version 2.0 of the Haoranjiang Qi technique. As long as anything has a catalog, it is much easier to fill in the content. And now the gongfu in his hand is the catalog. And it is not difficult to repair the whole book based on this. It was basically completed in only one day and night, during which he also borrowed the Xian Tian breathing method from the Flying Immortal Holy Land. It can be said to be as good as it gets. In the days of his seclusion, the news of the tragic massacre of Shijiatan has been spread throughout the 10 miles of the townships, and heard that the villagers died in a miserable state, and the blood of the whole body was sucked out, just like a demonic Taoist cultivator. Even this matter has alarmed the immortals of the Flying Immortal Holy Land to come down to the mountain to check. The county even sent countless experts to search the mountain for 100 miles in a radius, but unfortunately nothing was found. On this day, Hua Luyun was diligently practicing his sword in the small courtyard, and he could feel the golden Haoranjiang Qi in his body gradually growing. This feeling of getting better every day made him want to stop. Outside the courtyard, Shirato greeted him through the wall. Kid, it's been so long since the Shijiatan incident, and you still don't dare to go out? Hua Luyun pushed open the courtyard door and looked around vigilantly, seeing that there were no suspicious characters before pulling Bai Tao into the small courtyard. Mr. Bai, you don't know. I've been having nightmares every day for the past few days. Those villagers died too tragically. Staying in the village for the past few days, Bai Tao also roughly knew where Hua Luyun came from. He was not a native of Shangba village, but was picked up by old man Wang in the Wang Air River at the bottom of the mountain, when Hua Luyun was still a swaddled baby. The only thing that could prove his origin was the name tag he carried around his neck, so Elder Wang didn't rename him again. Other people as orphans eat 100 meals. Hua Luyun is not the same. Old man Wang is a famous old bachelor in the village, so he ate all the milk from the village women to put together the first of 100 milks. After the old man Wang passed away, he was in the village every day to rotate the food, but also fortunate that the village is small but also quite rich, otherwise he will not grow so big. Bai Tao couldn't help but sigh a little. This reputation of being the only seedling of Shangba village really wasn't just for nothing. Lu Yun, a scholar, cultivates righteousness and acts in a calm and decent manner, without fear of evil or power. Hua Luyun held a disciple's salute with both hands in a respectful manner. You're right, sir. Shirato nodded, still listening. Then come with me for a walk. No, we'll just wander around the village and stay out of it. No. In the end, after some persuasion, Hua Luyun still refused to take half a step out of the small courtyard, and Bai Tao could only shake his sleeve and leave. He had been teaching and educating people for dozens of years, and had never seen such a greasy person. And what he regretted the most right now was passing on that Haoran Zhengqi skill to Flower Luyun, which was purely a waste. Walking to the entrance of the village, Bai Tao moved a rocking chair and laid down leisurely, his gaze once again looking in the direction of Aunt Zhao's house. After a long while he shifted his gaze away and looked at the ridge outside the village, where a middle-aged man in silver-white battle armor was walking slowly on the ferry bridge over the ravine. Ha! The news leaked out after all. Bai Tao stopped paying attention after a cold snort. It was inevitable that a small mountain village that had raised 15 supreme celestial pride would be targeted. If it wasn't for the Flying Immortal Holy Land's strict defense, this small place would have been afraid that it would already be unsettled. The white-robed general walked straight into the village, lifting his leg and kicking a white pottery rocking chair. Hey, how do I get to Hana Liu Yun's house? Chapter 5, The 100 Battles to Kill the Gods. Red vastness +1. White vastness +1. White vastness +1. Purple vastness +1. Hiss. This Hao Ran Zhang Qi skill could actually cure headaches. Hua Luyun was happily harvesting all sorts of Hao Ran Qi when he heard a loud bang and the small courtyard gate was kicked out. He hastily sidestepped and avoided it, only to see a general in white robes standing outside the courtyard. The person who came was tall and unusually sturdy, with a face that revealed a stalwart and murderous aura, giving off a feeling of invincibility at a glance. Your flower Lu Yun? Chu Tianxiao took a large step into the small courtyard, and without waiting for Hua Luyun to respond, he raised his hand and threw over a gongfu that was stained with dark red blood. This is the 100 battles kill god technique. This martial will give you 3 days. If you can be initiated, you can join my 100 battles kill god army. If you fail to be initiated in 3 days, die. When he finished speaking he instantly turned around and left. The entire time Hua Luyun didn't even have a chance to say a word of refusal. When he reacted and rushed out of the small courtyard, where was the other party on the street? Force buyers and sellers. His face was grim as he returned to the small courtyard. He knew that the small village would be targeted, but he didn't think it would be so soon. At that moment, he once again thought of Mr. Bai, who had stayed in the village, and was afraid that the other party was not simply passing by to rest his feet. Or else how could he have been staring at Auntie Zhao's house? Murphy, Auntie Zhao is also a great emperor? Power. I need more power. Hua Luyun flipped open the 100 battles kill divine skill. This technique was different from the 2 that he had practiced before. The Xian Tian breathing method was about exhaling. The Haoran Jingqi skill was about cultivating the body, while this 100 battles kill divine skill was more focused on killing the enemy. The other party dared to hand over the gongfa to himself without fear, certainly did something on the gongfa. He had read a novel in his previous life where an old man taught his disciples doctored gong methods and then extracted cultivation from them after they had learned them. Just like raising parasites, there's also a bad guy who spreads the tampered kung fu in a big way, while he can control the minds of these people behind the scenes. What an evil mind. Hua Luyun secretly gritted his teeth. He naturally wouldn't do it for others. Then the only way was to modify the gongfu before cultivating it. This one he was very good at. Maybe too nervous. This time a full 2 days passed is still not cultivated into the door. C is coming to the date of acceptance of his heart more and more urgent. To run away? But what about the people in the village? Looking at the moon hanging high outside the window, Hua Luyun was in a tangle. Growing up in the village of Shangba, the village people have the grace of life to him. If the other side of the escape to take the villagers to take the anger how to do. That's all. Let's do it first. With a hardened heart and clenched teeth, he took out the only wood chopper in the house and felt his way out of the village in the moonlight. In the compartment of the village chief's house, Bai Tao, who had picked the lamp to read at night, put down his book and walked to the window with his hands behind his back. Even though the night was as dark as ink, he could still make out the figure carrying the woodchipper. I was the one who looked away before, but there was some blood in my veins. Only, I'm not sure I'll be able to come back. Watching the figure gradually get swallowed up by the trees in the mountains, Bai Tao returned to the table to continue reading. It's better to study. This is the result of not studying well. You can only do reckless things, and you won't get good results in the end. Hua Luyun pulled out his firewood knife after leaving the village. These 2 days I heard that the white-robed general did not leave, but pitched his tent at the top of Saddle Mountain in order to rest. It was thought to guard the hamlet to avoid his escape. Night Mountain Road is not good to walk, but Flower Luyun's speed is really not slow. His figure is like a ghost. Where he passes the dew does not touch the body. Did not send out the slightest movement. Since it was a sneak attack, he definitely couldn't let the other side be alerted. In the mountaintop tent, Chu Tianqua suddenly opened his eyes. The entire mountain is extremely quiet. Even the sound of birds chirping and insects chirping has disappeared. He has been in hundreds of small and large battles in his life, since he is particularly sensitive to the killing atmosphere. Although Hua Luyun did not emit the slightest movement, the almost undisguised killing intent was indeed so clear. It's a bit interesting. I just wanted to force him, but I didn't expect to force him to be evil. Taking the lance at his side, he secretly lifted a corner of the tent to look outside, and saw Hua Luyun squatting on the ground pouring arsenic into his marching pot. Good boy. You're still playing dirty. After pouring the arsenic, Hua Luyun stretched out his finger and stirred it in the pot twice, finally smacking his finger in his mouth. Good. Colorless and odorless. Now even if you die, the other party won't be able to get away with it. Gulping, he touched towards the army tent with the wood knife, and when he was 10 meters away he lifted the knife and slashed it violently at the army tent, and the light of the meter-long knife flashed away. When the tent exploded, Chu Tianqua raised his spear and stabbed Hua Luyun in the throat. Both of them are suddenly shot. Chu Tianqua think Flower Luyun just mortal. Flower Luyun do not know that they have long been found by the other side, under mutual fight or almost both to the west. In a panic, Hua Luyun held the firewood knife across his face. Dang! The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing resounded through the mountains, startling countless flying birds. The firewood knife was directly broken into two sections by the powerful force impact, but fortunately, he dodged the shot by using the weapon to collide with each other. The great Dao Wuji monument wrestling hand. Hua Luyun abandoned his sword and switched his claws to grab at Chu Tianqua's throat. The opponent crossed his spear to block, and the first time the two of them exchanged blows, they were fighting for their lives. Chu Tianqua kept retreating. The more he fought in his heart, the more alarmed he was. The news he got was that 15 cultivation geniuses had appeared here, and there was only one teenager in the whole village who was unable to cultivate. Originally, he had come with the mindset of trying to see if he could pick up a leak, but he didn't want to be left with this being the real demon. One must know that he was a foundation establishment cultivator, and he was a foundation establishment cultivator who mainly focused on killing. Now it's surprising that he's being pressed by a teenager. That powerful force shocked his arm numb. If not holding a spirit gun, both are empty-handed physical combat words, he may have been defeated. Wait a minute. Fa Luyun, there might be some misunderstanding between us. Hua Luyun continued to perch up, not giving Chu Tianqua time to slow down. Every second of the battle of life and death can determine the victory or defeat. Once he hesitates, he will probably be crucified on top of this saddle hill the next moment. There's no misunderstanding. Today I'm here to kill you. Seeing Hua Luyun's oil and salt, Chu Tianqua took a step into the air and flew towards the mountain. His speed was as fast as lightning, treading the air and flying at the foundation stage. Seeing the other party run away, Hana Luyun froze in place for 3 seconds. It was also only 3 seconds before he pulled his legs out and chased towards Chu Tianqua. Except that he couldn't fly and could only run among the mountains and forests. But his speed wasn't slow. The other party's strength is extraordinary, and seems to be quite powerful, and now has been offended, cannot let the tiger return to the mountain. The two chased and fled quickly out of Tianlong County, and further on is the border of Shunan County, during which Chu Tianqua stopped several times to see if Hua Luyun had given up. Just every time he did not wait for him to rest for a few moments. The back of that side of that rolling smoke appeared in the line of sight. Damn! What kind of dog is this? He had no choice but to once again harness the air to fly. The body of the aura is full of time we're pressed to fight, and now a long flight consumes a huge amount of even more is not a rival. Shangba Village, also known as Shengba Village, on the Changjiang or Yangtze River in Sichuan. The sky is slightly white. Bai Tao pushed the door to look at the top of the saddle hill not far away. Although he already knew the result, he could not help but feel a little lost in his heart. If Hua Luyun had some talent, the general of the mortal dynasty would have spared his life. But he doesn't know a single word and has no spiritual roots in his body. This kind of scrap material striking out at a foundation establishment cultivator, the result could be imagined. Chapter 6, The Great Miles Chase. Bai Tao shook his head and once again came to the entrance of the village, staring habitually at An Zhao's dilapidated earthen house. Nanguiguigua Wang Tian Chang. At 9 o'clock in the morning, when the 100 officials were on time for the court meeting, Emperor Zhao Shanhe looked at the group of ministers in the hall and frowned slightly. What's going on? Great General Shenwu was absent from work again. Does he think I don't dare to jerk him off as a great general? Upon hearing His Majesty's question, Chu Tianqua's best friend, Admin Dao Shan, hurriedly stood out in the hall. Your Majesty, recently General Chu heard that the Flying Immortal Sanctuary had picked up a treasure in Nashankara, Shunan County. So General Chu went to Shunan County to see if there was anything the other side had missed. Zhao Shanhe heard immediately came to interest. Shunan County is extremely remote. Heard that the people there do not have enough food, clothing. The court will allocate some money every year for relief. This kind of place is even a treasure? And it's still a treasure that can make Chu Tianguac's heart flutter. Tell me quickly, what is the treasure? Acting Dosan hesitated or answered. Man! A brilliant light flashed in Zhao Shanhe's eyes. Could it be that a great beauty has come out of that mountain? Ha ha ha. No wonder my great General Shenwu went to Shunan without a word. So he moved his mortal heart. Shudoshan laughed twice in embarrassment and didn't make a defense. For the Shunan County in one breath out of 15 absolute heavenly pride thing he naturally dare not say in this court meeting. Who knows, this minister will not have enemy spies. A strong practitioner is the foundation of a nation. So under the deliberate concealment of Shudao Mountain, the matter of Divine Marshal General Chu Tianqua going to Shunan County to look for a woman instantly spread through the streets. In just one day even the children knew about this affair of the great general. It was just that everyone was equally curious as to what kind of woman could have obtained the favor of great General Shenwu, going so far as to travel thousands of miles to Shunan to find someone. Shunan City is not big, but as Shunan County is also quite prosperous. The streets are full of traders, and it looks peaceful and quiet. There are occasional battles in the south, but they are in the north. so the soldiers guarding the city are all dozing off with their guns on the ground in a lazy manner. Just then a red light flew from the sky and fell at the entrance of the city. The soldier panicked and picked up his lance to drink. Who is the visitor? Their voices were loud but clearly lacking in energy, and their bodies kept retreating backward trying to run back to the city. This was a cultivator. A cultivator who could fly in the sky was at least at the foundation stage. Chu Tianxiao straightened his messy hair, and his silver-white battle armor was already covered in some dust. Is your sheriff here? He took out the Killing God army token, and the soldiers, who were quite literate, put down their weapons and bowed. The county governor is in the city. I don't know that Grand Marshal Shenwu is here. I'll go and inform him now. Chu Tianque retrieved the token and did not enter the city. There's a madman back there. You guys help me stop him. 10 breaths. Just 10 breaths. After saying that he once again flew up into a long rainbow heading north. The soldiers at the gates looked at each other in disbelief. What was happening? They didn't believe that anyone would dare to hunt down and kill great General Shenwu within the southern kingdom. Just before they could think about it, a line of smoke rolled over the horizon, and it was only after that smoke was near that they could see that it was actually a man, like a madman, only to see Hua Liuyun's head full of long hair in disarray, his linen long coat torn and tattered, already shredded beyond recognition, his tongue sticking out, his eyes as scarlet as an evil ghost. To know that this way even Chu Tianque who was flying in the sky looked so lousy, let alone him who was running on the ground. Anyone else faced with such a scenario I'm afraid to give up, but he did not dare to give up. Once the enemy slowed down I'm afraid that the demise of the village is the upper dam. Nearing the city gates he slammed a sharp brake, and a sky of smoke and hurricane wind lashed out at the traders and soldiers at the city gates, toppling the makeshift stores and the terrified crowds. You guys, cough. Only 2 words out of his mouth he was mortaring his knees and coughing violently. After a long time he finally calmed down the hardness in his chest, and immediately ran to the moat and fiercely drank 2 mouthfuls of river water. Have you guys seen anyone fly through here? The soldiers defending the city had raised their hands to point north. Joking aside, this is ironically the person who is chasing after great General Shenwu to get them to stop. How can we stop it? Not to mention 10 breaths. Even 1 breath is difficult. We all have old people and young people. The gods fight with mortals can only seek their own death. Flower Luyun found the right direction to build up power under his feet again. And when he started, he brought up a gale, and his speed directly exploded. The 2 chased and fled quickly out of the Shunan County boundaries. The news spread throughout the southern country, set off countless wild storms. All said that the Shenwu great general went to the mountains to snatch people's women, and as a result, angered people's husbands. The matter was revealed to be true by the Grand Secretary of the Southern Kingdom, Xu Daoshan. The left Prime Minister published his views on the matter on the same day, and all the behavior of General Shenwu was private behavior, not representing the official position of the southern country. The southern country is huge, spanning nearly 10,000 miles from north to south. Chu Tianque dashed left and right around a lot of detours, enough to rely on perseverance to fly nearly 10,000 miles before escaping to the capital of the country, Tian City. Foundation stage spirit power is limited. If it is according to common sense to fly hundreds of miles has long since bottomed out. Visible Chu Tianque how strong the desire to survive. After this incident to see Shu Daoshan published a paper that shocked the cultivation world of the Southern Kingdom and received high appreciation and comments from countless cultivation giants, on the limits of what a foundation stage cultivator can explode in the face of life and death. Outside of Tian City, he watched as Chu Tianque's figure stumbled and rushed into the city. Hua Luyun unwillingly hid into a ditch in a farmland outside of the city. He panted heavily, only feeling his heart bumping badly. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, he had attempted to kill someone, and in the past few days, all he could think about was moving forward. Now I look back and get a chill down my spine. It's too impulsive. It was really impulsive this time. How dare you rush into someone's lair? Isn't this looking for death? At that thought he sank his body slightly into the gutter to avoid being seen by strangers. Calming his apprehension, he slightly stuck half his head out to look in the direction of the city gates. It was better not to see it, but to look at it and be scared out of your wits, only to see dozens of silver-armored soldiers rushing out of the city gates in a rage with their weapons, followed by an immortal old man. Holy, he doesn't talk about martial arts. He's shaking people. In fact, Chu Tianque had asked for help from the capital city and various parties more than once along the way, but naturally, the entire southern kingdom held the attitude of watching the fun, and it had been a long time since they had seen great General Shenwu in such a sorry state. Just make a mess. It's not still alive. But when it came to the imperial city, it was different. It was his territory at least, and the majesty of the heavenly family was at stake. See that kid? Don't let him get away. A sharp-eyed sergeant saw from afar Hua Luyun, who stretched out half of his head to survey the place, and for a moment dozens of people swooped this way. Chapter 7, Wind and Water. miles of escape. There were 6 peaks and 13 places in the flying immortal Holy Land. Each peak has its own specialization and is extremely powerful. At this time on the peak of the 10,000 swords, a waterfall from the 9 heavens down. From a distance as a silver-white long sword straight into the sky. Under the waterfall a young boy with a resolute face was sitting on a huge rock hammering his flesh. Although what he quoted was not the waterfall that fell from the 9 heavens, but only one of the tributaries that was blocked and cut off by the top of the mountain. The water still crackled as it struck him. A stalwart-faced man next to the waterfall couldn't stop smiling on his face. Not bad, not bad. After 3 years of initiation you've already reached the 8th level of chi refining. Worthy of being a great emperor. Such a heaven-defying cultivation speed had never been seen before. This is still only the heavenly spiritual root. I heard that the 2 immortal spiritual roots chosen by the patriarch have already built their foundations. They are simply demons that are hard to see in the ancient times. Sensing that someone had come to the boulder, Sun Changshan snapped his eyes open and jumped out of the waterhole in one leap. Disciple greets the peak master. He hadn't built his foundation yet and couldn't worship his master for the time being, so he could only address peak master he shall. But that day wouldn't be too far away. Ha ha. Good. Very good. Sun Changshan coyly touched his head. Peak master. I've been away from home for 3 years now, and I miss my mother and brother Nyor at home. Hearing this, he shall frowned. His tone stern. Hey, men need to aspire to the world. You think about it when you achieve the foundation. The turn of an instant thousands of miles and then go back to the village is how to feel. All the villagers look up to your might. And even the officials of that small country personally come to your house to flatter you. Sun Changshan's eyes lit up. Yeah, to say that it was deserved that people were peak masters, they just saw things through. Some people are enjoying the years. And naturally, some people are surviving in the wilderness. Hua Luoyun clenched his teeth strongly and soldiered on as he ran wildly through the fields. The immortal old Taoist in the air was chasing him with his sword. He already knew the other party's identity. The Southern Kingdom's Grand Priestess Shu Daoshan, a Jindan stage powerhouse. Chasing down a foundation stage and messing with a Jindan stage was simply disgusting. The world of cultivation is really disgusting. Hua Luoyun didn't dare to run towards Shunan County. He was worried about inviting wolves into the house. The villagers of Shangba village were ordinary people. Damn old man. Let me go. I have an old man and a young man. And you'll be guilty of a great sin if you die here. Shu Daoshan smiled lightly at the corner of his mouth, not hurrying, as if he was walking a dog. Kid, go ahead and curse. The more you curse, the more excited the old man gets. I'm going to count to 3. If you run again, don't blame me for bullying you. Although he said on his mouth, but has not been hands, more want to see how much potential this guy actually have. How much more can run. To know that Chu Tianqua from Shunan County to escape back almost lost half of his life, and now still lying at home cannot get off the bed. This time a slip was another tens of thousands of miles. Seeing that he was about to escape from the Southern Kingdom's territory, Shudao Mountain immediately accelerated trying to stop Flower Luoyun. But as he accelerated, the speed of the figure in front of him was similarly surging. Goo, this kid even has some strength left. Shudao Mountain's face was startled, then became grave. Ahead was the evil ghost abyss, the most terrifying forbidden land in the Southern Kingdom. Not good. He once again catalyzed the spiritual power to enhance the speed. But he did not speed up okay. He speed up the front of the guy as if he had eaten a strong drug. General instantly scurried out a long way, and screaming at the top of his lungs while running wild. Oh, my God, help! The old man killed someone. After selling out and chasing out tens of miles again, Shudao Mountain stopped. The land in front of him looked charred and black, and the air was laced with a faint scent of blood. The evil ghost abyss. He doesn't dare to enter. It's over. It's over. Hua Luoyun rushed forward for more than 10 kilometers. Seeing that no one was catching up behind him, sat on his butt on the ground and gasped for air. The savage continent suffers from old age. This time, make sure you're invincible before you get out of the gate. Although the enemy had given up for the time being, it could not be said that it was just to let his guard down. Hua Luoyun glanced around wanting to find a place to hide. Into the eyes is a desolate land. Grass and trees withered, as if bombed by a nuclear bomb. There are a few barren graves in the distance. Gritting his teeth, he approached the barren grave. The most dangerous place was the safest place, and he couldn't care less about being scared now. Picking the most inconspicuous one, Hua Luoyun looked at the worn tombstone. The tombstone is cluttered with the life of the owner. Konanzan, city in Malaysia. The first time from the text, into the Beijing examination. The inventory was stolen. No choice but to return to his hometown. After practicing martial arts, pouring all the family money to buy a halberd. Treacherous businessman deceived me to the second best. Throw the water can float. He practiced for 10 years to fly to the sky, but landed without getting his way, and died. Dude, I'm sorry, as miserable as you are, I really don't have anywhere else to hide. No offense. Hua Luyun finished digging through the grave soil, lifted the coffin, and buried the near Nanshan bones under the nearest tree. And then he laid himself in, covered the coffin, and then utilized his aura to restore the grave bag, and finally felt some sense of security in his heart. Just laying down, a sense of exhaustion struck him. Having run more than 20,000 miles without eating or drinking, his body had long been exhausted. Only a short while later, he fell into a deep sleep. The black earth from time to time blew a gust of cloudy wind. An antelope that mistakenly entered this place was scraped by the cloudy wind, and all its flesh and blood was blown away like cotton, leaving only snow-white skeletons scattered all over the ground. Uncle, there's something strange about this wind. Not far from the antelope, in the grass, 2 monks draped in a carpet of black earth were sprawled on the ground, their extreme camouflage making the place look no different from anywhere else. Humph, the evil ghost abyss is not a name for nothing. If I hadn't inadvertently obtained a technique for rewinding breath, I definitely wouldn't have entered this place even if I was dead. The two of them moved forward slowly while talking. The cautious look was not much worse than that of Flower Lu Yun in the slightest. A corner of the carpet was lifted, and through the gap a face of exquisite beauty could be seen looking out. The woman looked around, suddenly a divine light shone in her eyes. There are a few barren graves up ahead. Let's go there first to avoid this demonic wind. The carpet next to it buckled at one corner. Again a woman. But she was inexplicably a little palpitating at the sight of those barren graves. Senior uncle, will this not be too auspicious? No harm done. The two switched directions and squirmed again. This time it took more than an hour of climbing for the two to hide in the mound. It's almost nighttime. Let's find a deserted grave to hide in first, to avoid the 100 ghosts that walk at night. Uncle Shifu was obviously very experienced and knowledgeable about the dangers here, so the two men each picked a grave to dig. The jungle nymphs were uninhibited, and the two quickly dug up the burial mound. Senior nephew Morongyu was still quite polite, packing up the bones in the coffin and putting them aside. Elder, forgive me. I have no intention of offending. I'll put it back for you when I've avoided death. Senior Uncle Tang Kowei was not as preoccupied. She didn't even open the coffin to take a closer look, lifting a crack and drilling in. Not to mention, there is quite a lot of space inside, and it doesn't seem crowded to sleep two people. Chapter 8, Marriage in the Graveyard. You're pressing on my hair. After the coffin was covered, Tang Kowei slowly breathed a sigh of relief. This place was too dangerous. Her mind had been tense since she entered here. Now she could finally relax. Uncle, I'm a little scared. Morongyu's weak voice came from the nearby grave bag. Tang Kowei slowly opened her mouth, her voice filled with calmness and composure. What's there to be afraid of? They're all old-timers who've been dead for who knows how long and can still get up and do you in. Hurry up and rest. We have to go out tomorrow to look for the blood spirit flower. The entire graveyard fell silent once again. Only occasionally could I hear ghostly cries outside, or the sound of an army passing by. After all, it was a camping trip in the wilderness, so Hua Luyun didn't sleep very soundly and had nightmares all night. Half asleep he rolled over and an ethereal female voice murmured in his ear. Oops, you're crushing my hair. A cold shiver ran through his body, a chill surged up, and his entire body came to its senses. Only just waking up he almost fainted again. I don't know when he actually slept next to someone. From the sense of touch should be a woman. The other party at this time, hands around his neck. A slender jade leg is resting on his waist. Although the coffin is very dark, but the woman does not know what was painted on the face. Actually, in the darkness of the light, fluorescence looks miserable white. Holy, there's a ghost. Hua Luyun let out a scream. Her hands kept struggling, and her legs were stomping around in the coffin. He was scared now. In his previous life, Mouth Hai thanked nature for its gifts, and now retribution has finally come. In a daze, Tang Kowei received a kick in the small abdomen, and when she came to her senses, she didn't wait to figure out the situation. A big hand slapped on her face and pushed it hard to the side. To say that she was worthy of being an experienced cultivator, she immediately activated her aura to form a layer of protection over her entire body. Then he let go of his divine sense, and the situation in the narrow, dark coffin was clear at a glance. Where did the chi refining stage cultivator come from? In great alarm she scrambled to her feet. Ouch! The forehead hit the coffin board hard at once. Damn! My innocence! Tang Kowei had always been known as the world's #1 iceberg beauty in the sect, with countless fan followers, and in order to maintain her persona she was a character as cool as can be. How had a man ever touched her like this since she was a little girl, only to feel that now she was unclean? In her heart, under the shock and anger, she was so scared that she turned her hands into claws and rode on top of Hua Luyun, wanting to strangle him to death. Silenced, must be silenced. Just before his hands touched each other, he saw Hua Luyun's body jerk twice. His eyes rolled over, foaming at the mouth, and fainted. A mount. Is this an emergency? Are you that chicken? Hey, wake up. Tang Kuwei changed her claw into a palm and raised her hand to slap. However, Hua Luyun was unresponsive and looked as if she was at your mercy. This overwhelmed her a bit, and after a moment of hesitation she sighed. It's just a matter of bullying at chi refining stage and making people laugh. She rolled over and changed her position to lie down, but the space inside the coffin was narrow, and no matter what position she was in, she could never avoid sticking with the other person. Previously, she thought it was a corpse lying inside, but now it had been replaced by a living person. She felt uncomfortable. Damn, where the hell did that come from? Mentally apprehensive, she waited until dawn, then opened the coffin and took a deep breath of the fresh outside air. The cold, chilly wind blew, and Tang Kuwei, who was squatting on the edge of the coffin, clenched her silver teeth in death. In the coffin, Hua Luyun was in rags. His linen clothes were tattered and torn, and there was only one straw shoe on his feet, and the sole of the shoe was worn through. A proper beggar's look. Vomit. Tang Kuwei propped up her small abdomen and vomited for a while, unable to believe that she had been slept with by a beggar. Next to her, Moronyu also climbed out. She yawned while looking at Tang Kuwei suspiciously. Uncle Master, what's wrong with you? Tang Kuwei hastily tightened her mind. The critical time cannot let the young master-nephew see the clues. She sleeve robe wave coffin board once again covered. By the way, he moved a boulder and pressed on it, and in the end, feeling unstable, he put a gravity charm on the boulder. Amit Ba. Moronyu watched the former's bout of tawdry maneuvering in surprise, and was quite puzzled. Uncle Shifu, when did you become a believer in Buddhism? Humph. What do you know? This fairy is performing the transcendence for those who died unjustly here. Hua Luyun woke up again long after the two had left and took a deep breath after feeling that there were no abnormalities around him. A pang in the heart. I'm sure I can't sleep in a graveyard. I had a nightmare last night. Reaching out, he pushed at the coffin panel, but didn't push it away. Should not old sun refining stage cultivation so pull? Once again, he increased his strength and even manipulated his aura to try to lift the soil on the coffin board, but there was still no response, and he was suddenly panicked. I only want to stay temporarily, not permanently. Tossing and turning for half an hour, tired and panting, still no response. Mamma mia. Spitting out a curse, Hua Luyun sat down powerlessly on the ground. This is dead. 3 days later, the two women finally found the blood spirit flower without any danger. Moronyu was so excited that her little face turned red. With the blood spirit flower, her master was finally saved. Carefully putting the flowers away, her beautiful eyes inadvertently glanced to Tang Kuwei on the side. These days the latter looked depressed. Seemed to be in a not very good mood. Even yesterday her hair was coiled into a bun. What was even stranger was that just a moment ago the other man had tied a black cloth around his cuffs. Uncle, you can't tie it. It's the cloth a woman carries when her husband dies. The little ninny voiced out a reminder with a solemn face. But what she got in return was a blank stare from Tang Kuwei. How do you know I'm not dead, husband? Amount. When did uncle have a husband? And she's dead? She felt a little confused now, but was afraid to ask. The two returned the same way, still cautious, crawling and moving in their ghillie suits the entire time. During this time, they also encountered several dangers. There were babies crying by the roadside, whose cries were so loud that the earth trembled, and it seemed that countless horrible monsters were turning over in the ground. There were dry corpses hanging and swinging from trees, and only slightly closer you felt the rapid loss of moisture from your body. There is also a lost skeleton. Wherever he passes the sky inexplicably falls meteorites. The ground inexplicably collapses. The skeleton struggles to move forward, and his mouth is still chattering about who robbed his house. Worthy of being the evil ghost abyss. It's really terrifying. The two returned past the graveyard where they had originally rested, and Tang Kuwei looked sad. Silently, he threw away the most inconspicuous of the grave mound headstones and replaced it with a new one. The inscription was carved while kneeling and weeping. Tomb of the little beggar of the husband of Tong of the Free Sect. Moronyu's small cherry mouth opened wide, and a wave of sadness struck her heart. So you're already married, but your husband died in the evil ghost abyss? No wonder she was so familiar with this evil ghost abyss, and no wonder she had such a cool personality over the years. Uncle Shifu, good grief. Uncle Shifu, so deep. Chapter 9 Shin Tian Breathing Method Version 4.0. Deep or not, Hua Luyun doesn't know. Anyway, now he has already cursed that who locked him in the grave 1,000 times. Asterisk 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 asterisk, don't let me know who you are. I'll see you when I get out. Hey, who's out there crying in the grave? Stop crying for a second and help me move the stone. Can you hear me? Hello, hell is empty. The devil is on earth. You shout yours, I cry mine. A tombstone and a barren grave seem to be separated into two worlds. It's sad on the outside and even sadder on the inside. The cries gradually faded away, and Hua Luyun's mood hit rock bottom. The only way to survive now was to break through the foundation establishment stage and topple the seal. But the evil ghost abyss had no aura, only endless ghost chi. Not to mention him, even the world's first holy body couldn't do it. Thinking of this, Hua Luyun had a small light bulb go off in his head. What is the best thing about yourself? That is, of course, improving feats. Why couldn't it be improved by changing the original technique that required the absorption of aura in order to increase strength to the absorption of ghost aura? No, there's also a problem with absorbing ghost chi. When it comes time to leave this hellish place, you won't be able to cultivate. Why don't you just take one step and absorb the air instead? Think it and do it. He immediately copied the Xian Tian breathing method onto the coffin board and began to revise it. After a day and a half, the first air absorption cultivation technique in this world was born. Moreover, the cultivation of this gong method needs to be practiced in conjunction with the periodic table of elements, the air composition of various places, and the parameters of PM2, 5, etc. So it can be said that the knowledge points in it cover such a wide range of topics that the great emperor can only shake his head straight when he comes. Took a deep breath of air. Hua Luyun burped, only feeling that his strength was increasing by leaps and bounds. Oh ha 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 ha. I'm just a genius. While others breathe just to stay alive, they breathe to keep getting stronger. And they keep taking in air even as they sleep. The intensity of the original 8 hours of cultivation a day was now directly increased to 24 hours. Deserved to be invincible. Moreover, this gong method was a perfect match for one's Empyrean root. Ha ha ha. Who said I don't have a spiritual root? The name of this palace's spiritual root is called Empty Spiritual Root. Empty, empty, empty. As Hua Luyun took a few large gulps, the air in the entire evil ghost abyss thinned out a lot. Oxygen levels dropped dramatically, and animals that strayed into the area developed altitude sickness for a while. Free and unfettered clan, Buddhism. Morongyu came back and then quickly sent the blood spirit flower to the alchemy peak, and after 981 tedious procedures finally refined a life-saving elixir. Tears flowed from her master's beautiful eyes the moment she got the elixir. You've suffered. As long as master is unharmed, my disciple will die by all means. Yu Linglong then asked about the status of this trip. After some description by Morongyu, straight to Yu Linglong's heartbeat, the story of which is twisted, dangerous and thrilling, especially the part where Tang Kuwei invited the sword to battle the doomed death. It simply made Yu Linglong's blood swell as she listened to it, almost climaxing. Next month will be the Free Sect's disciple acceptance meeting. Your uncle has been devoted to the Tao all these years. 100 flowers peak talent withered. For the teacher to see her alone and lonely heart is very difficult. This time you have to properly identify a disciple for her. No? Look at Mount Everest next door. Millions of disciples. It's a hot mess everywhere you go. Said here Yu Linglong cannot help but once again tears of pathos. Experienced this life and death, so that she has a lot of enlightenment. What road to immortality and what method of becoming immortal are also illusory. It is better to live in the present moment. Think of your own master. Cultivating to increase longevity is for enjoyment, but wasting away on the path of pursuing the great Tao. How is this not a kind of sadness? Speaking of this, Morongyu's face was slightly strange. There were some things that she was curious about in her heart but didn't dare to ask. Finally, it was a euphemism to open the door. Master, do you know about the little beggar? What little beggar? Bah, you're the little beggar. Your whole family is the little beggar. Hua Luyun angrily kicked over the monument set up by Tang Kuwei. What the is this up to? In the past 2 days he finally figured out that it wasn't a nightmare that night. Someone had gotten under his covers while he was asleep. Afterwards, he didn't want to admit his guilt and wanted to kill people to silence them. So he put a seal on himself. Luckily, he was gifted. And with the Xian Tian breathing method version 4.0, he broke through the foundation establishment stage, which is how he escaped. But chance and risk went hand in hand, and he found a gongfu in the coffin. Flying imperial sword technique. This should be the same royal sword technique that made the tomb owner fall to his death near Nanshan. This gong method studied inertia quite deeply. If cultivated into the imperial sword, speed can be comparable to the Jindan stage. The weakness is that it consumes a lot and cannot be slowed down. If in the hands of others may be waste, but in their own hands that is a proper treasure. After all, other people imperial sword consumption is aura. Their own consumption is the air. Inhale a mouthful of how much is consumed to give it back immediately. It's the weak point of no breaks that's a bit of a pain in the ass. In only half an hour Hua Luyun had already practiced the technique to a small degree. Now all that's missing is a sword. After choosing a direction, he planned to leave this hellhole first. It was only a few steps before he stopped again, as if a woman was whispering in his ear, her voice floating and uncertain, sometimes far away, sometimes near. Who's pretending to be a ghost? Get out of there. Hua Luyun let out a bellowing cry. Murderous flashes in his eyes. Did he really think that he was still the same little chi refining stage cultivator who let people bully him? He was now at the foundation establishment stage, an existence capable of flying through the air. Even if the Southern Kingdom's great General Shenwu was in front of him, he would still have to respectfully address him as a fellow Taoist. "Oh, officer, stay with slave. It's so dark here. I'm scared." A ghostly voice rang out interspersed with a ghastly wind blowing black soot. Hua Liuyun's face was grave, and after a long moment of silence, he spoke firmly. "Your Excellency, please behave yourself. I'm not that kind of person." The evil spirit that was waiting for a chance to strike had its breath stuttered, only feeling that there was a mouthful of phlegm stuck in its throat, and it was particularly difficult to get up and down. Her illusory figure lunged at Flower Luyun. Just as she got close, she was sucked into the lungs by Flower Luyun, and then her soul body was quickly broken down and turned into energy, and she completely dissipated before she could scream in alarm. Asterisk 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 almost choked on that breath of air just now with excessive PM2.5". After waiting for half a second without seeing that voice, Hua Luyun shook his head and left. It took 2 days in a row to get out of the black earth, and seeing the lushness outside felt like a world away. After another 5 days of walking finally saw a city, and when I asked, I realized that this is no longer the southern border, and I was out of the country. "Will you get caught without a passport?" Walking into town with some trepidation, there were yells all along the way. Everyone, first-hand news of tomorrow's Prosperity Sex Disciple Acceptance Meeting. The Iceberg Beauty Tang Ko-wei is opening her first mountain to accept disciples. Everest Peak Master let slip that this time he's going to take in 5 Earth Spirit Roots in-laws. Selling a copy of Zhu Peak Master's preference record for only 3 Spirit Stones. Bright Moon Peak is recruiting handymen. 1 Spirit Stone per day. Just 10 people. Chapter 10, Am I Proud of My Empty Spirit Root? Hua Luyun straight away exclaimed, "Good guy." This disciple acceptance ceremony was organized like a yearly festival. At first he didn't really care. After all, he was an old monster at the foundation stage. Did he still need to worship his master? Just soon he refreshed the cognition. Because this street so many cultivators revealed the cultivation is the foundation stage. On inquire he realized that the original foundation stage is only the existence of the bottom of this world. For a moment into the blankness of the eyes, it felt like the temperature of the world was much colder. Asterisk 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 the foundation stage is only just stepping into the cultivation world? Cultivators on the street also frequently shook their heads in exclamation when they saw Flower Luyun. Alas! A beggar our foundation stage cultivation. We still need to work hard. Look son, in the future, if you don't cultivate hard, you can only grab leftovers to eat with this foundation stage beggar. Mom, Rainy knows, I'll work twice as hard. Hua Liuyun's heart was sad and angry. Even after being insulted so much he couldn't get up half a point to retort. How can you be so stupid as to have the face to retort and go back to your hometown to see the folks in Ma and Shan? No, I have to pull myself together and go to the apprentice meeting tomorrow. Tinkerbell. With a soft sound, a gorgeous dressed beauty on the street threw a spirit stone into his bowl. Hua Luyun froze for a moment, his face a bit blank. When did you get a bowl in your hand? No, you guys really think I'm a beggar? Damn, don't I have any self-respect? Angrily slipping the bowl of spirit stones into his pocket, he slowly followed the beautiful woman. That's a good man. The beautiful woman saw the little beggar followed. Her face was a little hesitant. She stopped her footsteps reluctantly and put the chicken leg in her hand into the bowl of Hua Luyun. The maid next to her had a displeased face, and she was ashamed of this kind of insatiable person. Little beggar, you don't follow again. Good hands and feet have plenty of work. Just bully Our Lady kind heart is it? Amount. Hua Luyun followed in fact just wanted to ask the identity of the beautiful woman. If it was convenient to repay in the future when he was developed. It really wasn't agreed for the chicken leg. Thank you, ma'am, for your generosity. The little maid snorted coldly and pulled the beautiful woman away. As the easy sex disciple acceptance ceremony approached, Immortal Seeking City was overcrowded for the past 2 days, and the prices of the inn skyrocketed. From time to time, there will be disputes and fights on the street, but fortunately, the mountain came to maintain order. The situation is quite stable. Xiao Air, Book 3 Tianzi Suites. A broad-minded little brother bowled out hundreds of spirit stones a night luxury suite order without blinking. Hua Luyun sniffled and turned away, looking for a sheltered corner to crouch down. It was true that no matter where you were, it was hard to move without money. The wind at night was cool. The pedestrians passing by were in a hurry, and the way they viewed Hua Luyun's eyes more or less carried a bit of contempt and disdain. This moment more or less Mrs. Shangba Village. Mrs. Sun Earn Yang who will send herself some steamed bread every day. Mrs. Auntie Zhao who pushes herself to find a daughter-in-law. And the small friends who play together on the ridge. Early in the morning of the second day, The genius slightly brightened up. The immortal-seeking city was bustling with countless cultivators scrambling to flock to the easy sect. Hua Luyun bought a pair of cloth shoes and hemclothes, so at least he changed his outfit. He also hurriedly rushed to the easy sect. He wanted to worship the master, to make a lot of money, and to return to his hometown with his clothes on his back. Uncle, I don't care, just come along. Maybe there's a student you like. Early in the morning Moron Yu relied in front of Tang Kuwei's cave, a task explained by his master. A sigh came from inside the cave. Tang Kuwei slowly walked out. Her face was cool. Her head was tied in a bun with a silver-white phoenix hairpin. She was wearing a blue and white fairy dress, properly dressed as a woman. There's really nothing you can do about this little ninny. Let's go. The two of them rose up with their swords and transformed into two auroras, quickly arriving at the apprentice square. The square is very large. At the end of the countless towering stone pillars, see Tang Kuwei arrived. Zhu Zizhou, the peak master of MT Everest. His face was happy when he was about to get up and go forward to greet. It was only 2 steps before he stopped, his pupils contracting slightly. There was some suspicion and disbelief in his eyes. It's only been 2 months since he's seen you. How come the person he's been holding in his heart has turned into a woman? No, it must not be true. His face was grim as he sat back down. He now had no desire to take on an apprentice at all. The square was crowded with people. You couldn't see the end of it at a glance. The easy sect only looks at 2 things when accepting disciples. One is the spiritual root, and the other is enlightenment. So the test is also divided into 2 levels. The first level, the spiritual root test. 10 giant detecting stones were placed in the middle of the square, and anyone who felt they were okay could touch them. Zhang Tianran, 5 elemental spiritual roots, failed. Wang Yuyen, double spirit roots, failed. Ding Qingqiu, top grade single spirit root, qualified. Li Fei, earth spirit root. This way please, senior brother. Hua Luyun squeezed closer and happily placed his hand on the test stone. The testing disciple wiped his eyes. It was the first time he had seen someone without a spiritual root after so many years of testing. The elders of the peaks on the stone pillars were also interested, and they were also seeing it for the first time, so they could only say that the world is a big place. A spiritual root is like an organ in the human body. It exists in everyone, just with different qualities. Xu Ziji snorted. What a bunch of rarefied guys. Humph. There's only one possibility of not having a spiritual root. This son was scooped up by someone with powerful means when he was just born. An elder asked in disbelief. If spiritual roots can be seized, then wouldn't it be dangerous for all the heavenly prides with excellent qualifications? Not necessarily. It's extremely costly to try to seize a spiritual root, and the loss of spirituality after the root leaves the body makes the quality drop extremely severe. While the elders on the stage were talking, the stage was arguing. I'm not convinced. I'm at the foundation establishment stage. How could I not have a spiritual root? It must be that you guys are testing wrong. Hua Luyun clung to the test stone to death, not letting go even to death. On stage Tanko frowned slightly. The man gave her a familiar feeling, as if she had loved. Ugh, seen. But where she'd seen it she couldn't recall for a moment. Yuer, go call that kid over. Morong Yu's heart rejoiced, feeling that her senior uncle had finally gotten the hang of it, only that the kid she was looking at seemed to be a bit wasted. However, there is no harm. After all, discipleship. There is the first will be the second. There is the second will be countless. Soon she brought flower flowing cloud over. Hua Luyun glanced obliquely at Tang Kuwei. In his heart there is some dissatisfaction. He is busy with the clan assessment. This staggeringly called himself over to do what? Blindly delayed effort. Seeing the other party's expression, Tang Kuwei also came a little angry. What? You don't seem very happy with me? Fairy, my family plows the fields. It's easy to get needle eyes if you see too many beautiful women like you. Tang Kuwei was so angry that her pretty face was deformed. Was this praising herself or scolding herself? Who gave you the nerve to sneer at me? Hua Luyun stopped speaking, burying his head as if he was reflecting. However, Morongyu on the side did see a full of disbelief in his eyes. Chapter 11, The Wildflower Peak's Own Disciple. After being cold for a long time, Tang Kuwei finally spoke up. I am 100 Flowers Peak Master Tang Kuwei. Would you like to worship me as your master? She came to accept the apprenticeship was to make a scene. Originally did not intend to accept what disciples, and now see this evil animal so disdain for her instead of provoking her heart of victory. Immediately decided to take on an apprentice to torture in torment. The peak masters and elders of the peaks beside him cast astonished looks, knowing that Tang Kuwei had never taken on a disciple before. She's the only one in 100 Flowers Peak who's been alone so far. Has she changed her mind today? Hua Luyun cupped the corner of his coat with both hands, looking coy. Do I get any spirit stones for worshipping you? Tang Kuwei forced down the fire in her heart. Speak coldly. 10 lower grade spirit stones per month. Boom! A loud bang came from the jade floor, and the ground trembled a few times for several meters in the surrounding area. Hua Luyun kneeled down on both knees. In his eyes was a suppressed look of surprise, knowing that the outer disciples only had 5 lower grade spirit stones per month, and the miscellaneous disciples only had 1. It really hit the jackpot this time. Master is above. Please accept my disciple's bow. Tang Kuei's face darkened even more. His own prestige was unexpectedly less useful than 10 lower grade spirit stones. Meh, the world might as well be destroyed. Seeing that his master's face did not look good, Hua Liuyun's heart thumped. Good guy. He was too proactive. His master could not be thinking that the offer was too high, right? Damn. I clearly had so much experience in chopping prices at the food market in my last life, but I fell off the wagon at this point. Master, I'm good in the hall and in the kitchen. I'm good at plowing and planting vegetables and herding cows. 10 spirit stones is definitely not a loss. No, Master's face was even darker. So dark you could squeeze ink out of it. Damn it, what I just said only works for ordinary people. Immortal cultivators don't eat that. He immediately changed his mind. Master, my disciple can cook spiritual food, plant spiritual fields, and raise spiritual beasts. 10 spirit stones is not a bad deal. Ha, snubbing the cutie. And, add the word spirit to everything you just said and you can take it out on me. Right? Dog stuff. Forget it, there is no spiritual root anyway. I think this current foundation establishment stage cultivation is eating some heavenly material. Just take it as a collection of a planting. After inwardly reassuring herself, Tang Kuei left with a wave of her sleeve and took Morongyu with her. Hua Luyun was breaking his fingers to calculate how many spirit stones he had in a year. When he came back to where there was still a shadow of his master on the high platform. I'm an outcast here. The Easy Sect disciple ceremony lasted a full week, during which 2 Earth Spirit Root Heavenly Pride even appeared. A picture of the peaks grabbing people was put up. There is also a woman. Although only a single system of Fire Spirit Root but enlightenment against the sky. Free sword skill at a glance, but also only used an hour will be the first sword practice on the introduction. As for Hua Luyun, he still hadn't found the location of 100 Flowers Peak for a whole week, and had no choice but to run to the apprentice square to ask for directions. However, these elder peak masters were so arrogant that basically no one paid any attention to him. That free sword skill he also brought from the second level of assessment there to see. Can only say that there are many loopholes. Still need to modify. After searching for half a month without finding 100 Flower Peak, Hua Luyun had no choice but to return to Immortal Seeking City. But this was not Shangba village after all. He had no houses, no fields, and no spirit stones. After only 2 days I started relying on people to pick up the slack. Kind elder brother and sister. Kind aunt and aunt. I'm 100 Flower Peak Master Tang Kuei's great disciple. Please reward me with a meal. He carries a broken bowl, wrapped in a quilt, and bears the banner of a master. Begging along the streets, passers-by pointed at him, and at first Hua Luyun blushed in shame, but after only a few days he had grown accustomed to it. Only half a month of the entire city of the Immortal Seekers know that the city came to a small beggar, claiming that the 100 Flowers Peak Tang Kuei's disciple. Originally, everyone still disdained him, even accusing him of defaming the fairy's reputation, but after authoritatively certified by those who had returned from the mountains to seek immortality, it seemed that he was really Tang Kuei's newly accepted disciple. Humph. When I have enough money, I'll never be angry again. Hua Luyun was homesick for Shangba village, where he was well fed and warmly dressed. There were also introductions to daughters-in-law. This bull **** easy sect. This bull **** 100 Flowers Peak. Dogs don't even stay. He cowered in front of a large home wrapped in a tattered quilt, waiting to be fed. The door was opened with a creaking sound, and the little maid who had last said something about herself stuck her head out, her face full of exasperation. Dead beggar, Our Lady is kind to give alms. Why do you still rely on it? Hua Luyun awkwardly tightened his blanket. He couldn't help it. There was only one good person in this town. Looking at the food box handed over by the little maid, he took it with a trembling hand. There was meat, greens, and chicken thighs. I've never eaten so hearty in the village. Kindred spirits. The little maid sighed deeply as she watched wolfing down Hua Luyun. You said you are at least a foundation cultivator. How can you get mixed up like this? Hua Luyun's nose twitched and tears rolled out indisputably. The heart felt aggrieved. It wasn't for lack of trying, and he was seeking employment everywhere these days. But the work of farming and plowing is nowhere to be found here. Alchemy will not. Guards bodyguards people only recruit acquaintances. Restaurant stores miscellaneous to test the integrity of the qualification. I didn't think I could do anything, but I realized I couldn't do anything until I stepped into society. Alas, how the heavens have been kind to me. The little maid snatched the food box out of his hand. Give me back my bowl. I ate and drank, straightened my clothes, and washed my face in the gutter. Today's goal, find a job that pays for food and shelter. You can't disgrace the village of Shangba. I, Flower Lu Yun, hereby swear that when I return to this door again I am here to repay my kindness, not to beg for food, and if I violate this oath, my master shall not suffer a good death. The little maid who returned to the courtyard happily washed the dishes and bounced off to the mansion's academy again. As the lady's personal maid, she was a not-so-small landlubber here, and soon ran out of the bookstore clutching a few books. Cloudy, what are you doing in such a hurry? The lady in the house pushed open the window, her beautiful eyes looking curiously at the books in the hands of the little maid. Despite the distance, she could make out the names of the books. Psychology in the Workplace, a handbook for upgrading laborers, how to make $100 million fast with 13,000 spins. If you want to succeed, go crazy and do whatever it takes. Amount. Is this maid planning to find another way to make a living? What a mess to watch. Yun Duo heard the lady shouting, panicked and hid the book behind her back. Her little face was a little red, stuttering and unable to speak. Husband, wife, I'm here. This is taking some books out to dry. Having dealt with the madam, Cloud ran to the doorway with gusto, clutching these secret codes of fortune. Just where is that little beggar's figure at this time? 100 Flowers Peak of the Free Sect. Tang Kuwei fished up her sleeve and gently wiped a brand new spirit tablet, with crystal and teardrops in her eyes across her cheeks, looking soft and poignant. Husband, ah, you die really miserable, ah, you go dry and spontaneous buried alive, leaving me this widow how to live, ah. The cry trailed off with a long, rich, sad tune. This is a secular custom of weeping at the grave, and there is much to be said for it. It is necessary to reflect the liver and soul of the grave weeper from the tune. Text, narration, body movements, facial expressions and other aspects. Tang Kuwei, this performance can only be average. Crying graves set once the power. The whole village can be brought into the mood. Grief from the heart. Just as she was getting better, the door was suddenly pushed open. Uncle, it's bad. Your disciple has gone down the mountain to beg for food. Chapter 12, even immortal cultivators are compelled by life. Tang Kuwei was furious at the news. For a hallowed 100 Flowers Peak master's eldest disciple and foundation establishment stage cultivator to go begging, it was a loss for him to do so. Immediately lifting the sword to go down the mountain to clean up the door, only just walked to the door she stopped again, turning to look at the spirit tablet in the hall. Tears slipped from his eyes. Why is my life so bitter? She threw away her long sword and flung herself to the ground, lifting her sleeve to gently wipe the corners of her eyes. The undead during the wake period could not just go out. That's the rule. So she was going to let go of this dog that was corrupting the door for the time being. As for Morong Yu, who was standing at the side, she was completely dumbfounded. What kind of show was this? There was something she couldn't see. And at the bottom of the mountain, Hua Luyun had finally gotten rid of the dilemma of being a hobo. Got a job that pays well. The job is very challenging for him and requires extreme hard work and professionalism, which he just happens to be very well qualified for. Now he was not only scantily clad and clean-faced, but he wore a hairpin of great value on his head. It can be said that it is a bird's-eye view of the world. Big sister, come and play. Copying a mouthful of half-baked lines, Flower Luyun welcomed the first customer of this job. It was a slightly chubby woman who looked quite dominant as she walked with a tiger's grip and a slight jiggle of her facial fat. Yo, boy, new in town? The woman grinned lightly, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth. She playfully laughed as her large palm grabbed at Hua Luyun's front dishonestly, frightening the latter's face to turn pale and shrink straight back. Ha ha ha, so it's a fledgling. The woman took her companion by the shoulders and laughed. The laughter was filled with wantonness and debauchery, and in Hua Luyun's ears, he only felt extremely harsh. This sister, I only sell my art. Alas, little brother, I've heard that a lot, who just came here who didn't start out just selling their art. As for you, TSK. Hua Luyun just lowered his head without retorting. He himself, a hallowed traveler, a cultivator of immortality, and the first disciple of 100 Flower Peak Tang Kuwei, could be compared to which self-sacrificing people? The woman smiled lightly at the corner of her mouth and took out a bag of spirit stones from her bosom and waved it in front of Hua Luyun. There were a dozen of them at a glance. One must know that in this immortal-seeking city the average family can only earn a few dozen spirit stones a year, and in Shangba village one has never seen such a high-grade currency as spirit stones. You can see the wealth of this slightly chubby woman. Egu, good sister, you're a good judge of character. Hua Luyun snatched the spirit stone from the woman's hand and his business proficiency was instantly pulled full. It's just a drink. He's familiar with it. Here, good sister, drink this. After some extreme stretching, finally the fat woman was sent away in the evening. The Piu Xiang courtyard pimp looked at Hua Luyun, who was hiding in his room to count the spirit stones, and nodded with satisfaction. It's a good one. Worth nurturing. Half an hour later, in the backyard, dozens of flamboyantly dressed men gathered together. The bod grunted, interrupting the noise. Today, I want to praise Flower Lu Yun. Lu Yun just came here on the first day and took care of a male disabled client. Let's applaud him. Sparse applause rang out, and Hua Lu Yun lowered his head in shame. He's not that good. Really? The pimp pressed his hand, and the more he looked at Hua Lu Yun, the more satisfied he became. Honest and naive. What's all the other stuff? There's no masculinity at all. No wonder the guests are tired of it. Even she looked a little sick to her stomach. Looks like it's time to introduce some differentiated selling points. Well, today everyone gained. Leave one more layer of spirit stone to buy some medicine to replenish the body. Dispersed, Lu Yun stayed for a while. A group of warblers and swallows twisted their waists and returned to the front yard, leaving only Hua Lu Yun and the pimply Qingxiu present. The latter mysteriously hooked his hand towards the former. Hua Lu Yun's expression was solemn. Is this going to be a little treat for him? What's it like to be valued by your boss on your first day on the job? Cool. Hua Lu Yun hurriedly sat closer to Li Qingxiu. Sister Li, if there's anything you want to explain, Lu Yun will do whatever you want. Li Qingxiu nodded in satisfaction. Lu Yun, I've always been an accurate judge of people. You have the potential of a kusakai. Sister Li, what is Chao Kuei? I've only heard of Chao Mang. Silly boy. The female is called Flower Kuei. The male is naturally called Grass Kuei. This fairy would like to make you the first immortal male model in the territory of the Free Sect, specializing in high-end customers, access to large places. Hua Lu Yun opened his mouth wide in shock. He knew that Li Qingxiu had ambition. He didn't expect this ambition was not small. But Hua Lu Yun hesitated. He only wanted to earn some money on his plate to return to the village but the leader wants to train him. So what can be done? Sister Li, my childhood playmates, childhood friends, may all be great emperors in this world in the future. Will I tarnish their reputation like this? Make them unable to raise their heads in the immortal cultivation world? Li Qingxiu mused that this was indeed a problem. Only just halfway through her thought did she come back to her senses. Where did this stupid kid get the great emperor's green plum? What a dream. Lu Yun, I don't think you need to worry at all. It's not too shabby to make money. Hua Lu Yun nodded. Yes, making money, not too shabby. By the way, Sister Li, do you think there will be any problems if I do this and my master knows about it? Who is your master? She said 100 Flowers Peak Master Tang Kuei. Li Qingxiu glanced at Hua Lu Yun with a face full of skepticism. What a joke. If Hua Lu Yun is really Tang Kuei's disciple, and she dares to coax her disciple into this business, this broken greenhouse will still be overturned. Lu Yun, let's not think about all the nonsense. Anyway, from tomorrow onwards, I want you to learn zither, chess, calligraphy and painting, and take the high-end route. Hua Lu Yun nodded. That's what he thought. Right at this moment, a maid rushed into the backyard, her face full of anxiety, as if there was a situation in the front yard. Sister Li, it's bad. There's a bad guest. Zhang Jinpin was beaten up. The other party is very big. Li Qingxiu stood up boldly, his face filled with gravity. This greenhouse had come to its most dangerous moment, which was why she was obsessed with cultivating top talent. In this step-by-step crisis of the immortal cultivation world, if they didn't have a sociable person who could deal with all kinds of emergencies, their destruction would be sooner or later. Against men she had the flower girl, Zhao Tingling, and if she couldn't she could do it herself. But against women, she's missing a top talent. Ryun, the time to test you has come. For a short second, a sense of mission arose in the bottom of Hua Lu Yun's heart. He stood up, his expression becoming somewhat solemn. Sister Li, don't worry about leaving it to me. To tell you the truth, there's nothing in our village that I can't handle. Words. He flung his sleeve toward the front yard and took a step up to the second-floor private room. This back, at the moment, looked inexplicably tall in front of Li Qingxiu. Walking up to the private room, Hua Lu Yun glanced at the doorplate. Clear wind and hazel moon. That's good. Didn't go to the wrong private room. Squeaky. The door was gently pushed open, and when he saw the scene inside the private room, Hua Lu Yun's face changed dramatically. Bunny? On the elegant seat directly opposite the main door, the iceberg beauty wearing a light blue fairy dress also spoke at the same time. Brother Bull, why are you here? Chapter 13, Meeting an Old Friend in Another Country. The future sister of the great emperor. It would have been a great thing to be congratulated on meeting a friend from another country, but if we met in a greenhouse, then this would be a different story. Add to that the fact that deceased knower is here to consume and he or she is here to serve, and it's even more damning. Hua Liuyun's face instantly turned red. His brain was spinning frantically at the moment. constantly thinking of wording. On the opposite side, Wang Tu-hsien, who was known as the heavenly face fairy of the flying immortal Holy Land, also panicked at this moment. How to do. For the first time to go out by companions pulled to the greenhouse drinking, but also by the village cattle brother caught. This in the future Ma Anshan that pimple she can still have a reputation? The scene stood still for several seconds, and the atmosphere was extremely grave. After all, Hua Luyun was an old man and felt that he had to grab the lead at a time like this. He hid the door in exasperation. Good, little rabbit, it's only been 3 years since you left home, and you've learned to visit greenhouses. If the second master finds out, let's see if he doesn't break your legs. The moment he began to speak, he blindsided Wang Tu-hsien. All that could be done was to open his mouth in a panic and explain. Brother Bull, let me explain. It's not what you think. I won't listen. I'm going to tell the second master about this anyway. There's no use crying for you. Humph, bad woman. Wang Tu-hsien was a bit at a loss for words and stood up to pull Hua Luyun. Brother Nyoer, I'm representing the Spirit Sword sect to find the easy sect to exchange. This is all part of the normal reception. At that, she snapped to attention. The original flustered look suddenly withdrew and became somewhat suspicious. Her eyes swept over Hua Luyun with scrutiny. Brother Nyoer, why are you here? And why are you dressed so fancy? Hua Luyun's expression stagnated. Hiss, almost forgot what he went up to the second floor for. Hello customer, Drifting Fragrance Courtyard Luyun Shallow Water is here to serve you. Wang Tu-hsien's face darkened. What did she hear? Flowing clouds and shallow water. Taking a few steps to Hua Luyun, she raised her hand and pulled Hua Luyun to sit next to her. Hua Luyun deflated his mouth. Somewhat reluctantly. This feeling of being on pins and needles is not as enjoyable as serving that fat woman. What is all this called? First day on the job. So unlucky. Brother Bull, you seem a little upset? Hua Luyun's head shook like a rattle. How dare you? He was a proper receptionist. He was working here, and he lost this encounter right from the start. I don't think you dare. I'll deal with you later. Wang Tu-hsien snorted coldly and raised his wine cup to the people in the room with a slight gesture before drinking it all in one go. There were 4 teenage celestials in the room besides Wang Tu-hsien. 2 of them could be seen dressed like Wang Tu-hsien, thought to be her fellow disciples. The other 2 wore easy sect clothing. At this moment, all 4 of them looked at each other in dismay, and a thick atmosphere of embarrassment was quietly spreading. In the end, it was a prosperity sect disciple who spoke first. Senior Sister Tu-hsien, I wonder who this is. Wang Tu-hsien glared at Hua Luyun and said coldly, Elder Brother Zhu, this is my untalented family brother, who grew up eating the same breast milk as me. I'm sorry to make you laugh. Xu Qianming awkwardly raised his glass and took a sip. Don't see the smile. Don't laugh if you don't see it. Hearing Hua Luyun mutter, Wang Tu-hsien reached out and viciously twisted his waist. This is a bit of a disgrace today. Outside the private room, Bodli Qingqiu attached her ear to the door, and she was slightly relieved to hear that there was no argument inside. This group of difficult clients is finally taken care of. She really wasn't wrong about Hana Luyun. It's a Kusakai material with the spirit to make things happen. Downstairs in front of the gate court, a group of male gods turned their heads toward the second floor, all with envy on their faces. Originally, Sister Li appreciated Flower Luyun, and now that he had taken care of this group of clients, it would be hard not to be popular in the future. Hey, that rabbit, have you seen a little beggar? Claiming to be the disciple of 100 Flowers Peak's Peak Master Tang. On the street, Moronyu walked past the entrance of the floating fragrance courtyard and frowned at a man who was soliciting customers. Egu, Immortal Master Tang's disciple, how could I have ever met him? Chief Morong, come in and play. A trace of disgust flashed in Moronyu's eyes. What a hole. It's simply hurtful. She carried her sword forward, and on this journey, the immortal-seeking city was exceptionally prosperous. Not to mention beggars, there were not many poor people. How could he not? He said he was in the city begging for food, strolling through a street and walking through an alley. Moronyu inquired all the way and eventually arrived in front of a huge and magnificent mansion. The Water Mansion, the current largest family in the city of immortal seeking. After some inquiries, she learned that recently Hua Luyun had been wandering in front of this mansion, and she heard that the maids of this mansion were his big clients. A foundation stage cultivator, relying on a little maid from someone else to pick up the slack. It was so humiliating that she felt ashamed just thinking about it. In front of the gate of the mansion, at this time, Yun Duo was holding a food box and looking around. This day a whole day she did not see Hua Luyun. Her heart cannot help but be a little worried. Seeing Moronyu walking, she hurriedly opened her mouth to inquire. Girl, have you seen a little beggar? Moronyu opened her mouth. The words she wanted to ask were blocked in her throat. I'm here for him too. Cloud froze for a moment, his expression becoming wary. Hua Luyun had no one to turn to in the immortal-seeking city, and was a rustic old man who had inadvertently wandered out of his village. How could anyone be looking for him? This woman. She's not a good person at first glance. Your Hitoshi? Moronyu's face was as black as a pot. Payback Seiko. Does she look that much like a villain? Humph. I'm his senior sister. Little girl. If you see that little beggar again, tell him to hurry up and get back to 100 Flowers Peak. Don't disgrace my senior uncle again. After saying that, Moronyu turned around and left. There were not many people on this street. She turned back slightly after brushing past several people. The breath of these men was steady. So steady that it was as if there were no fluctuations in their minds. It was an aura she had only ever seen on one kind of person. Killer. This mansion, it seemed, was being targeted by some force. Sighing, Moronyu strides away. This world seems to be peaceful on the surface, but the unseen places are dark currents everywhere. At this moment, the second floor of the floating fragrance courtyard, inside the clear breeze Hazelmoon private room, Hua Luyun raised his hand and scratched at Wang Tuxian's immortal skirt. Yellow hordes +1. Due to someone, the atmosphere was a bit strange, and the crowd of heavenly prides were a bit unable to sit still and open their mouths to say goodbye. Elder brother and sister, you guys go ahead. I still have some words to explain to my family, brother. I'll catch up in a while. Wang Tuxian arched his hand towards the two fellow disciples. The people did not say much, and exited the room after returning the salute. When everyone had left, Wang Tuxian finally couldn't hold himself together. Tell me what's going on, Brother Bull. Hua Luyun pinched her nose in aggravation. I just went on a trip, couldn't find my way back, came here by accident, trying to raise some money, inadvertently. Do you know how far this place is from Ma Anshan? A cultivator's flying boat would have to fly for 10 days and half a month. So you're telling me you came here by legs? Chapter 14, Learning Sound, taking the high-end route. Hua Luyun kept nodding his head. Yes, he was the legger coming. Wang Tuxian raised her hand to hold her forehead as she pulled out a bag of spirit stones from her storage ring and stuffed it into Hua Luyun's hand. Brother Nyoer, here are 50 spirit stones, enough for you to take the flying boat back to the Southern Kingdom. My lump is in Shunan County in the Southern Kingdom. Understand? Remember, don't forget, Shunan County, said Wang Tuxian, took out a pen and wrote the address again in the lining of his clothes. She still had a mission to attend to and couldn't personally send Flowing Cloud back, but she was uneasy about letting him float around out there like this. Remember, when you can't find your way you ask people. Don't be ashamed to ask. When you ask for directions you ask for the big place names first, and then the small ones if others know them. Brother Nyoer, if you encounter bandits and bad people or whatever, don't spare any money, give them all the spirit stones, and they won't bother with a little cutie anymore. Counting on them, got it? The more Hua Luyun listened, the deeper his frown became. What do you mean others don't with the cutie? Counting? Alas, little rabbit, are you misunderstanding something? He wanted to explain further, but was forcefully interrupted by Wang Tuxian. Brother Nyoer, do as you're told, hide the spirit stones in 3 parts, 1 in your hair bun, 1 in your pants, and the last one hanging on your waist. Do you understand? After explaining everything, Wang Tuxian was still uneasy. Looking at Hua Luyun's hands and feet as she pinched the bag of spirit stones, she sighed deeply. You stay here. I'll go find your mom. After exiting the private room and coming down the stairs, she swept her gaze coldly around and finally saw Li Qingqiu, who was standing in the lobby greeting guests. You, come here. Raising his hand, he beckoned towards Li Qingqiu, who came forward rather cautiously. She learned that Wang Tuxian's background was not simple. This was someone who could make the young master of Mount Everest. Zhu Qianming, receive him. What do you have to say, guest? Wang Tuxian's eyes were filled with coldness, and his voice was as cold as the north wind in a waxing moon, that flowing cloud in shallow water. You named him? Li Qingqiu was filled with embarrassment. Ah, yes, here we are. We all have to come in with a stage name. The fire in Wang Tuxian's heart was somewhat difficult to suppress. The long sword in his hand was being sheathed inch by inch, and his voice was even colder. How did he get in? Speaking of this, Li Qingqiu sighed slightly. Alas, some days ago I saw him begging on the street, and I couldn't bear to take him in as a runner. But I didn't realize that this young man was quite handsome when I took a look at him after he was cleaned up. Clank! Wang Tuxian sheathed the long sword in her hand. She raised her hand and hooked a hand on Li Qingqiu's head, and said word for word in front of her. Old pimp, Hua Luyun, is my elder brother, and I am the flying immortal sanctuary chopping immortal sword successor. May as well tell you, my such younger siblings, he has a total of 15 inch. I'm in a hurry to leave today. If something happens to my brother here, I want your entire immortal seeking city to be buried with him. After saying that, Wang Tuxian glanced upstairs. Hua Luyun was currently lying on the windowsill eating grapes, and when he saw that she seemed to be in a hurry, he flashed a silly smile at her. She sighed and turned to head out the door. On the windowsill, Hua Luyun hurriedly waved his hand. Bunny, come and play with us when you have time. Wang Tu-hsien, who had walked to the door, stumbled on his feet and his face turned a little red. Come and play often, come and play often. Damn broken greenhouse. When Brother Nyoer leaves, I'll have to tear you down. Inside the lobby, after seeing Wang Tu-hsien leave, Li Qingqiu patted her chest and was filled with palpitations. Immortal beheading sword successor. This name was too intimidating. She turned her head to the second floor. On the windowsill, the man half relied on the curtain, his eyes deep, his green silk hanging down along his rigidly handsome face, rippling in the wind. His white shirt was half open, revealing some wheat-colored, toned pecs. Half a cup of green wine in his hand swayed slightly. Yeah, it's so elegant. No wonder that the air of the immortal beheading sword fell into it the first time he saw Luyun's shallow water. And at this moment, even Li Qingqiu, who had been in love for a long time, felt a little flustered. Early the next morning, Li Qingqiu launched her elite program. She led Hua Luyun through a courtyard and a connecting corridor, patiently explaining as she walked. To make a lot of money in the service industry, you have to learn to package yourself. A good product. He has to have a soul, a character. It's like Zhang Jinping. What do you feel when you hear his name? Hua Luyun's face was deep in thought. Sister Li, I feel like he's rich. Li Qingqiu spat. Bah, there's no such thing as money. He spends as much as he earns to maintain his golden needles. Luyun, we do not learn from him. Let's go to the high-end route. But this high-end route is not very good to go. Zither, chess, calligraphy and painting is only the foundation. You must be multi-talented, know a little bit of everything, and then have 1 or 2 art skill proficiency. There's a great Qing Dao master in our puppy fragrance courtyard. When you see her later, you must learn well. Understand? Zhao Tingling is different from the other girls. Although she's a flower girl, she's also a Yuaning stage cultivator. Don't lose your manners. Hua Luyun hurriedly nodded his head. The Yuaning stage is not rare in this immortal-seeking city. Even if you go up to the easy sect, you are also a party of elders. How could he not have imagined before that there was a Yuaning hidden within this floating fragrance courtyard? After passing through the connecting corridors and crossing the archway ferry bridge, the two of them finally made their way to the deepest courtyard of the floating fragrance courtyard. It was an attic building brushed with bright red paint, with countless red veils drooping and dancing upstairs. Looking like a dream, Li Qingqiu took a small step forward and knocked on the door. Tinker Bell, are you there? I'm bringing Luyun over for piano lessons. With a creak, the red-painted wooden door slowly opened. A polite and soft voice rang out from within the room. Sister Li, come in. Li Qingqiu pulled Hua Luyun's sleeve. The latter was now curiously stretching her head to look straight inside, with a look of having never seen the world. Inside the room, in the center of the lobby, a woman gently put down her tea bowl. Her face was like a peach blossom. Her eyebrows were like willow leaves. Her dark hair was like green clouds in the snowy sky. It was draped over her shoulders, and her delicate figure was breathtakingly beautiful. Hua Luyun's heart tightened at the sight of Zhao Tingling, and he hurriedly came forward to present a bracelet with both hands. Sister Tinker Bell, here's a gift for you. Zhao Tingling raised her hand to receive the bracelet, her brow furrowing slightly. Luyun, you've been tricked. This bracelet is plated with heavenly gold on the outside. The inside should be iron. Hua Luyun suspiciously reached out to look at the bracelet. Not fooled. The boss said it was iron. Zhao Tingling's breath stuttered as she raised her beautiful eyes to look into Hua Luyun's eyes. It was the first time she had received such a cheap gift. In the past, she received gifts. Which one is not dozens of hundreds of spirit stones apiece? Flower Luyun sent this raggedy thing, afraid to throw on the ground or no one to pick up it. Ryun, are you short of money? Hua Luyun opened his mouth and replied. Sister Tinker Bell, there's no shortage. Yesterday little bunny just gave me 50 spirit stones. So you bought me this crappy bracelet? Hearing Zhao Tingling's tone grow unkind, Hua Luyun warily took 2 steps back, his arm unconsciously covering the money pouch at his waist. On the side, Li Qingqiu saw that the situation was not right and hurriedly went up to Zhao Tingling and stuffed a storage ring into her hand. Ouch! Ryun got it wrong. He got it wrong. This is his gift to you. Zhao Tingling angrily pushed Li Qingqiu's storage ring back. Sister Li, I don't need this. I just want an attitude. Look at him. He looks like I'm going to rob him. I'm a Yuaning cultivator. Can I look at his foundation stage household goods? Goo. I'm pissed off. Hua Luyun lowered his head, and his face was also a bit ugly. Bunny said, if you want to grab it let me give you the one on my waist, not the one in my hair bun or in my pants. Chapter 15, there's a big shot at the store. Hearing Hua Luyun's words, Zhao Tingling's silver teeth were about to clench. Ouch! She's never been so angry in her life. If it wasn't for Li Qingqiu begging to come to her, she wouldn't have wanted to bother with Hua Luyun at all. What the hell? I've seen stingy people before, but I've never seen such a stingy one. Well, come here. From this day on, I'll teach you the rhythm of music. Hua Luyan looked at Li Qingqiu with some hesitation. Sister Li, I've heard that those who practice music and rhythm cultivate their bodies and character. Sister Tinkerbell is so bad-tempered. Is she not skilled? Zhao Tingling's eyes narrowed slightly as she opened her mouth towards the side hall and shouted. Aya, bring me my zither. I'll play a piece for Mr. Hua today, so he can see if I'm a bad technician. In the side hall, Zhao Tingling's personal maid walked in holding a long zither. Li Qingqiu saw Zhao Tingling start teaching and turned away with a light smile. Although the process was a bit choppy, the result was good. At least Zhao Tingling was angry and didn't beat Flower Luyun out. That's great. It's a good place to start. She knew that this Hua Luyun fellow was good at taking people's hearts. No! The Yuaning stage Zhao Tingling was getting so angry that she was proving her strength to herself. The melodious and gentle sound of the zither resounded. The red veil of the attic fluttered. The butterflies stopped and landed on the building. And the cicadas chirped. The birds chirped. And the sound was between the strings of the zither. The sound of this zither seemed to blend into nature, into the wind, and into the flowing water of a clear spring. The zither is all about meaning. And a good music master can not only use music to calm the mind, but also use it to communicate with nature and explore the great Tao. This song, the sound of all things Tao, is my famous zither song. It can comprehend heaven and earth and sense the naturalness of the great Tao. Zhao Tingling spoke faintly while her fingers fluctuated the strings of the zither. The corners of her mouth hooked up slightly. Quite a bit of pride. Little man, that should hold it now. She raised her head to look at Hua Luyun, and saw that this fellow was staring at the movements of her hand with an attentive look. Humph, look at his serious demeanor. Those who don't know think he understands. After the song was finished, Zhao Tingling pushed the long zither in her hand in front of Hua Luyun with a proud look on her face. Try it. When I first started practicing the piano, but I could play the approximate tune after hearing it once. Here Zhao Tingling gave a small brag. Who could play the piano the first time they touched it? But she just wanted to strike a blow at Hua Luyun today. Receiving the zither, Hua Luyun closed his eyes slightly and brushed his fingers across the strings. At this moment, his eyes changed, became cold, became blazing. He was like a swordsman taking up his sword, like a drunkard lifting his cup. 5 fingers pressed on the strings. All the sounds in the dozens of meters around the attic were suddenly silent. The wind stopped, the water slowed down, and everything was closing in. Zhao Tingling's eyes narrowed, and her heart said that it was not good. This kid seems to be a master of tone. It's here to crash the party. Clanging zither sounds rang out. Hua Luyun's face was intoxicated. His fingers were as fast as lightning, plucking out phantoms on the strings of the zither. Fast. It was really too fast for the average person to see his movements. Zhao Tingling's face darkened as she raised her hand and pressed on the strings. Stop. What the hell are you playing? It's a mess. Hua Luyun's face was puzzled. Sister Tinkerbell, isn't that how you played it just now? With quick fingers, narrowed eyes, chin up, and a bit of arrogance in your demeanor? The corner of Zhao Tingling's mouth twitched slightly. This guy watched it once, and together with the zither song is not learned at all. Only learned the mastery when she played the zither. After a long time the sound of the high mountain and flowing water zither sounded again. Remember this time? Remember, keep your back straight, and when you're halfway through playing, raise your eyes and scan the circle. Can't teach at all. Half a month had passed since Hua Luyun learned the qin. In this half month at first he was still running both in the front and backyard. Then Zhao Tingling directly didn't let him go out. Can't play well, won't even give food. Inside the small red attic, every day is Zhao Tingling fried furious roar. This is the worst class of students she has ever brought. In the front yard, today's immortals of the easy sect wrapped up. The guests on the first floor were cleared away as much as possible. And from the front door to both sides of the aisle stood full of handsome and beautiful men and women who welcomed the guests. Outside the door, Zhang Jinpin stood beside Li Qingqiu, looking a little nervous. Just because the proprietor this time is Divine Seal PQ Linglong Fairy. This guy's temper is not very good. All day long outside fighting and killing. Rumor has it that not long ago she killed her way into the Palace of Angry Blood alone and was severely injured. Or her senior sister Tang Kuei and disciple Morong Yu ventured into the evil ghost abyss to find medicine for her. Only then was she able to save her little life. Golden Needle. This time, the banquet hosted by Peak Master Yu is Mr. Evening from the Fairview Academy. These Confucian people, well endowed with elegance. You must remember to enter and exit degrees. Do not be too active. Just toast to the wine-peeling lychee and so on. Zhang Jinpin nodded, secretly cheering himself up. Li Qingqiu sighed. This golden needle is ultimately not as Flower Luyun that sprightly and natural. Favorable comments she did not dare to think of. Just hope that nothing goes wrong is good. Soon there were several sword lights that stopped and landed in front of the door of the floating fragrance courtyard. Yu Linglong looked to have a plump figure, with some of the intellectual beauty of a mature woman, giving people a sense of the fragrance of enjoying peonies close by. Morong Yu, who was following behind her, was much more youthful, and at this moment was muttering her mouth, dissatisfied with the place her master had chosen. On the other side were likewise a few women who wore green shirts, giving a sense of lightness and quiet expansiveness. In particular, Evening, who was standing in front, was quite literate. Gu, Peak Master Yu, welcome welcome welcome. Li Qingqiu came forward, his face as flattering as it could be. Zhang Jinpin also hurriedly followed his footsteps. The Golden Needle welcomes you all. Morong Yu glared at Zhang Jin Needle, full of contempt. Go away, you sissy. Zhang Jin Needle awkwardly followed behind, burying his head low and not daring to reply at all. Entered the lobby, went up to the second floor, took a seat. A fruit plate was delivered. The dancers slowly entered the room. Zhang Jinpin led the dance. First gave the guests a section of Farewell My Concubine. Yu Linglong pushed cups with Mr. Evening, while Morong Yu was in charge of entertaining Mr. Evening's students. The scene was so happy and cheerful. Evening, you don't know. When I killed the general altar of the Angry Blood Palace, a bunch of their senior officers were all confused. I was not saying anything. My hands rose up. My hands rose up. Yu Linglong bragged about her battle achievements while gesturing with her palms. Evening smiled faintly and took a shallow lick from her glass. Oh, and how was Sister Linglong injured? Yu Linglong, who was raising her hand to gesture, made a move. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and the atmosphere in the room suddenly turned cold. Zhang Jinpin, who was dancing, felt this raging murderous aura and fell to the ground with an unsteady foot in fear. For a moment, all eyes looked toward him at the same time. Feeling the gazes of the crowd, Zhang Jinpin trembled and knelt on the ground, kowtowing frantically with a timid and very small appearance. Guest, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't do it on purpose. Ah. Evening shook her head and sighed. Uninteresting. Yu Linglong looked at Zhang Jinpin with annoyance in her heart. Not that she blamed him for falling down from dancing. Rather, it was the heart that was a bit of a disgrace to her as a proprietor. Outside the door, Li Qingqiu's heart clenched at the sight. She hurriedly greeted the girl beside her. Quickly go to Tinker Bell Pavilion and ask Lu Yun to save the day. Chapter 16, Flowing Clouds and Shallow Waters. Save the party. The girl beside Li Qingqiu lifted her skirt and ran quickly towards the backyard. What kind of person is Yu Linglong? Free sect God Seal Peakmaster. Hot temper is known all over the world. An unhappy destroyed them this broken greenhouse easily. She walked through a connecting corridor and across a courtyard. The sound of angry curses could be heard from the Tinkerbell Pavilion a long way away. Wrong again. Wrong again. I asked you to memorize the score. What did you memorize? Damn it. What kind of sin did I create in my past life to have such a retarded disciple like you? Sister Tinkerbell, do you think it's possible to blame this zither, which has the wrong strings planted on it? Then why is it okay for me to play it? Hua Luyun muttered in a small voice. You're playing it wrong. Ha ha ha. Ah ha 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 ha. Hell, I played it wrong. I'm a Qin Dao everyone. Ah. You play less than 100 times today. You are not allowed to give me sleep. Just then the girl who had come for help finally ran downstairs. She gasped and knocked on the door. Sister Tinkerbell, something bad has happened. A big shot has come to the front yard. Zhao Jin Needle can't handle it and needs support from Lu Yun. The door to the room pushed open. Inside the lobby, Zhao Tingling held the bamboo strips and rolled up his sleeves, red light exploding in his eyes and veins lying across his neck. In front of her, Hua Luyun licked his lips with an innocent look as he was stroking his zither. Hearing the girl's words, Zhao Tingling turned her head openly to look at the door. Sister Li is sure she's not mistaken. A client that Zhao Jinpin couldn't handle. This short-blooded contraption can handle? That girl by the door was startled to see Zhao Tingling's appearance. Is this still the gentle and beautiful flower leader of the floating fragrance courtyard? That crazy look, how it was like a zombie. Tinkerbell sister, there are advantages to streaming clouds. Hua Luyun raised his head slightly and looked at Zhao Tingling with some defiance, muttering in a low voice. Yeah, and I play the piano. You know. Zhao Tingling angrily threw the bamboo strips in her hand on the ground. She took a deep breath and walked to the table, picking up the tea and drinking it. What big man? Back to Sister Tinkerbell. It's Divine Seal Peak Master Yu Linglong, and Mr. Evening from the Fairview Academy. Zhao Tinkerbell waved her hand. Go on. Although Yu Linglong has a hot temper, she won't kill innocent people indiscriminately, and the Fairview Academy cultivates righteousness, so she won't do anything to this kid either. Play well, don't embarrass me. No, don't say I taught you. Get out quickly. Holding the long zither, Hua Luyun slowly retreated after performing a disciple's salute. Zhao Tingling once again poured a cup of cold tea. Posturing. After leaving the Dingling Bell Pavilion, the remaining halo of the setting sun shone through the thin veil on Hua Luyun's face, accentuating the boundless handsomeness. Zhao Tingling's personal maid, Aya, came forward and straightened his long, messy hair. Your Excellency, if you haven't learned yet, you can stop playing the zither for a while and also learn a colorful dance like Zhao Jinpin's. With your good looks, you're definitely 100 times better looking than Zhao Jinpin. At that time will not that you Linglong and Evening's eyes look straight. So what about the teaching teacher? They'll sink to the same level when they see Mr. Gong. Hua Luyun nodded. He wore a powerful confidence on his face. Don't worry Aya, I have my own plan. Inside the attic, Zhao Tingling couldn't help but open her mouth again. Don't worry my ass. Don't say I taught you that when you're out there, or I'll break your legs. In the front yard, inside the autumn-locked pond, private room, Zhao Jinpin and his team of dancers were off the stage, and Li Qingqiu was calming down a crowd of guests. Fairy Yu, I'm very sorry for rushing you today as the Golden Needle is not feeling well. I've arranged for the herb leader of this house, Luyun Shallow Water, to come to your service. Yu Linglong raised her hand and stroked her chin. Recently, the Piu Xian courtyard is in the midst of an elite program, and the publicity often mentions this Luyun Shallow Water, saying that he is handsome to the core and has excellent artistic skills. What is the talent of this flowing cloud in shallow water? The corner of Li Qingqiu's mouth hooked up slightly. Slow down. Our academy has recently introduced 4 male gods, Luyun Shallow Water, Mu Feng Bianin, Fei Yin Holding Flowers, and Paper and Sky Bamboo. They specialize in qin, chess, calligraphy and painting, and the flowing clouds in shallow water correspond to the qin. He's the disciple of Fairy Tinker Bell. He's a great zither player. Upon hearing Li Qingqiu's words, the group of people in the room revealed looks of interest. Even Morong Yu was quite curious. After all, Zhao Tingling's zither skills, that was something that no one knew about for hundreds of miles around. You can communicate with nature and swim in the avenue. Just then, the door to the room opened quietly. Then he saw a man in a plain white robe walking slowly with a guqin on his back. His long hair fell casually over his shoulders, giving him an unruly look. Handsome face with a faint smile. Not pro or con. It fits right into the feast. Lu Yun, meet the fairies. I heard that the fairies are here to discuss the Tao, so I've come to offer a song. All of the cultivators here revealed faint smiles. Secretly, I marveled at the high level of speech, worthy of being one of the 4 greats, flowing clouds in shallow waters. It really was something. Yu Linglong's face involuntarily revealed a smile as she nodded repeatedly. Good. Then I'll be obliged to you. Sir. Li Qingqiu slowly retreated, and Hua Luyun gave her a reassuring look. He unloaded his lyre and sat down on the floor. With a casual gesture, a plate of grapes flew into his hand. He then ate the grapes with one hand and started plucking the strings with the other. The sound of the zither is like the tinkling of spring water at the beginning, slowly getting better and better, like the continuous running thunder. His fingers were getting faster and faster, and his playing was getting smoother and smoother. Yu Linglong on the first seat shouted, "Good." She couldn't understand it, but the sound of the zither gave her a powerful feeling. On the other side, Evening frowned slightly. She is also a person who knows the piano, but the first time to see people one-handed piano. He leaned on the piano, casual and relaxed, giving people a sense of freedom and liberty. At this time, Morong Yu was also looking dumbfounded. Not that she was indulging in the beauty of Flower Luyun. Rather, the more she looked at him, the more familiar he looked. Seems to have met. Without realizing it, everyone in the room sank into the sound of the zither. Hua Luyun finished eating the grapes in his hand just as the song finished, and cheers rang out in the room. Good. Worthy of being the disciple of everyone in Tinker Bell. You play so well. Evening, what do you think? Late Night laughed softly. She also thought it was good. It was that Hua Luyun played too fast. She didn't memorize much of the score. Prince Luyun, the tune just now. Can you play it again? The corner of Hua Luyun's mouth hooked up. Naturally. He propped his chin on one hand and strummed the strings again. Evening, who was internally memorizing the score, froze slightly. Changed. The zither was played with the same chaos and the same debauchery, but the content was clearly different from earlier. Evening frowned and listened again from beginning to end. I can't say it's the same song, only that it's unrelated. What you play, my lord, is the same tune? Hua Luyun spoke faintly. Yeah, same song, but I've heard it twice, and it's not the same thing. Hua Luyun's heart jumped. This evening was so powerful that he could hear the difference. He can't remember what he played the first time. It must have been different. Mr. Evening, let me ask you, are there 2 leaves in the world that are the same? No. That's it. What I played just now and what I'm playing now. Of course it's different. The wind is unchanging. The clouds have no phase. I'll play it again and it'll still be different. That's the way. Chapter 17, A Broken Greenhouse, 7 or 8 Forces. Hearing Hua Liuyun's words, everyone here was slightly enlightened. They had the feeling that they had caught something and yet had caught nothing. In the end, he could only shake his head helplessly. Mr. Liuyun's state of mind is really high. Ha 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 ha. Late muse. Then I'll play another wild wind for a few fairies. Hua Liuyun smiled broadly and once again rose his hand to stroke the zither, showing off his dashing demeanor. Outside the private room, Li Qingqiu smiled and greeted the girls as they arranged for the dance. At the doorway of the backyard, Aya pushed the door and looked towards the lobby, and when she saw Li Qingqiu she hurriedly ran up to her. Sister Li. Sister Tinker Bell thought for a long time and was not quite at ease, so she asked me to come and take a look. Li Qingqiu smiled like a flower. Ha ha, Aya ah. You go back and tell Dingling that the guests are very satisfied. Immortal Master Yu is praising Liuyun's zither skills. Hearing this, Aya's face was filled with skepticism. It wasn't like she didn't know what Hannah Liuyun had learned. For the past half a month, it had almost made Zhao Tingling's menstrual cramps. She softly took 2 steps toward the second floor, and following the doorway, she saw Hua Liuyun inside the room who was propping up her chin with one hand and plucking the strings of the zither with the other. The sound of the zither was as disorganized as waves, but he sat there, calm and relaxed, his masterly demeanor unmistakable. The temperament was ethereal and unrestrained, and the group of female cultivators looked mesmerized. Aya was shocked. Hiss. It's all about temperament, not skill. This cloudy demeanor of Gongzi, coupled with the great name of Miss Tinker Bell's disciple, I'm afraid that no one would question even if he played it too. She sucked in a breath of cool air and slowly retreated down to the second floor, then went back to Zhao Tingling to resume her orders. As the night wore on, the crowd laughed and left the table. Everyone was pleased with the feast. Mr. Evening even invited Hua Liuyun to the Jinqiu Academy to exchange zither skills, but Hua Liuyun politely declined. Master, this flowing clouds in shallow water. I always feel like I've seen it somewhere before. Morong Yu had been frowning tightly. Yu Linglong looked at Morong Yu with a skeptical look on her face. Little ninny, she wouldn't have moved to spring. Seen what have you seen? You err. You don't come to this floating fragrance courtyard often, do you? Hearing this, Morong Yu hurriedly shook her head. Master, no, absolutely not. Inside the floating fragrance courtyard, everyone looked at Flower Liuyun with a look of reverence. He used his strength to deeply convince the crowd, and even more so, because of this banquet, almost everyone in the entire Puffy Fragrance house knew him. Who wouldn't want to suck up to someone who can? Returning to his house, he was just about to go to sleep when there was a knock on the door. Liuyun, is Liuyun here? It's me, Sister Li. When Hua Liuyun opened the door to the house, he saw Li Qingqiu flash into the house after taking a wary look around. She skillfully pulled out the sound-separating note and stuck it on the door, pulling Hua Liuyun to sit on the bed. Speaking with a face full of gravity, he said, Liuyun, let me tell you a secret. I'm actually a scout that the Immortal Moon Kingdom has planted in this immortal-seeking city, specializing in gathering intelligence. Hua Liuyun was about to open his mouth when Li Qingqiu hurriedly blocked his mouth. Liuyun, listen to me. Our organization is called Spectre. Monthly salary of 8 spirit stones, food and accommodation reimbursement. If you die there is also a pension of 5,000 spirit stones. And the brocade guards also gave us in the Ministry of the Household Silver Bank to open a top-secret account. If we have made a merit, there are additional rewards. Li Qingqiu finished her treatment in one breath before releasing Hua Liuyun's mouth. The latter looked shocked. Sister Li, how much is your reward for pulling someone in? Li Qingqiu had a wicked smile on his face. Ha ha, Liuyun, you're really smart. This was all guessed by you. She raised her hand and compared 2 fingers. Pull one person 50 spirit stones. Sister Li will share 20 with you. The 2 men covered themselves under the covers and smiled wickedly at the same time. Here, this is your identity token as a specter of the brocade guard of my immortal moon kingdom. Hua Liuyun solemnly received the token. The sign was pitch black, with an evil spirit carved into it and his name on the other side. Sister Li, it seems you knew I would agree. The 2 men laughed without saying a word. Next, Li Qingqiu explained to him about their joint code words, the rules they needed to follow, and how to find the organization if the upper peak was sacrificed. After most of an hour, Li Qingqiu finally left. Hua Liuyun sighed long and hard. He was considered a person of status nowadays. Immortal Moon Country Brocade Guard Spectre. Just by listening to it, he knew it was awesome. He was about to go to sleep when there was another knock on the front door. He had only just opened the door when a man dashed into the room. The man moved quickly as he quickly closed the door to his room and put a spacer on the door. Liuyun, don't panic. It's me, Sumu Phone. Hua Luyun carried the candlestick and came up to the visitor. This was Mu Feng Bingyin, one of the 4 great beauties of the Piu Xiang courtyard cultivated by Li Qingxiu, who was said to be good at Go, and his looks were also outstanding. Lu Yun, listen to me. I'm Wind Chime from the Listening Wind Pavilion. I see your qualifications are good. Want to pull you into the gang. You do not rush back to me. I listen to the Wind Pavilion monthly salary of 5 spirit stone, food and housing reimbursement, died in 3,000 spirit stone pension. Such good treatment. Not many forces to take out. Hua Luyun looked at a golden bell that was forcefully shoved into his hand, his face somewhat cloudy. 5 spirit stones a month. Can one really bear to turn down such a good job? Mu Feng, me, big man, don't be a. Just say yes or no. Hua Luyun's teeth clenched. 5 spirit stones, and reimbursement for food and lodging. Done. Su Mufeng nodded in satisfaction and explained to Hua Luyun the rules of Listening Wind Pavilion. The secret code of the joint. Mu Feng, wait. I'll find a pen and paper to write it down. I'm worried I'll get sidetracked. What's wrong? Lu Yun, you can't use pen and paper. This stuff is top secret. You have to keep it in mind. Hua Luyun remembered sweating profusely, having only just sent Su Mufeng away. Zhang Jinpin also came. Brother Lu Yun, I'm actually a blood talisman of the Angry Blood Hall. How much is the monthly salary? 5 spirit stones per month. Do you want to do it? Asterisk 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 it. Say the code word. This night, Hua Luyun barely slept, and every now and then the door to his room would slam. Until the early hours of the morning, he had received 7 or 8 tokens in his hand, and as for any messy code words and rules, he had forgotten all about them. Not a single one was memorized. It was the treatment he remembered better. With a rough calculation, he could actually receive a monthly salary of more than 50 spirit stones per month. We're rich. Outside the door, hearing Hua Luyun murmur inside the room, Aya frowned and knocked on the door. Lu Yun, Miss asked me to rush you. It's time to learn the qin, why don't you go over there? Is your skin itching? Hua Luyun sleepily opened the door to his room, his face full of fatigue. Aya, can we take a day off today? I didn't sleep well last night. Aya took him by the sleeve of his coat and turned around, heading in the direction of Tinkerbell Court. No, other people want to beg Miss to teach the piano. Miss doesn't teach it yet. Don't you be born in a blessed place and not know the blessings. Okay, Aya, I'm sleepy. Don't get sleepy. Entering the Tinkling Bell Pavilion, Hua Luyun yawned. In front of the hall, Zhao Tingling turned around. She wore a slim black robe and held a civet mask in her hand. Lu Yun, this is the Luo Net Killer. I now officially invite you to join the Luo Net. Hua Luyun's sleepiness dissipated. You're making money again? Sister Tinkerbell, this job is very challenging for me. Chapter 18, Killer Training. The Assassin Organization. Luo Net, claimed to be impervious to everything. An invisible giant net woven over the heads of all the countries and many sects. Their killers are categorized into 4 grades: Heaven, Earth, Basil, and Yellow. Hua Luyun yawned as he listened to Zhao Tingling bragging about the power of Luo Net. Looking tired. Ryun, is there anything else you want to know? Sister Tinkerbell, how much is the monthly salary? Zhao Dingling gritted her silver teeth. So she had said so much for nothing. This guy only cared about money. We don't have a monthly salary here. We get more for more work. The headquarters sends out missions, and when they're done, we split it 30/70ths with the organization. After she finished speaking, she threw a yellow character token to Hua Luyun. This would be considered membership. By the way, I have a book of assassination essentials here. Do you want to learn it? Just learn something. You seem reluctant? How dare you? Assassination. Assassination is about killing. Can a child kill a strong man? Can Foundation establishment kill Jindan or even Yuaning? The answer is yes. Cultivators of any realm have hoods, and a single hit, not to mention killing a Jindan Yuaning, killing a great emperor is possible. Sister Tinkerbell, where is the great emperor's hood? Zhao Tingling twisted her head around with a morose smile on her face. Lu Yun, you don't have to look for the door on him. It could be his wife, daughter, 7 aunts and 8 uncles. So broaden your horizons a bit. Hua Luyun sucked in a breath of cool air. This assassination technique was so vicious. Sister Tinkerbell, so we're the villains? Lu Yun, have you ever seen any decent person living in a greenhouse? Hiss. Indeed. The 2 men's eyes locked. Their pupils all contained a cold, chilling light, and at the same time, they let out a jizz low laughter. For the next half a month Hua Luyun was busy. Every morning you need to go to the various forces to find the connector to the password. At noon to sit in the lobby of the Piu Xian courtyard to play. In the afternoon to go back to the Tinkling Bell Pavilion to learn the qin. And in the evening to practice assassination. He was so busy that he was dizzy. As for the matter of promising little bunny to return to the village, it had all been thrown out of the sky long ago. He bought a big sword and a nightshirt for his plate. Seeing Hua Liuyun's appearance in his nightclothes, long sword in hand, and bucket hat on his head, Zhao Tingling nodded in satisfaction. There's a sense of a good big home-raised child coming out of the woodwork. She straightened Hua Liuyun's collar. A rather solemn account was given. This mission you're just going to show up. Remember, don't rush in front. And when you fight, remember to pick up the bucket hat when you throw it. After half a month of cultivation, today the organization finally sent a mission to spy on the defense of the water mansion. For the first time in actual combat, Hua Luyun was just following the miscellaneous soldiers who were mixing up the full time, so it wasn't much of a challenge. He asked with some curiosity, Sister Tinker Bell, why are they targeting the water mansion? Zhao Tingling pondered for a few seconds, but in the end, she didn't hide it. We are not the only ones who have our eyes on the water mansion, but dozens of forces. Rumor has it that Shueiji is a remnant of the Crusaders of the Flower God Palace back then, and that he holds one of the three major legacies of the Crusaders, the Knocking Immortal Talisman. Upon hearing the Knocking Immortal Talisman, Hua Liuyun's pupils suddenly shrunk. The name has such a familiar ring to it. Seems like I've heard it somewhere before. Then, Sister Tinker Bell, I'll go. Seeing Hua Luyun turn to leave, Zhao Dingling remained a bit uneasy as she urged, remember, pick up the cloak. After leaving the puffing fragrance courtyard, he walked all the way towards the center of the city. It was rumored that the Shui family was the #1 family in this immortal-seeking city, extremely strong and with a large mansion, occupying the most central location in immortal-seeking city. Hua Luyun hadn't been there, but he always kept in mind little bunny's words, ask more if you don't know, and don't be too shy when you go out. Old-timer, may I ask if you know how to get to the water mansion? The old man holding up the ice candy gourd looked at Hua Luyun with a face full of suspicion. This guy was wearing nightclothes and just asked the first family of immortal-seeking city how to get there so brightly. Are all assassins so arrogant these days? Little brother, what are you doing in the water family? Seeing the old man replying, Hua Luyun hurriedly rummaged through his arms and waved a token in front of the old man. Folks, I'm an assassin from Milan, going over there on a mission. The old man clammed up. This assassin is so sincere. He doesn't know how to say no at all. You go down this street, turn left at the second intersection, walk about 300 to 400 meters, and the biggest mansion is. Hua Liuyun's eyes lit up. This path was the same as the relief of that kind lady's house of his own. He suddenly missed the little maid who threw herself at him every day a little. How much for a bunch of candy canes? Old-timer? Give me 3. 1 spirit stone per string. You're robbing people? Guest, if you don't pay me, I'll go to the water mansion and tip off that a Luo assassin is asking for his family's way. Hua Liuyun's face was cloudy. It's true that the outside world is too complicated and not at all as sincere as the village. These 3 spirit stones were considered to have bought a lesson. He had just left with the sugar gourd, when a red umbrella floated down to the place. Under the umbrella, Zhao Tingling looked at Hua Liuyun's distant back with a puzzled expression, and turned his head to look at the old man who was selling the sugar gourd. Anything unusual? The old man, carrying a candy cane, raised his hand and stroked his beard. Bell, his whole body is abnormal. There's nothing normal about him. Speaking of which, the old man looked a little solemn. However, the most abnormal thing is that deep in his eyes, there seems to be a monstrous ferocious aura hidden. Zhao Tingling frowned at the old man. Are you saying that his naive appearance is all an act? The old man shook his head. No, I mean, this guy has been repressing himself. He's actually quite violent, and there's a warlike gene hidden in his bloodline. Remember that fellow countryman of his telling him to go home? It was natural for him to ignore the incident, his subconscious mind delighting in karma. Zhao Tingling gulped. Cultivators, avoiding karma she had heard of, but it was the first time she had heard of those who were happy to dip their hands in karma. Rumor has it that a long time ago, there was a place called the Dragon Kingdom, and the people there liked to gather around and eat melons. No matter if someone is quarreling, fighting, even ants fight, other people's house shampooing the carpet to go and make a scene. They like to get high while commenting on the situation. This Flower Luyun can't be a descendant of the people from the Dragon Kingdom. Thinking about it, she asked the old man again. Is there a problem with identity? The old man bristled. From the village, what can be wrong with your identity? Cultivate it well. Although your disciple's qualifications are not good, but he has a lot of guts. Take a look. Dare to brightly light up the Luonet token on the street. Ask who else is there. Zhao Tingling held her forehead and twisted her head to look in the direction where Hua Luyun had left, only to see the other party casually pinning his sword on his waist at this moment, eating a sugar gourd in his mouth, his eyes revealing a stupid clarity. Violent? There's a load of violence. He mixed in this cultivation world like a husky that mixed in with the wolves. 1, 2, Second left. He counted the path and turned a corner, and after walking hundreds of meters, Hua Luyun froze in place. Here it is, the mansion of the good lady. At this time, the water mansion door is closed. Although there are several isolation formations open, still can vaguely hear the sound of killing inside. Some forces had already pressed on and attacked. A stream of blood flowed outward down the doorway. It reflected red on Hua Luyun's flustered face. He scratched his hair hard. His head itched as if his brain was growing again. Chapter 19 Cloudy. I've come to save you. Looking at his own face in the blood-colored reflection, Hua Luyun breathed slightly sharply. He shivered, like when he first went to Shijiatan and saw the village full of dead bodies. Boundless fear struck him, and he turned to leave. Little beggar, here's the cinnamon cake that the family doesn't want. Ouch, you're guarding the door again. My house owes you. Wait, I'll go to the kitchen and find you a chicken leg. One of the words that the little maid, Cloud, had once spoken flashed through his mind. His step across the room lurched and stopped in place. Blood dripped down the steps and over his feet, and in the reflection, he was actually smiling. No, no, no. He was clearly scared, clearly wanted to run away. But why was he smiling? Why exactly? He turned around, kicking and stomping. His boots stepped in the blood, pulling up wisps of goo, and his hands shook so badly he slowly pushed the door open. Who? A masked cultivator inside the door turned around to look at him, and he let out a stern cry just as he wanted to strike, when an icy candy cane stick went through his throat. He covered his neck and dropped the long sword in his hand, slowly kneeling down in front of Hua Luyun. Hua Luyun's hands were shaking. His body was shaking. He was scared to death. He felt his heart jumping into his throat. Once inside the courtyard, once again two assassins lunged at him. Clank! A flash of cold light lit up. Two heads flew up high, and Hua Luyun fell to the ground, her eyes filled with fear. Hoo! Take a deep breath. No fear, no fear. Standing up with his long sword in his pestle, he hooked his head to look at one of the large hallrooms at the back of the courtyard. There were killings everywhere, and it could be seen that not only one force had attacked the water family. Gulping, he dragged his sword inside. Cloudy, are you alive? It's me. I've come to save you. Clank! The sound of swords rang out, and one by one, the black-clothed men collapsed at the feet of Hua Luyun in succession, their eyes round and dead. Cloudy! I'm so scared. Where are you? I'm so scared. Jia. In a woodshed, hearing someone shouting his name, Yun Duo, who was carrying a dagger and hiding in it, opened the door of the room vigilantly, and just after sticking her head out she saw a scene that was appalling to the core, only to see Hua Luyun on the aisle with two empty eyes. Blood dripping down his bucket hat a little bit, his eyes froze, and the corners of his mouth curved up in an eerie arc. At the sound of her opening the door, the hollow eyes twisted their heads this way, bits of starburst dancing in his pupils. Creepy, weird, boo. As soon as Cloud slammed the door to the woodshed shut, his entire body went limp behind the door, the dagger in his hand unsteady. She covered her mouth hard and couldn't stop the tears from sliding down the corners of her eyes. It was too scary, so scary that her whole body was convulsing, but she didn't dare cry out. The creature was staring at the door of her room. It is choosing people to be addicted to. On the aisle, Hua Luyun looked at the firewood room door suspiciously. Did that look like a cloud just now? The fear in his heart was washed away a bit when he saw his acquaintance, and he took 3 steps and rushed to the front of the woodshed and pushed the door. Didn't push it. Seeing a window next to him, he hesitated for a moment and then poked his head in, but it happened to collide with the cloud that was peeping out of the window. The corners of his mouth cracked open, a look of surprise on his face and a glint in his eyes. Clouds! An ear-piercing scream rang out, and Yun Duo was about to fall backwards in a backward motion. When the critical time came, Hua Luyun reached through the window and grabbed Yun Duo's arm. Cloudy, don't be afraid. I'm coming to save you. He dragged Cloud out of the window opening, the latter having fainted by now. Thinking of all the things in this immortal-seeking city, only Yun Duo and Madame treated themselves the best. Their goodness was unrequited and the purest. Hua Luyun was a person who knew how to repay favors, his eyes gradually firming up. Today, even if the King of Heaven came, he would still take Yun Duo and kill him. When are people most powerful? When the heart has faith. Although Hua Luyun is only a foundation cultivation, but with the 3 cultivations of Confucianism, Taoism, and military, he has hardened himself to kill a bloody path in this chaos. Wherever the 7-colored Haoren Zhengqi passes, ghosts and gods retreat. All laws do not invade, and the 100 battles to kill God Gong is even more tireless. Despite dragging the clouds with one hand and holding a sword in only one hand, he still kills people's heads rolling. It had been killing from the front yard to the backyard, killing until the entire water mansion became silent and the smell of blood stung his nose. Look at the blood in the yard and listen to the mosquitoes whispering. The last of the black-clad men slid to the ground in front of him, their blood-stained palms pulling a blood-red handprint across the hem of his coat. He was still shaking, all over. Scared? Fear? He'd been so afraid that he'd gone into spasms. In the alley outside the water house, a team of men wearing cocked hats and black robes leaned over and crouched by the wall. They were the assassins of the Rouge. The leader this time was the Earth character killer Easy. Yuaning stage cultivation. Rumor has it that he has assassinated a god realization stage powerhouse with a handful of Easy sword. So his strength is extremely strong. At this time he looked quite anxious. The inheritance of the knocking immortal talisman was just one copy. And after the angry blood sect lured the Water Mansion's grand lady out of the immortal-seeking city, 7 or 8 forces had already killed their way into the Water Mansion. The angry blood sect, the immortal Moon Kingdom, the listening Wind Pavilion, the City Lord's Mansion, and even the Zhu clan of the Easy sect had secretly sent people. And now it's just a matter of them roping in yet. Have the Civets men not arrived yet? He frowned and scanned the crowd. The group of assassins shook their heads in unison. Didn't see it. Neither have I. Will it go in first? The people were all talking about it, and they all said they hadn't seen it. At this point it was suggested, "Boss, although those forces have gone in, they have left people outside to receive them. Should we turn them?" He made a neck-wiping gesture. Easy glared at him and snapped, "Put away your stupid ideas, offending so many forces at once. Don't drag me along if you want to die." After hesitating for a moment, Easy decided not to wait. If he hadn't promised the civet cat to bring her disciples to see the world, he would have killed them long ago. Knocking immortal talisman, that is a talismanic Dao feat that directly refers to the great emperor. Rumor has it that if one fully masters it, one can even ascend to immortality and knock on the immortal gate. If he missed out on such an opportunity because of pleasing a woman, he would never forgive himself for the rest of his life. No more waiting. Follow me in. He drew his long sword and grabbed the first to kill towards the gate of the Water Mansion. But at that moment, the vermilion door suddenly opened. A figure wearing the same type of hat as him slowly walked out from the mansion. Blood and minced meat dripped down along his hat. His black clothes were wet with blood, and his long sword was full of openings, with broken bones mixed on top of it. He grabbed a woman's hand and dragged a bloody woman on the ground, and it was not clear if the blood was stained with someone else's or her own. It looked miserable as hell. The man was trembling, shaking all over, his eyes full of fear. Upon seeing Easy he froze for a moment, silently raising his hand and pressing down on his bucket hat, barely covering half of his cheeks with a look of social terror. Easy hooked his waist suspiciously and looked down to see Hua Liuyun's face. "Don't cover up. I've seen your face. You're the apprentice of a civet?" Hua Liuyun's voice was tinged with tears. "Elder Easy, is that you? You finally come. Dead people. There are dead people everywhere inside. It's horrible." Chapter 20, The Sacred Son of the Easy Sect. Li Xinghe. Hua Liuyun's fear wasn't fake. He knew deep down that he had made a big mistake this time. There was more than one force of killers in the Water Mansion just now. There were at least 7 or 8 types of dress, but he killed them all in self-defense. This who came to the hood. Now he only hoped that Yuaning stage Zhao Tingling could protect him. Otherwise those forces came to seek revenge. He had to be torn into pieces. Easy glanced at the long sword in his hand, which was full of gaping holes, and his expression changed and changed. "Everyone in there is dead? Yeah. You killed it? I didn't mean it." Hearing this, Easy only felt his scalp tingle. This was the novice that the civet cat said came to make a sauce? Holy! He glanced inside the door, turned and left without a moment's hesitation, without a moment's pause. And now most of the forces entrenched in the vicinity of the immortal-seeking city have people dying here. Once they counterattack, not to mention his Yuaning stage, the god of transformation came also instantly ashes. Senior, wait for me." Seeing the group of Luo Net's people fleeing in a hurry, Hua Luyun picked up Yun Duo and hurriedly chased after them. Easy twisted his head around, looking menacing. "You are my senior. Don't follow me. Go away a bit." Hua Luyun stood stiffly in the middle of the road. This was the 4th time he had experienced the feeling of abandonment. The first time was when he was thrown in Shangba village. The second time was when flying immortal sacred ground was accepting disciples. The third time was when he was left behind by Tangkawei in the recruitment square. And the 4th time was now. He raised his hand slightly to lift his bucket hat, his eyes narrowing to slits. It was a feeling that irritated him. Easy, who was walking in front of him, was given a sudden lurch. He was at the Yuaning stage, and Hua Luyun was at the foundation stage. But at this moment, he was feeling a hint of palpitations of death. What's going on? What's going on with this guy? He stiffened and turned his head. Mission over. Go home, haha. Go find your civet sister. You did well. Very well, a brave killer. After saying this, Easy accelerated his pace and disappeared in the line of sight of Hua Luyun under a few jumps, and his group of men also dispersed in an instant and disappeared in a few breaths. Hua Luyun stood in place a little uncertain. The mission was over? Right at this moment a light flashed in the center of the street, and a barefoot woman walked step by step, and every time she took a step there was a pleasant sound of bells ringing. Hua Luyun inclined her head towards him and reached out to touch a wind chime from her bosom. Your wind chime from the listening pavilion? The woman froze. Ah, yes. You're the only one who made it out alive? Hua Luyun nodded stiffly. Did you get the immortal talisman? Forget it. I'm sorry you're not capable of that even at the foundation stage. After the question the woman dashed and flew into the mansion. Next came a masked man with an embroidered sword. This time with experience Hua Luyun hurriedly pulled out the token. My lord. I am the specter of the Jinui, and this is my token. The man glanced at the token and asked the same thing. You're the only one who made it out alive? Yes, my lord. The man sighed and flew into the waterhouse. Hua Luyun sniffled as he carried Yun Duo towards the floating fragrance courtyard. In this journey of 700 to 800 meters, he encountered several waves of people one after another. Fortunately, they all wore overalls, allowing Hua Luyun not to pull out the wrong token. The city lord's mansion, the tall sentry tower stuck straight up into the sky, and even though immortal-seeking city was huge, it was still all exposed to this sentry tower. At that moment there was a youth leaning on the railing of the sentry tower, looking at a scene outside the water mansion. He was none other than the immortal-seeking city lord Li Xinghe, who was also the saint son of the Easy sect. From the outside of the innings, Hua Luyun's operation could be described as nothing short of legendary. Those 7 or 8 forces who were out to meet them always kept them from crashing together for various reasons. Let Hua Luyun, a scummy act of a man leading multiple jobs, not play it off. It was as if luck was always in his favor. However, if one looked closely, there was some contradiction. Although these forces did not collide together, there was a force between heaven and earth that pushed them to dismantle Flower Luyun. Interesting, a son of Qi who was not treated well by heaven and earth. The youth's brow furrowed, the words coming out odd even to him. The son of Qi Fortune should have been the favorite of heaven and earth, but this son of Qi Fortune in front of him was being targeted by heaven and earth. Sky 8. Can you tell what's going on with him? A mechanical voice sounded in Li Xinghe's mind. Ding. The target is not a child of this realm's destiny. It's an alien child of destiny. Li Xinghe's eyes narrowed slightly. Is it possible to plunder the Qi luck value of an alien Qi luck son? Can. Detecting target's Qi value. Ding. Luck value scanning in progress. Target luck value 9999999. Ding. Alert alert alert. Detection data overload. System disorder. Skylight Technology is updating the system for you. Please host wait. Li Xinghe stood up abruptly, his body trembling. Ordinary people on the body of the Qi luck is only 1 or 200. A bit of luck can have 1 or 2 million. The kind of 10,000 years not encountered in the demon, also at most more than 100,000. But what did he see? Hua Luyun's Qi points unexpectedly exploded and killed the system. This ing outburst. How can there be so much Qi? Hell. Hiss. I see a golden mountain beckoning me. He stepped on the railing, took one step, and his body instantly disappeared into the sentry tower. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Flower Luyun. Your Excellency, please stay. I am the sacred son of the Easy sect, Li Xinghe. He was about to imprison Hua Luyun first in the name of his causing trouble in immortal-seeking city, but he didn't want to realize that Hua Luyun had already begun to rummage through his arms for a token. That familiar movement, those eyes that were shrewd in their stupidity, caused Li Xinghe to faintly freeze. It's not. This guy isn't still a disciple of the Easy sect, is he? At this moment, every item Hua Luyun took out of his arms tugged at his heart. There was a token engraved with a ghost, a bell, a blood charm, a killer's order, and a white paper fan. Found it. After stuffing a bunch of things into his arms, Hua Luyun pulled out a disciple token of the Easy sect. Senior, I'm your junior. Li Xinghe stretched his head incredulously to look. Nice guy. It is really the token of the Easy sect, and it is not an ordinary outer disciple. The token is clearly written on the 100 Flowers Peak True Disciple. This thing cannot be fake. He snatched the token from Hua Luyun's hand and looked at it repeatedly. You are really a disciple of Master Tang. How can it be? Master Tang has never taken a disciple. How can this be possible? Hua Luyun squeezed out a tear from the corner of her eye. At this moment, her heart only felt aggrieved to the extreme. Elder brother, Master went back after accepting me. I have not been able to find the mountain gate. I can only wander around this city of seeking immortality. In order to make a living, I had to find a few odd jobs, which were too hard to do. They asked me to go and kill people. Do you know that, elder brother? They asked me to kill people. Seeing Hua Liuyun's sad appearance, Li Xinghe wanted to speak. So, you're working an odd job as an undercover agent for 7 or 8 powers at once? Chapter 21, The Saint's Son Meets the Drinker. In the face of Hua Liuyun's cries, Li Xinghe was completely unable to empathize. If he wanted to plunder the other party's qi, he had to suppress the other party so that Hua Liuyun could accomplish nothing. But now that Hua Liuyun had exploded the identity of Tang Kewei's disciple, he didn't dare to come hard. A Tang Kewei he is not afraid. But the matter of the free sect, pulling out the carrot brings out the mud. Messing with Tang Kewei is equivalent to messing with her good girlfriend Zhu Linglong. It is equivalent to messing with her licking dog Zhu Ziji, and messing with his own master, Tang Kechen. For what Li Xinghe was thinking Hua Liuyun naturally didn't know. He was at this moment as if he was a stray dog that had found an organization and appeared to be very enthusiastic. Taking off the night clothes on his body, he pulled Li Xinghe and headed towards the puffy fragrance courtyard. Elder brother, it's rare for you to come. First go to my workplace for a drink. I'll find you some sisters. Say my name and you'll get 20% off. Li Xinghe half-heartedly followed Hua Liuyun's side, pondering over countermeasures. Where do you work, master? Piu Xian Lua. Here it is. Sister Li, I brought a friend. Book a private room for me. Sister Flower. Come on, come on. Hua Liuyun walked into the floating fragrance building with a big grin and handed Li Qingqiu the cloud he was holding in his hand. Sister Li, Yun Duo is my savior. Help me take care of her for a while. I'll entertain my senior brother first. Li Qingqiu received the cloud covered in bloody paste, raised her eyes just in time to see Li Xinghe, and was so frightened that she trembled and stumbled and almost didn't stand still. Qingqiu meets the holy son of Star River. Li Xinghe was both the sacred son of the Easy Sect and the city lord of Immortal Seeking City, so she had naturally met him. These scouts of theirs, if they were caught out by the Easy Sect, the outcome could be imagined. This Flower Liuyun went out to do a mission. How come he brought this guy? Isn't this asking for death? Liuyun, the Star River Saint's son is your senior brother? Yeah, Sister Li. I'll catch up with you later. He didn't wait for Li Qingqiu to reply after he finished speaking, and pulled Li Xinghe up to the private room on the second floor. Li Xinghe raised his eyes and scanned around the drifting fragrance building. He was similarly filled with dismay at this time. Nope, it wasn't just dismay anymore. It was shock. Hua Liuyun's operation had shocked his 3 senses. Senior, is this where you work? Does she know about your master? At the mention of master, Hua Liuyun couldn't help but have 2 more drops of horse urine hanging from the corner of his eyes. Elder brother, master, she doesn't know. You go back and see my master must give her a word. Let her come to pick me up at Piu Xian Lua. Li Xinghe's face was cloudy. The eyes that looked at Hua Liuyun were full of strangeness. You want Tang Kewei to pick you up at the fragrant house? That is the first beauty of the free sect. 10 miles and 8 villages of the famous Ice Fairy Ice and Jade, untainted by dust, absolute independence. If he or she knew that his or her disciple was working in a greenhouse, he or she could not help but flatten this immortal seeking city of his. Decent cultivators sometimes do things even more extreme than the devil's way in order to preserve their reputation. Have you ever thought about a different job, senior? If you're short of money, I can give you some. So let's not do this anymore, okay? Hearing this, Hua Liuyun was filled with emotion, secretly sighed that the good people in this world is really much. He and Li Xinghe, although he is a master and brother, but it is only a casual encounter. The other party will have to give money as soon as he opens his mouth. How can this be good? Senior brother, how many spirit stones can you give me in January? Li Xinghe made a dark calculation. The monthly salary of the free sect is only 1 spirit stone a month for the miscellaneous disciples, 5 for the outer disciples, and 10 for the true disciples. He reached out and compared 3 fingers in front of Hua Liuyun. 300? Hearing Hua Liuyun's voice, Li Xinghe immediately widened his eyes. What 300? He said 3. Damn who on earth raised this guy with such a big appetite? Opened the mouth on 300. When his family is open spirit stone mine Senior, it's 3. Upon hearing 3, Hua Liuyun's excited face quickly sank into silence, turning pale in a second. Elder brother, I have 7 or 8 part-time jobs now, and with food and housing reimbursement, plus field rewards, I have 400 or 500 spirit stones every month, and I'm not short of those 3-inch. How much? Li Xinghe's eyes widened in a flash. 400 or 500? Are you kidding me? His city lord's mansion doesn't even have this much income in January. Seeing Li Xinghe's disbelief, Hua Liuyun wiggled his fingers and did the math for him. Without counting, once calculated, the monthly spirit stones actually broke through the 500 mark, nearly 600 in income. Senior brother, you've included the income from picking up customers. Would that not be too good? Elder brother, I'm the only true master of the Jingling family's zither skills. I deserve all that. Li Xinghe's expression stiffened. It seemed that persuading the other party to leave the drifting fragrance courtyard was impossible. Monthly 500 spirit stone income. And this is still because the flower Lu Yun is only the lowest level of secret agent. If the future promotion will be more, this who came not confused. Many foundation cultivators cannot earn so much spirit stone in their lifetime. Senior brother, are you guys still hiring for your secret detectives? Senior brother, don't joke about it. You're the sacred son of the easy sect. The two of them talked, laughed, pushed the cups, and after they had eaten and drank their fill, Hua Luyun supported Li Xinghe and sent him to the door. Me, come and settle the bill for Mr. Xinghe. Hua Luyun shouted twice towards the counter, and a demonically dressed ugly-looking woman hurriedly came to his ear. Lu Yun, Sister Li said that Mr. Xinghe is free. Hearing this, the corner of Li Xinghe's mouth on the side slightly hooked up. He wasn't as good at making money as Flower Flowing Cloud though. But he doesn't have to pay for his meals. In this immortal-seeking city, who dares to take money from him? The city lord? Hua Luyun frowned tightly and came to Mi's ear to ask in a low voice. So do I still have a commission? Mi was a little hesitant. If you don't get paid, you shouldn't get a commission. Hearing this, Hua Luyun instantly quit. He accompanied the wine for several hours. How could he not have a commission? As soon as he pushed me away, he laughed and hooked Li Xinghe's shoulder. Ha ha, senior brother. I made a deal with our boss. For my sake I'll give you a 70% discount. You only need to pay 20 spirit stones. No, senior brother. I just listened to that millet. Ugh, elder brother, you heard wrong. Elder brother, which pocket is your spirit stone in? The two men had a bit of a tug. A long time later, at the entrance of the puffy fragrance courtyard, Li Xinghe stood on the main street in a daze, feeling his heart go cold. What's he doing here? That's right, come to intercept flowering Liu Yun's qi. His qi didn't intercept, and he inexplicably came to Piaoxiang Pavilion to spend 20 spirit stones and ordered a male model. It's not. Shouldn't it be Hua Luyun who invited him to dinner? Why did you pay for yourself and tip Flower Runner's introduction? Figuring out the key, he hurriedly turned his head to look toward the store. But at this time where there is still Hua Luyun figure, this guy has long run out of sight. Asterisk. I've met a wine shopper in the immortal cultivation world. Hua Luyun, I'm going to sue you at 100 Flower Peak. You lack of virtue. The shopkeeper clearly said to give me a free bill. You took me for deaf and touched my wallet. He cursed and was extremely sad. It's not that his hallowed sacred son of the free sect can't afford to lose these dozens of spirit stones. It's really disgusting. Disgusting nah. Sue. You must sue. Chapter 22, Coming of the Immortal Talisman. In the backyard of the floating fragrance courtyard, after sending away Li Xinghe, Hua Luyun hurriedly rushed to the side room. Inside the room, the maid had already washed away Cloud's blood and changed her into a white dress. But the little girl was overly frightened today, and at this point she was still crouching on the bed holding her legs and trembling. Cloudy, are you feeling better? Seeing Hua Luyun, the little girl's mouth dropped and she violently fell into his arms sobbing in a low voice. Little beggar. Oh, I thought I was going to die. Killers everywhere. Especially the one with the bucket hat. He had blood all over his face. He was looking at me and smiling. I was so scared. Hua Luyun hugged Yun Duo and raised his hand to gently pat her back to comfort her. Well, Cloudy isn't afraid. It's all right. I'm here. The one with the bucket hat. No, I'm the only one with a hat. Yun Duo, who was lying in his arms, stiffened, and could clearly feel that the originally small girl's soft body was suddenly a little taut. Seeing that the little girl was frightened again, he once again offered some reassurance. It was good that Hua Luyun had experience in bringing up children. When he was in Shangba village, which adult went down to the fields to do farm work and the children were not brought up by him? Far from it. Let's talk about the bunnies. The goddess of the flying fairy sanctuary that Zhu Qianming, the son of Everest, hangs on to. That's what he fed him. And in their Shangba village diapers were rotated. And he, Hua Luyun, was the oldest, and the others picked up what he had used. Clunking Cloud. After seeing her fall asleep, Hua Luyun gently tucked her in. Seeing the sleeping Clouds, he couldn't help but think of his little friends in the village. That was 15 future great emperors. As their cowboy brother, he felt a lot of pressure. Still have to work hard up to now also only foundation stage. I do not know when I can catch up with them. Hua Luyun sighed. He actually had a high self-esteem and an even higher sense of competitiveness. He didn't cultivate for longevity. He didn't cultivate to move mountains. He only cultivated so as not to drag his younger siblings back. Zhao Tingling was right. Everyone had a hood. And so did the great emperor. He didn't want to be in their hood later. Walking over to the table, he took a book out of his arms and flipped through it. On the spine of the book are written in large letters that have been transcribed, knocking immortal talisman. Only a few glances he was attracted by the introduction of the talisman. The book had 1,000 different types of talismans. Inviting thunder to attract electricity, hasty teleportation, these were the most basic ones. Powerful talismans can even knock on the door of immortality and ascend to the immortal world. This talisman explains more about the rules of operation of the talisman. What kind of talisman can be realized still depends on one's own enlightenment. The golden light in Hua Luoyun's eyes exploded. In terms of physique spirit root, he was inferior to the heroes of the world. But in terms of enlightenment, if the world's enlightenment is totaled in 1 quart, he alone has 12 buckets, and all beings in the world owe him 2 buckets. No one is more enlightened than me. Let's see me work on a haste charm first. Saying yes, he kept running the air, sensing the flow of energy. Dozens of breaths later a golden light flashed in his eyes and he raised his hand to draw a few characters in the void. It's done. Hua Luoyun let out a stern cry, and the haste talisman flew up and stuck on his calf. The moment the talisman fell, he really felt the change, and a shocked look appeared on his face. So fast. A fly flew past his ear. Its speed was as fast as thunder, and he, a foundation establishment stage cultivator, almost didn't see the other party's flight trajectory. It's simply horrible as hell. Could it be that my hasty traveling talisman has a great coverage area and is acting on the flies? The more Hua Luoyun thought about it, the more he felt that it was extremely likely. He raised his leg and walked towards the house. After a tiring day, it was time to go back and rest. Stepping out of the clouded room, he looked up to the sky. Shasta was shocked. Just see the eaves of the house. A sliver of sunrise is slowly rising in the hazy mountain color. Hiss, my divine traveling talisman can actually affect the flow of time? How is this possible? The entire world is speeding up. In the small yard, the early working people were busy, and they were extremely fast. Swishingly, it flashed past Hua Luoyun's eyes. He opened his mouth wide with horror, secretly sighing that it was worthy of being a knockout immortal talisman. At this point in time others' perspective, Hua Luoyun took a step out, tens of breaths before his feet landed on the ground. He was as slow as a snail. The shocked expression on his face was as if it was stuck. The transition was extremely slow and full of grotesqueness. Li Qingqiu crossed her arms and came up to Hua Luoyun, her brows furrowed. What's wrong with you, Luoyun? Are you uncomfortable somewhere? Did you suffer a serious injury yesterday? Hua Luoyun opened his mouth, unable to say a word for most of the day. With worry in her heart, Li Qingqiu carried Flower Luoyun and flew towards Dingling Pavilion. Fast, too fast. Sister Li, I can't stand it. Slow down, slow down. Free sect, 100 Flowers Peak. Here peach blossom sky, azalea paved the way, lilies in the mountains to welcome the wind. There is no 4 seasons of flowers here, only colorful and beautiful all year round. Tang Kowei strolled through the flower forest, butterflies danced around her, and colorful birds circled above her head, a beautiful picture of an earthly paradise. She took 1 step down the hill, looking relaxed and cozy. On the dome of the sky, a sword light flew by, and Morongyu stopped and landed beside her, jumping and running to take her arm. Uncle, where are you going? Tang Kowei stroked Morongyu's head favorably. Didn't you take an apprentice before? I'll go to the bottom of the mountain and fetch him here. When she thought of that disciple begging in immortal-seeking city, Tang Kowei was so angry that her cheeks trembled slightly. People live to save face. As the peak master of the Easy sect, she was even more interested in face. But now, her disciple was actually begging for food at the bottom of the mountain under her name. Thinking about it made her feel blocked in her heart. At the mention of this disciple, Morongyu's face became a bit ugly. Some time ago she and her master hosted a banquet in the puffy fragrance courtyard to entertain the evening of the Fairview Academy. And the more she thought about it after she came back, the more she felt that the flowing clouds and shallow water were quite familiar. Until a few days ago she finally remembered. Wasn't that bastard the disciple that Master Uncle had lost in immortal-seeking city? She had been too worried to eat for the past few days because of this. Hanging Tang Kowei name begging is already humiliating enough. And now go to the greenhouse to accompany the wine. She is really afraid of their own Master Uncle no on the spot angry deaf. That, Senior Uncle, why don't we take on a new disciple and leave that one behind? I spent 300 spirit stones yesterday to buy 2 celestial pride for my senior uncle in a small nearby clan, both of which are unparalleled geniuses that come along once in 10,000 years. Saying that, Morongyu clapped her hands. The formation on the mountain path changed and a 16 or 17-year-old youthful boy walked up the mountain. He had a boyish face, and although he was dressed plainly, his body inadvertently revealed a few noble qualities. Apprentice Yu Yuchen, greetings to master. Tang Kowei looked at Morongyu with a strange expression on her face. If she was not mistaken, the man in front of her was an indestructible god king body that was rare in 10,000 years. And this was the heavenly pride that could be bought with 300 spirit stones? Just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, a little girl once again appeared on the mountain path, looking no more than 8 or 9 years old in size, wearing a pilled head and looking powdery. Hey shoo, she gasped for breath as she climbed the mountain path, and it took her a lot of effort to arrive in front of Tang Kuwei. Apprentice Pearl Curtain, greetings to master. Moron, you pulled Tang Kuwei's sleeve. Uncle, this is a gift. I don't need any money. Chapter 23, Tang Kuwei takes on another disciple. Seeing the large and small two people kneeling in front of her, Tang Kuwei fiercely blanked Morongyu. She has always been accustomed to being alone and comfortable. Where would she teach her disciples? This is not a mistake. But teaching one was teaching, and teaching two was teaching, and she did think she could give it a try. Get up. You guys can stay on the mountain first. I'll go down the mountain to find your eldest senior brother. Then I'll arrange for you to cultivate. Hearing that there was still a senior brother, Pearl Curtain's small face was filled with delight. At her age, she naturally loves a good time. Yu Yuchen is quite calm, although he is only 16, but he has experienced a lot. The world has rarely been able to have things that can set off his mind. Yes, master. The two of them stood up. Tang Kuwei just wanted to fly up but was once again pulled back by Morongyu. Senior uncle, Yuchen and Zhukai just arrived. You'd better bring them to familiarize themselves with 100 Flower Peak a bit more. I'll go and find that sinister person under the mountain for you. Seeing Morongyu, who left in a hurry, Tang Kuwei only felt a little strange. This master-nephew seems to be quite attached to that disciple of hers. Could it be? Thinking of this, Tang Kuwei only sighed. This thing is really inexplicable. Full of mountain heavenly pride, she did not look at a glance, but on a mixed up in the heart. Down the hill and into town. Morongyu soon arrived at the entrance of the puffing fragrance courtyard. Today, no matter what, she had to catch this guy back. A cold light appeared in her eyes and she shouted in a cold voice towards the attic. Hua Lu Yun, get your ass out here. Inside the lobby, hearing someone call out to him, Hua Lu Yun ran to the door. Seeing Morongyu, he instantly had a happy face. Hurriedly, he stepped forward and pulled the other man into the store. Gu, is Twilight's senior sister. Quickly come in. The second floor Qingfeng Hazel Moon private room A. Quickly fetch me the piano. Today I want to play for Twilight's senior sister on a song of flowers and moon. Morongyu was half pushed and half taken up to the second floor, her face obviously a little flustered. Hua Lu Yun, let go of me. I'm here to teach you a lesson on behalf of Senior Uncle Tang. It's inappropriate for you, the chief of 100 Blossom Peak, to be accompanying a drink in a greenhouse. Senior Sister Twilight, would you like a large or small portion of the fruit plate? A big one, I think. No, don't get sidetracked. I'm here to settle a score with you. Me, here's a large fruit plate. And someone, dance the golden wind and jade dew. The dance troupe entered the stage. Peanuts and melons were placed all over the table. A beautiful woman pinched her shoulders, and Hua Luyun peeled grapes for her. This kind of day is many times happier than the mountain purification. Eternal life were this comfortable some enjoyment. Late at night, she watched the dance, ate the food, drank the wine, the beautiful man rubbing shoulders and legs, played a multitude of games, paid the spirit stone. She stood at the entrance to the floating fragrance courtyard, the cold wind whistling. What a pleasant day. She turned to take a few steps toward the gates and paused in place. Hiss! I'm here to catch flower flowing cloud back. What have I done? Morongyu turned to look at the floating fragrance building. She clenched her teeth. Her anger once again climbed up her cheeks. When she was about to turn back, she touched her flat wallet. Her body suddenly trembled. This damn place. Even a dog going in has to spend 2 taels of spirit stones. She is now penniless. And when she looks at this broken greenhouse again, she is actually like looking at a flood beast that devours people and devours bones. Forget it. I don't have any money today, so I'll let you off the hook. Cursing, she turned around with her imperial sword and left. On the watchtower of the city lord's mansion, Li Xinghe laughed his head off when he saw the scene, holding onto the railing. Ha ha, ouch. Morongyu, it's too funny, coming in anger to arrest someone, only to be lulled into spending some money. He laughed so hard he couldn't straighten up and was red in the face. Finally calming down after a long time, he looked behind him, where a figure in blood-red armor slowly stepped out of the shadows. Help me spread the news of Hualioyun's fall from grace. Dare to pit me against the spirit stones. I want him to lose his reputation. The red-armored man frowned. Holy Sun, if a woman can yet strike some blow at his honor, will this man? Seeing the man's desire to speak, Li Xinghe glared angrily at him. What's wrong with men? Can men have no bottom line? No morals? No principles? What are your views? Don't you understand that men and women are equal? I want the whole free sect to know about him. I'm going to break his golden body and spoil his luck. Roaring out the depression in his heart, Li Xinghe felt a lot more relaxed. The last time he was pitched 20 spirit stones. The more he thought about it, the more he lost money. This is no longer a matter of spirit stones or not. This is a matter of face. If the clan's masters and brothers know that he has been wine-tossed on his own turf, where is he going to put his face? The red-armored cultivator had no choice but to turn around and go down to make arrangements. It wasn't difficult to spread the news that Hua Luyun was working at the Puffing Fragrance Courtyard, knowing that in the Easy sect, as long as the news was related to Tangkawei, that could be a hit. In just a few days, the heat of this matter had overshadowed the hottest new disciple initiation competition of the Easy sect, Jingle Bell Court. Hua Luyun didn't know that he had become infamous in the Easy sect, but even if he knew, he wouldn't care. As long as this doesn't get out to the village of Shangba, everything is fine. Who doesn't have a dark history out there? As long as they come home in style. Early this morning, Hua Luyun rushed to the halls of various forces on time to meet with them, saying that he had a mission to hand out. After the battle in the Water Mansion, he was considered half a minor leader in this immortal-seeking city. A lot of things have been done to show his face, and he has been promoted in terms of treatment. Inside a small farmhouse, he matched the code word and successfully received a quest worth 5 spirit stones. Luyun, you are now a qualified spectre. The several forces entrenched in the immortal-seeking city jointly discovered a vermilion fruit in the Forgotten River mountain range the year before last. It should be ripe by now. I want you to represent the immortal Moon Kingdom to go and fight for it. Hearing the content of the mission, Flower Luyun was a bit hesitant. Chief, I rarely go out. I'm worried I might get lost. Can you send someone else? The masked commander let out a loud laugh. He liked Hua Luyun's honesty. Don't worry. Other forces will also send people. The rules of the competition are set by everyone. There's no need to be too nervous. This is also a rare opportunity for training. Having received his assignment, he exited the small courtyard and hurried to the next place. In the tea house, the boss's wife took advantage of serving him tea and surreptitiously slipped a note into his arms, throwing a wink at the end. Hua Luyun went out of the tea house and opened the note, only to feel a bit uncomfortable. Luyun, on behalf of the Listening Wind Pavilion, go to the Dog Jumping Cliff at night to meet with the various forces to discuss the fight for the vermilion fruit in the Forgetful River mountain range. Seeing the contents of the note, a bad feeling surged in his heart. It can't be that I'm the one who sent all of them, can it? Midnight, Dog Jumping Cliff. Hua Luyun squatted at the edge of the cliff, looking at the distant immortal-seeking city, his eyes as lonely as they could be. The 8 powers met, and he came alone. That means that the whole tree is all his, but he just can't be happy about what's going on. How he wanted to fit in with them, but why did he remain out of place? The breeze blew up his hair, revealing a bloody scar on his forehead. Today his head is still itchy. What's going on? It seems that the Haoran Zhang Qi skill can't stop him from growing his brain anymore. Chapter 24, The Mysterious Eldest Brother. Early the next morning, Aya organized his packages with careful instructions. Luyun, this time when you head to the Forgotten River mountain range, don't rush to the front, no? Let other forces explore the road first. Even if we didn't grab the vermilion fruit in the end, it doesn't matter. Miss Yuaning stage power. There's no shortage of those vermilion fruits. Our main purpose is still to practice. The corner of Hua Luyun's mouth twitched slightly. Where's the other power? He's the only one in the whole crew. After leaving the Puffing Fragrance Courtyard, the streets were filled with city guards that seemed to be searching for something. He asked curiously, coming up to one of the soldier boys. Fellow Daoist, what are you looking for? The city guard cultivator frowned at Flower Luyun. They looked fierce and vicious as they went around searching for people. Everyone who saw them would be scared to avoid them. This one was afraid that he didn't have a bit of background, but he dared to come forward. The man in the portrait. Have you seen him? Hua Luyun took the portrait and took a couple of close looks at it. It depicted a man in silver armor who was holding a cross longsword with a red pi ***** flower engraved on the hilt. Fellow Daoist, what has this man committed? The city guard cultivator grabbed the portrait with an impatient hand. Oh, if you don't want to see it, don't worry about it. Muttering a few words, he headed out of town. This trial in the Forgotten River mountain range was very challenging for him, and if he wasn't careful, he would get lost in the vast jungle. After all, he didn't even have a companion. Walking to the gates of the city, he flipped out his map and began to cross-reference his route. It was also fortunate that this thing was more carefully labeled. Otherwise he would really want to find a random place to hide for 2 days, and then return to the city to resume his duties. It's not like anyone knows if he was there or not anyway. The map is clearly labeled. Out of the city of immortal seekers all the way north to reach the River of Forgetfulness. Crossing the river is the River of Forgetfulness mountain range. Hua Luyun had only just left when a blue sword light stopped in front of the city gate building. The green silk rippled in the wind, and the faint fragrance of flowers instantly permeated the entire city. In front of the city gate, A few soldiers on duty hurriedly dropped to one knee when they saw the visitor. "We kowtow to Peak Master Tang." Tang Kuwei didn't say anything. Her face was as cold as frost as she lifted her steps toward the city. A sword light came face to face within the city. Li Xinghe at this time, his face is a little stiff. To face Soup Kuwei he is really not in the heart. "Xinghe, meet senior uncle." Tang Kuwei faintly hummed, and his divine sense spread out, instantly enveloping half of Immortal Seeking City. "Xinghe I went to a meeting at the Palace of Prosperity today, and I heard that my eldest disciple is selling his art in the city of Immortal Seeking. Is this matter true?" Hearing Tang Kuwei's question and feeling the anger in this ice fairy's heart, a drop of cold sweat slid down Li Xinghe's forehead. "Uncle, it's better to sell your art than to beg." Tang Kuwei's aura suddenly released. With her as the center of the circle outward everything shattered layer by layer. Even the city wall behind her collapsed in half. "Li Xinghe, as the city lord of Immortal Seeking City, you know that Hua Luyun is doing the flesh business. And if you don't stop it, that's just it. You're still going around proclaiming it. What? Is it possible that the Holy Sun Lord intends to want to sweep me? The senior uncle. Off my face?" Li Xinghe hooked his waist with a slight chill in his eyes. How did this Tang Kuwei know that the news was spread by him? "Senior uncle. Xinghe doesn't dare." "You'd better not dare." Tang Kuwei gave a cold snort and lifted her steps towards the puffing fragrance courtyard. Each of her steps brought up pieces of flower petals, and the gusty wind swept up the roaming peach blossoms and blew them into the puffing fragrance courtyard's lobby. The originally noisy floating fragrance courtyard was silenced, so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. The golden light of the sunrise sprinkled into the hall. The fairy seemed to be stepping on the golden light, feeling the coldness and the fragrance of the flowers. All the people in the small building lowered their heads and dared not speak. Behind Tang Kuwei, Li Xinghe followed in step by step. As long as Tang Kuwei had a falling out with Hua Luyun, he would definitely be able to dissipate part of Hua Luyun's qi, and he, in turn, will be able to yellow bird. "System, prepare to collect luck. This time it's coming in a big wave." He whispered his instructions as the system voice rang out in his head. "Ding, please rest assured that the host. This system has prepared the basket." "Jia jia jia." Tang Ke slightly raised his hand. Countless peach blossoms coalesced in her hand to form a long pink sword. He used the tip of the sword to slightly pick Li Qingqiu's chin and spoke in a cold voice. "Where's Fa Luyun? Tell him to get his ass out here and meet me." Li Qingqiu shivered, and her first reaction was that Hua Luyun's identity as a ghost had been exposed. She eyed her determination at the thought. She had counted on this day coming long before she joined the brocade guards. "Peak Master Tang, I won't betray Luyun. Kill me." Li Qingqiu raised her neck, no longer timid. "Boo!" Tang Kuwei kicked out, and Li Qingqiu's entire body crashed through the wooden wall and flew into the backyard alive or dead. She shifted her long sword across the room and patted Zhang Jinpin, who was trembling. This man who was known as the one golden needle of the Piu Xian courtyard that would not fall down. When he felt the icy coldness coming from the tip of Tang Kuwei's sword, his entire body went limp on the ground. "Peak Master Tang, spare your life. I'm asking you, where's Fa Luyun?" Zhang Jin needle was biting his bruised lips tightly, and drops of cold sweat fell onto the carpet. It was obvious that he was scared, but he just died without speaking. Tang Kuwei raised her eyes and scanned the crowd. Her face was ugly, only to see dozens of people within this puffing fragrance courtyard. Surprisingly, all of them had their heads bowed, and none of them were willing to open their mouths. Behind him, Li Xinghe's face was not much better than Tang Kuwei's. He had seen many sons of qi, and generally sons of qi would influence people and things around them, causing people to inexplicably feel good about them. But he had never seen such an outrageous one. It is said that the is heartless and the playwright is unrighteous. But look at this Piao Xiang Lu. This garden full of ES are actually using their lives to protect a person. It's like seeing a ghost. Just then, a city guard ran in. "City Lord, Peak Master Tang." Someone saw Flower Luyun leaving Immortal Seeking City early in the morning. The long sword in Tang Kuwei's hand turned into flower petals and dispersed. Which way did it go? Back to Peak Master Tang. The Forgotten River Mountain Range. Hearing the Forgotten River Mountain Range, Tang Kuwei completely deflated. That mountain range was too big and continuous. How difficult it was to find someone. Moreover, the demonic beasts within it were entrenched, and entering with her cultivation would definitely startle the great demons inside. Seemingly seeing that Tang Kuwei was in a difficult situation, Li Xinghe came forward to inquire. "Senior uncle is in a hurry to find senior brother. Is it not for the clan competition?" Every year, the Easy Sect would organize a sect competition after accepting disciples, thus determining the ranking of the peaks. This ranking is related to resource tilting and peak master privileges. In previous years, 100 Flowers Peak was absent because Shili had not yet taken in any disciples, but this time there was no more reason to be absent. Tang Kuwei glanced at Li Xinghe and spoke coldly. How can I expect him to be a seller of art? This seed is in a hurry to find him because I don't want him to disgrace my 100 Flowers Peak again. Although the words are like this, Tang Kewei has a small mind in her heart. Generally, most of the disciples who had just entered were at the Qi refining stage or the foundation establishment stage in terms of cultivation. Although Hua Liuyun's qualifications are not good, but he is also a foundation establishment cultivator. If he participates in the grand competition, he will be able to compete for a good ranking. Li Xinghe, tell your people that if that sinful disciple returns, bring him to me in time. Chapter 25, Wait a little longer. By the river of forgetfulness, Hua Luyun scratched his scalp, the crack on his brow growing larger and larger. He looked down at his reflection in the water, at his crystal clear pupils, and it was as if a Shura hell was emerging there. Hua Luyun shrank back. He had to face a problem squarely at this moment. He was really growing his brain, and he was thinking more and more clearly since he had been practicing. Shaking off these chaotic thoughts, he took a wary look at the river and glanced defensively at the jungle. After this river, it was the territory of the demonic beasts and devil cultivators. He no longer even dared to use his sword, and could only hide his breath and advance on foot. On the dome of the sky, from time to time, a few sword lights cut through the sky. They came and went in a hurry, and whenever a cultivator passed by, he would find a place to hide to avoid being discovered. After all, this was an experience. If he had gone out and loitered he wouldn't have been so anxious, and with the addition of the word experience, he couldn't afford not to be vigilant, and so he kept walking like this for an unknown period of time. Hua Luyun opening the map from time to compare the route. Phew, another half a year should be able to make it to the destination. Sighing, he took the map back into his arms. Just then a piercing bird call rang out from the sky. Ga. A black aura came to rest on his shoulder through the trees. Hua Luyun stiffened and twisted his head to look over his shoulder, only to see that it was a black-bodied crow with blood-red pupils. Its feathers exuded a black aura, which vaguely somewhat suppressed the Qi golden light that was leaking out from Hua Luyun's body. After seeing that it was just a crow, he let out a long sigh of relief and raised his hand to pat his chest. Scared me to death. I thought some demonic beast was coming. He was about to move on when he suddenly had a brainwave. Although this crow was not a man-eating demonic beast, it was still a symbol of bad luck. Could it be that today is not a good day to travel? Never mind. Let's rest today and continue the journey tomorrow. The Forgotten River mountain range, where miasma is dense and demonic beasts run rampant. A steep peaked, cloud-encircled cliff sloped over a crooked-necked tree, which was somewhat withered, with a few red fruits growing sparsely in the cover of its yellowing leaves. This was Hua Liuyun's destination, the vermilion fruit discovered by several forces at the same time. On the rock under that tree, a few names could be vaguely seen engraved on it. Listening to the wind pavilion Sumu Feng, a certain year, a certain month, a certain day to visit this place. Next to this passage there are several other names. At this moment, several sword lights stopped and landed on the peak of the cliff. There were 7 or 8 people coming, and the leader was Zhu Qianming, the young peak master of the Easy Sex Pearl Peak. A few days ago he had gotten word that some other scouts would be gathering here illegally to compete for the vermilion fruit. Over the years the Immortal Moon Kingdom, the Angry Blood Hall, and the Listening Wind Pavilion had a hidden tendency to ally together to deal with the Easy Sect. If he could wipe out all of these power scouts, this heaven-splitting merit would be enough for him to exchange for the resources to cultivate to the Yuaning stage. Jia. You want the vermilion fruit, but what I want is your life. Zhu Qianming had a sinister smile on his face as he raised his hand to brush over one of the names carved on the cliff wall. From Immortal Seeking City to this place, it would only take a few days for the Imperial Sword to arrive here, and he had calculated that at most, the hidden spies of those forces would arrive here tomorrow to fight over the vermilion fruit. All men, lie in ambush. Do not move until I give the word. Yes. A group of Everest disciples scattered. Some hid into the dead leaves of the forest. Some hid between the rocks of the cliff wall. And some dived into the lake with reed poles in their mouths. It was obvious that all of these people were good ambushers, and their breath was minimized so that they didn't make any noise even when a wild boar peed into the lake. On the cliff, the last disciple looked worriedly toward the sky. Senior brother Zhu, are you sure someone will come to pick the vermilion fruit? The corner of Zhu Qianming's mouth curled up into a confident smile. Don't worry, senior brother Jingyu, when I say there is, then there is. After the words he flew up and came to the edge of the lake in a flash, and his whole body slowly sank into the lake. The smile on his face grew stronger as he felt the warmth of the lake. Jing Fish glanced at the location where Zhu Qianming was hiding, and he seemed to have just seen a wild boar urinating there. Sighing, he likewise found a place to hide. The breeze ruffled the dense forest, and soon several hours passed as the setting sun faded into the mountains. Zhu Qianming, who was hiding under the water, was patient. It's coming. It should be here soon. It was several hours before the sunrise fell on the earth. Jia. After projecting, those rats should be arriving at the battlefield soon. This wait was another 2 days. Phew. Hold your peace, brothers. They may have been delayed on the road. Keep up the silence. You can't wait in vain. 5 days later. A good meal is never too late. It's coming. It's definitely coming this time. 1 month later. 100 Flowers Peak. Morong walked up the mountain with a face full of fatigue. She found a grassy area to lie down casually with a disheveled look. Between the mountains, the little girl Pearl Curtain hurriedly ran up when she saw Morong, her face full of joy. She was bored out of her mind in this 100 Flowers Peak. Her senior, Tang Koei, couldn't see anyone the whole day, and her senior brother, Yu Chen, was a cultivation fanatic, so she usually didn't even have anyone to talk to. Senior sister Morong, what's wrong with you? Seeing Morong's depressed expression, she asked curiously. Morong slightly inclined her head and raised her hand to rub Pearl's little head. It's not the matter of the clan competition. Originally this matter is prepared by Zhu Qianming. That dog thing do not know where to run off to go. Things all fall on me. Really hateful. Pearl Curtain pursed her lips. The clan competition. This was a big event that concerned the distribution of resources among the peaks. Senior sister Morong. Then will my eldest senior brother also participate in the grand competition? Will I be able to meet my eldest senior brother then? Seeing the little girl's face full of anticipation, Morong opened her mouth to speak. Big brother. What a wonderful word. Mentioning this word was invariably associated with words such as powerful, mysterious, and domineering, and she really couldn't bear to ruin the expectations of Pearl Curtain's heart for her eldest brother. Jubilee, your eldest brother may be a little special. You'd better not get your hopes up too much. Pearl Curtain nodded, her eyes full of sparkle. The more Morong said this, the more curious her mind became. Right at this moment, Tang Kuwei came step by step from the mountain path with the sky full of flying flowers and rain. She first nodded to Morong and then looked at the bead curtain in a rather serious manner. Little curtain, how's your practice of the 10,000 things heavenly heart technique I gave you going? Seeing her master arrive, Pearl Curtain hurriedly climbed to her feet and nodded slightly. Master, the first glimpse of the door has been made. I am sensing the heart of all things. Tang Kuwei nodded rather satisfied. Recently, she felt a headache as long as she thought of Flower Luyun. Fortunately, she had these two well-behaved disciples, which did give her some slight comfort. I asked you to keep an eye on Immortal Seeking City. Did that rebellious disciple return to the city? Morong shook her head with a rather gloomy face. Senior uncle, Hua Luyun hasn't returned since he left a month ago. The Forgotten River mountain range has been flooded with beasts lately. He's afraid, she said, her voice sinking slightly. The foundation establishment stage was ultimately too low in cultivation, and after disappearing for a month in a place like the Forgotten River mountain range, the result was predictable. Chapter 26, Zhu Guo arrives. At the edge of the Forgotten River mountain range, Hua Luyun, who had been walking for more than a month, had finally truly entered the deep mountains. The place was filled with dilapidated villages, vinemans crawling all over an abandoned stone house, and broken and shattered bones were seen everywhere. Unlike the prosperity near the Immortal Seeking City, there was only death and killing here. Yun Duo held her long sword, her beautiful eyes vigilantly checking the demonic beast footprints on the ground. She only came yesterday, in the city of seeking immortality, to wait for a month. Hua Luyun. She ate badly and slept badly the whole day, and now the water house is gone. The master and lady do not know where to go. She has no one to rely on. Hua Luyun is her life, is her only dependence. So she came, and by the grace of God, she found this man. It wasn't really that hard to find. The guy had been wandering around the edge of the forest all day, afraid to go in. Cloudy, can we go another way? It's too scary here. Behind the clouds, Hua Luyun vigilantly stuck out a head, his eyes flickering as he looked at the demonic beast footprints all over the ground. Yun Duo kicked the skeleton in front of him and looked at Flower Luyun with a look of disgust. Surname Flower, how can you say you're a big man? Can't you be a little outstanding? Hua Luyun pulled on Cloud's skirt with the look of a dead pig. Let's just scold them if we want to. If they are allowed to throw skulls, I'm not allowed to be scared? This is outrageous. Right at this moment, a few sword lights in the sky dome broke through the sky and flew in the direction of the Easy Sect. That speed, so fast that it disappeared into the clouds in an instant. Yun Duo turned her head enviously. Her current cultivation was only at the chi refining stage. She couldn't fly with a sword. Hua Luyun was able to fly with a sword and could also take her, but this guy was dead set against it. Ryuan, take a look at the others. Hua Luyun tilted his head. The sunlight was blinding, somewhat unable to see the sky clearly, too high to see. Luyun, cultivators fight with the heavens for luck, for creation, for chance, for a ray of everlasting heaven, and even more so for time. You already have no cultivation qualifications. If you waste your time on this uninteresting path, you will only end up turning into a pile of yellow earth. Yun Duo spoke with sincerity and bitterness. She was born in the water mansion and knew how difficult it was for the bottom cultivators to get ahead. In terms of this opportunity to compete for the vermilion fruit, it was simply a miracle that it could fall on the head of Flower Lu Yun. But this guy even didn't cherish it and was pulling time on this road. Hua Lu Yun continued to tilt his head, but he saw the several sword lights that flew away go and return. It landed in front of the two in a few breaths. The people who came were precisely the several people who ambushed Zhu Qianming in the depths of the forgotten river mountain range. And at this time, the several people looked unusually dirty, with weeds on their heads, as if they had fled from the famine. The disciple called Jingyu was also carrying a crooked neck tree with a few crimson fruits hanging from it, with the appearance of a rural person returning from the fields. Flowing clouds in shallow water? Zhu Qianming suspiciously stretched his head to look at Hua Luyun, his gaze somewhat dull. Didn't your sister, the cold-faced fairy, give you spirit stones to go home? Why did you walk here? Hua Luyun also recognized Zhu Qianming at this time. Isn't this the same male that came with little bunny to spend money last time? Gu, Mr. Zhu, back from catching the mountain? The corners of Zhu Qianming's mouth twitched slightly. Bull asterisk 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 rushing to the mountains. Talking about cultivators going into the mountains to look for chances was so earthy, and it was the first time he had seen it. Jingyu, give this vermilion fruit tree to brother Lu Yun. Jingfish pursed his lips and rather reluctantly threw the crooked tree he was carrying on his shoulder to the ground, where he does not know. Zhu Qianming is trying to please Wang Tu Xian through the flower Lu Yun, but this tree Zhugua he carried all the way, has carried out feelings. At this time let him give to the flower Lu Yun is still quite reluctant to give up. Take it. Find a place to plant it. It'll live. Hua Lu Yun right. If you see your sister back in your hometown, please give her my regards. Saying that, several people once again rose up with their swords and rushed in the direction of the easy sect. Kingfish asked with a reluctant glance at the crooked neck tree. Elder brother, the vermilion fruit tree that we managed to find with great difficulty, we're just going to give it to him? Zhu Qianming on the flying sword glanced back at Hua Luyun who was standing stupidly in place, his voice a little exasperated. A vermilion fruit I do not put in the eyes. This pitiful thing caused me to miss the arrangement of the clan competition. The thieves or even one did not catch. I now see it to be angry. Hearing Zhu Qianming's words, the group of brothers and sisters only felt suffocated in their hearts. Zhu Qianming do not see Zhu fruit, but for them these ordinary disciples. This is the chance white busy work and nothing to get. Natural dissatisfaction. The sword light swept through a mountain range, and when they passed by the river of forgetfulness a few people suddenly gave a start, overlooking down, only to see go to the bottom of the crystal clear forget river a blood red. The river bank edge of the eye are all the corpses of demonic beasts. These corpses at a glance without a border, densely packed. Zhu Qianming stopped at the river's edge with a grave expression on his face, his entire brow knitted together as he raised his hand and brushed over the demonic beast's tattered body. Elder brother, what's wrong? Jingyu flew down beside Zhu Qianming and asked with a rather puzzled opening. Zhu Qianming raised his eyes to the rolling blood red, his face growing darker and darker. How can so many demonic beasts die? It's over. The demon race won't stop. This place is going to be in chaos. The Easy Sect and the Forgotten River Mountain Range demon race had always had fights, but they were only limited to small fights and neither side would escalate the situation. But now that a large number of demonic beasts had died here, the conflict would be uncontrollable. He gulped, a faint golden glow in the blood on his retracted fingers. This feeling, it seems to be the Confucian Hao Rong Zhang Qi decision. At the mention of the Hao Ran Zhang Qi decree, several people glanced at each other and thought of the Fairview Academy at the same time. Elder brother, isn't Haoran Jingqi invisible and colorless? Could it be a mistake? There's no mistaking it. Haoran Jingqi is different from other qi. This qi is so positive that it's evil. It's definitely Haoran Jingqi. Those bookworms don't cultivate longevity for 10,000 years. They only cultivate fame. They especially love to cause trouble. And it wasn't too long ago that Mr. Late came to visit the Prosperity Sect. Connecting here the answer is already crying out. The Fairview Academy wants to strike at the demon race, and it has chosen the boundary of the Prosperity Sect. Zhu Qianming immediately rose up with his sword, his face full of anxiety. Quickly, return to the clan. A streak of swordlight once again rose up to the sky. 2, 3, 7, 8. Just 8 Jujuug. Cloudy. You eat 4, I'll eat 4. Hua Luyun happily handed the 4 fruits to Yun Duo, and as he stretched out his hand, a drop of blood red dot on his lined sleeve landed on Yun Duo's palm. Blood red haloed on Cloud's palm prints, and she looked at Flower Luyun with a puzzled expression as she asked curiously, Ryun, what is this? Hua Luyun hurriedly pulled over Yun Duo's hand and used his fingers to stick the drop of blood red into his mouth and sip it, smilingly opening his mouth to say back, "Juice." Yun Duo got the zhugua and didn't bother to eat it. She carefully wrapped it up in a handkerchief and put it away in her storage ring. She thought very simply. She was not well qualified. This zhugua was just a waste to eat. It would be better to take it and sell it for money, and her life would be better in the future. Seeing Yun Duo move, Hua Luyun, who had already put the vermilion fruit to his mouth, swallowed his saliva and put the fruit away again. "Luyun, let's go back. The young ladies at home are worried about you, especially Zhang Jinpin. He's been restless all day while you were gone." Hua Luyun only felt a localized tightening. Who? Zhang Jinpin. Chapter 27, New Mission. Assassinate Yu Yuchen. Tinker Bell Court in the Fragrant House. Seeing Hua Luyun return, Zhao Tingling let out a long sigh of relief. If this guy didn't come back, she would want to set up a shrine for him and bury him in a burial mound. In Hua Luyun, it always gave her the feeling of a child traveling thousands of miles and a mother worrying about her. This guy is so unsettling. Luyun, a small trial. Why did you go for so long? Did you encounter any dangers? Did you hurt anywhere? She looked around Flower Luyun for a long time, her eyes filled with worry. Just after 2 turns she suddenly froze and asked with a slight frown, "Luyun, what cultivation level are you at now? Why can't I see your realm anymore?" Hua Luyun just giggled. He felt that he was lucky. Whether it was in Shangba village or in this immortal-seeking city, there was a group of people who cared about him. Sister Tinker Bell. It's still Foundation establishment, but I've learned a spell to hide my chi. Zhao Tingling smiled but didn't suspect. Many cultivators would practice the hidden chi method in order not to reveal their cultivation. This guy had learned to be smart and knew to hide himself. At this moment, the little maid Aya picked up a few new clothes and placed them in Hua Luyun's hands, smiling and patting his shoulder. "Go change your clothes, they stink." Hua Luyun received the clothes, and after he turned around the corner of his mouth hooked up slightly, the vertical crack on his brow becoming more and more conspicuous. Coming into the room, he retired his jacket and took out the Xian Tian breathing method version 5.0 from his arms, turned to the latest page, where it says a split secret technique. This was something he had only recently researched, and the split technique was practiced, but there seemed to be some differences between his split and the regular split. It is surprising that this alter ego is not in reality, but exists in consciousness. Seeing ghosts, he looked into the bronze mirror, and the figure inside looked at him from it. But the weird thing was that outside the bronze mirror Hua Luyun had a face of stagnation and confusion, but in the bronze mirror it was a face full of coldness and gloom. "Who are you?" "I'm your doppelganger." "No, you're not. I'm amiable, homely, kind and brave. A bodhisattva." "Ha ha ha, funny, so funny. Can't you recognize yourself?" "Flowers. Flow. Clouds. Boo." The brass mirror was covered down hard, and he looked out of the house through the window. On the street, Li Xinghe stood at the edge of the street and looked up toward Hua Luyun. The two men's eyes met, and their gazes fell apart at the touch, both of them a little evasive. Behind Li Xinghe, the red-armored cultivator similarly withdrew his line of sight to the second-floor window. "What's wrong, Holy Sun?" Li Xinghe faintly shook his head. "It's nothing. I always feel that something is wrong with Hua Luyun. He just came back from the Forgotten River mountain range and something went wrong with the Forgotten River mountain range. I've heard that there are tens of thousands of demonic beasts that died by the River of Forgetfulness, and among them, there are also king beast bloodlines. You're overthinking it, Saint Sun." The two chatted as they gradually walked away and disappeared at the end of the road. Hua Luyun withdrew his sight and gently closed the window. He could sense that Li Xinghe was eyeing something on him, only that he was unable to determine what the other party was scheming for the time being. Could it be my Xian Tian breathing method 5.0, or gluttony for my body? While Hua Luyun was speculating in his mind, behind him, a person with a ghost face mask slowly walked out from behind the screen. This person was the first person in charge of the Luo Net in Immortal-Seeking City, the first-class assassin of the heavenly character, the Sword of Vengeance, Heavenly Fury, and his current biggest gold master. Heaven's Wrath approached and patted Hua Luyun on the shoulder, his voice carrying a chill. "For this clan competition of the Free and Easy clan, I want you to kill one person, named Yu Yuchen," he said and handed the Yu Yuchen portrait and a money bag to Hua Luyun. The teenager was plainly dressed and elegant, and at a glance, he did not come from an ordinary family. He turned over the portrait and saw a few small words on the back. His pupils contracted slightly. "The third prince of Xianyue, the disciple of Tang Kuei." Hua Luyun raised his head violently, his icy gaze deadpan on Tianru, his eyebrows raised. "Does your excellency not know that I am also a Tang Kuei disciple?" The corners of Heaven's Wrath's mouth brought up a derisive smile. He knew quite a bit when it came to that. "I know, You are the first disciple of Tang Kuwei, my Luo net killer, the wind chime of the listening wind pavilion, the ghost of the brocade guards, and the blood talisman of the palace of angry blood. The corner of Hua Liuyun's mouth twitched slightly. It was true that in front of a truly great expert, his vest could not be hidden at all. Speaking here, Heaven's Wrath raised his hand and hooked his chin, his voice suddenly cold. Putting that aside, you're nothing but a punk from a small mountain village. By the way, Shangba village. Right, a small mountain village that has produced 15 top heavenly prides in just one generation. What secrets would there be? Mentioned the village of Shangba, Tian knew, eyes full of fire. There can be no coincidence in this world. That village definitely has a great chance. The reason why it is still safe and sound now is just that the deterrence of the flying immortal Holy Land is still there. Seeing the greed in Tian Ru's eyes, Hua Liuyun's arm resting on the hilt of his sword at his waist tightened and loosened. Loosened and tightened. His palms were sweaty and his face was giggling. That, Lord Heaven's Wrath. Yu Yuchen is my favorite family friend, so I have to add money. Sky Fury, who was laughing, frowned. No, just this 50 spirit stones. If you don't do it, someone else will. My lord, that's my senior brother, 80-inch. This clan competition rewards a book of God transformation technique. You're so short of money. If you're capable, you should go and take the first place. I can take first place and that's what I deserve. But the 80 is mission pay. Tianru pushed Hua Luyun away and flung his sleeves towards the stairs. No, not one more piece. It's not that he can't get 80, but the funds are limited. Or you can save or to save. Kill a prince to his hands only 2,000 spirit stones. The above do not know how much to eat. He earned less as a loss. Looking at the faraway heavenly fury, Hua Luyun pinched his money bag. His gaze grew more and more gloomy, and there seemed to be infinite killing opportunities brewing and building up in his eyes. He twisted his head in the direction of the easy sect and gave a wink towards Cloud outside the door. Yundo, tomorrow we will first go to the mountains to spy. If we have the chance, we will do it. You pack up your fine things tonight. If we don't have the chance, we will go back to Shangba village, and collect those few acres of thin fields to do it. Cloud nodded solemnly, his mood on edge. Meanwhile, on the easy sect, Senior Yuchen, Morongyu royal sword stopped at the top of the 100 Flowers Peak. Hearing the shouts, Yu Yuchen walked out slowly from within the pavilion. His expression was indifferent, his sword eyebrows and starry eyes. His body revealed a cold sharpness. Senior sister Morong, what seeks me? Morongyu's face was filled with anxiety as she took out a photo from her storage ring and handed it to Yu Yuchen. Senior brother, I've received news that someone has paid 1,000,000 spirit stones for your life in Luonet, and there's already a rogue killer who's taken the job. Hearing this news, Yu Yuchen's brows also sank. There were plenty of people who wanted his life. That didn't seem to surprise him, but he didn't expect the other party to spend such a large amount of money to invite the Luonet killer. There was a saying circulating throughout the entire eastern region that the Heaven's Dragnet was only open to one side of hell, and that no one who was targeted by the Dragnet could escape death. This is bad. Senior sister, can you inquire about who took the quest? Morongyu's face was unsightly. It wasn't hard to find out, as the Luonet killer was named after a sword. I heard that the assassin this time is using the Meteor Butterfly sword, codenamed Meteor Rain. With that said, the two fell silent once again. Just by hearing this code name, one could feel the murderous aura coming from the face, even separated by the red dust of time, can feel the coldness of its long sword. Chapter 28, The Great Competition. On the 100 Flowers Peak, Morongyu and Yu Yuchen had no countermeasures even after discussing for a long time. The difficulty in dealing with the Luonet killers was not how high their cultivation was, but the fact that they used poison, trickery, coercion, and all sorts of things. They believed that everyone had a weakness, even the great emperor, and that if there was none in his body then they would look for it in his side. At that thought, both men looked at the beaded curtains at the same time. What a big weakness. How long before my master returns? If there was anyone else Yu Yuchen could count on right now, it would only be Tang Kuwei. Morongyu sighed and shook her head rather helplessly. And now at the border between the Easy Sect and the Forgotten River mountain range, the beast tide was getting more and more violent. The demonic beasts were like crazy, constantly pressing towards the south. The sect's countless peak masters and elders had to go out to sit by the Forgotten River. Even Tang Kuwei rushed to the front line. It was better to expect her to rush back and save the day than to expect the Slayer to get lost. In front of the mountain gate of the Free Sect, the sect competition has been held in full swing. The preliminary round is just some Chi disciple competition, all a group of rookie chickens pecking each other. Hua Luyun held the Yu Yuchen portrait and kept wandering from ring to ring. This senior brother, have you seen this person on the portrait? No, 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 go away, don't keep me from watching the game. Miss, do you know how to get to 100 Flowers Peak? Handsome boy, Come to my cave and I'll tell you. Outside the crowd, Cloud stood on his tiptoes and raised his hand in anger toward the woman. Yuck! Wanderer! Stay away from my Lu Yun. The two asked a circle. The result is still clueless. And now gathered here are some of the new entrants to the disciples. Not to mention the 100 Flowers Peak. A lot of them have not even gone in the inner door boundaries. Just as Hua Lu Yun hesitated to retreat, someone finally noticed him. Yo, isn't this the chief of 100 Flower Peak and the head of Piu Xian Yuan? Some disciples recognized Flower Lu Yun and warmly came forward to greet him. Hiss! He's the senior brother who sells songs? I hear he plays the piano very well. Yes, 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 and he dances. Subject 3. On the lookout building, several sect elders twisted their heads to look this way, and after hearing that it was that incompetent disciple of Tang Kuwei, they simultaneously shook their heads in disdain. There are millions of laws. Killing art is the main way. The second is the recluse art. One attack and one retreat can kill or escape. In their view, the zither, chess, calligraphy and painting, 100 arts and skills is just a small way. Learning to play the zither, that is uneducated, waste of youth. At the edge of the ring, that disciple looked around and mysteriously pulled Hua Lu Yun toward the backstage. His face was somber and his words trailed off. Senior brother Lu Yun, have you noticed that something isn't right about this sect competition? Hua Lu Yun, who was grabbed by his arm, thumped in his heart and his back broke out in a cold sweat, secretly saying that it was not possible that he had been exposed for coming to assassinate his senior brother. Elder brother, listen to the soundtrack of the great competition. Listen carefully, the music is played by a pair of Mandarin ducks in a fight. When that disciple said that, Hua Lu Yun turned his head to look at the disciples competing in the ring, and it did indeed look a bit amorous. Two people fighting in the middle of the eyebrow to eye. Secret eye. A sword is full of friendship. They strangled their swords to the rhythm of the zither and looked at their opponents with a sultry look in their eyes when they were injured. This scene saw Hua Lu Yun's goosebumps fall to the ground. The disciple next to him was also constipated. Elder brother, you're a master of the zither. This time it's up to you to save the day. If we let them fight like this, then we mustn't kill the basics and have an affair on the spot? Hua Lu Yun nodded solemnly, suddenly feeling a heavy sense of mission. The two of them walked into the stone platform where the background music was played. It was a small amplified sound array, and at that moment, a female disciple was immersed in the sound of her zither, her fingers gently plucking the strings. Go away, 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 go away. By the way, senior brother Lu Yun, my name is Zhang Tianyu, chief of Bright Moon Peak. As soon as the two of them came in, Zhang Tianyu started to drive away the female disciple who was playing the zither and introduced himself in the process. Hua Lu Yun was startled and bowed to Zhang Tianyu. In this free sect, to be able to mix up with the chief of a peak, that is not a generation of amazing talent. In front of the long zither, the driven female disciple stood up, the corner of her mouth slightly curved in an arc as she walked out of the formation. When they reached the square, the female disciple clapped her hands, attracting a crowd of disciples' gazes. Brothers and sisters, below, 100 Flower Peak's chief disciple, Hua Lu Yun, will bring you a zither performance. As soon as she finished speaking, the entire grand competition site resounded with an uproar. The chief was no more than any other. It was the face of a peak. His words and actions all represent the peak master's face. And in this cultivation world, sheen, chess, calligraphy and painting just can't be on the stage. Hua Lu Yun's move is equivalent to hitting Tang Kuwei's face. After the female disciple finished speaking, she did not move and glanced in the direction of the watchtower, where Saint Sun Li Xinghe slowly closed his eyes. Next, it was time to enjoy the music. At this moment, just walked to the square Yu Yuchen face quickly sank. Before he heard some rumors within the clan, but did not want to now that never met the big brother selling art even sold to the clan. Senior sister, my big senior brother, does he have in his head? Doesn't he know that senior has become the laughingstock of the entire clan? Morong Yu's face was also a bit hungover. Your senior. I don't think it was on purpose. Yu Yuchen looked at Morong Yu in dismay. He didn't expect that at this time the other party would still be speaking for Hua Lu Yun. As if he thought of something, he raised his finger and pointed to his head. Couldn't he have some? Here? Morong Yu bit her lip and nodded. And both of them fell into silence at the same time. If that was the case, then one really couldn't blame Flower Lu Yun. On the side, Jubilee curiously looked in the direction of the backstage. She forcefully broke away from Yu Yuchen's hand and ran towards that side, her face filled with curiosity. Eldest brother. She was finally going to see eldest brother. Clang! Right at this moment, a zither sound rang out in the square. Yu Yuchen's heart plummeted and he hurriedly chased after the beaded curtain. Danger! There's danger! There's a murderous aura in the sound of this zither. just that he didn't chase out a few steps. The sound of the zither sounded again, and unlike the previous soothing sound, this time the sound of the zither sounded with eagerness, with violent rage, like a meteor exploding into the earth. In the ring, the two disciples who were originally in love instantly turned red, and both of them used their full strength at the same time, as if they were facing life and death enemies. How much they loved each other before. When love cools, how much hate. Under the ring, the supporters of the two parties' personnel also clashed, and there was a hidden momentum of an outbreak of mutual fighting. On top of the watchtower, Li Xinghe snapped his eyes open and stood up, ready to fly off the high platform, but he felt the hem of his coat being stepped on. He twisted his head to look behind him, only to see that an elder he usually didn't get along with was lifting his foot on the hem of his coat and raising his eyes to look coldly into his eyes. Holy son, the great competition is not yet over. Where are you going? Li Xinghe laughed. He naturally went to catch a saucer that sabotaged the sex grand competition to take the fortune of the heavens destined son of the first realm. He had traveled many worlds and gained countless sons of providence. Those from such small mountain villages were the best to deal with. They were shallowly informed, followed the flow of the waves, and were guided by their chi and destiny, rather than being the sons of destiny. They were slaves of fate. 4. All the gifts of fate have long been marked with a price. Being deprived of everything by the heavenly window, by him, Li Xinghe, is the price. Chapter 29, The False Past. In the easy square, 5 huge rings surrounded the stone pillar in the very center. A long sword flew from the watchtower at the edge of the square. Clank! The long sword was inserted at the edge of the stone pillar and entered the jade 3 times. The body of the sword kept on trembling, and the sound amplification array arranged around the stone pillar was instantly ineffective. As the sound of the zither dispersed, the crowd of violent disciples in the square immediately calmed down. Hua Liuyun's fingers knocking on the strings were empty. All the strings on the long zither were taut at the same time. He paused for a moment. His fingers continued to flick in the void. He played as if he was mesmerized, and he was filled with excitement. It didn't stop. It couldn't stop. And this 10-sided song was just the right climax. Feeling the sound of the zither dispersing, the disciples competing in the ring, and the crowd of onlookers in the square simultaneously looked towards Hua Luyun. At the edge of the square, Yu Yuchen raised his hand and gripped the hilt of his sword, his palms filled with cold sweat. Senior sister. Someone is laying out against eldest brother. Moron Yu also frowned at the direction of the lookout building. The free and easy sect is not an iron plate within. Someone is laying out a plan for Hua Luyun. The most likely target is Tang Kuei. Calm down and wait and see what happens. On the lookout building, Li Xinghe glanced back at the elder who had stepped on the hem of his coat, tugged off the corner of his coat, and turned his head to take a step toward the square. He stepped on the void. Each step he took swept up rolling wind and clouds, and his mountainous aura headed toward Hua Luyun Gaia in the center of the square, setting off the latter's hair to fly. Hua Luyun, what are your intentions in scheming to sabotage my easy sex entrance competition? After Li Xinghe's words, Yun Duo stopped in front of Hua Luyun, and she opened her mouth angrily to explain. Lord Saint's son, it was the other disciples who invited Luyun to play. It has nothing to do with Luyun. Li Xinghe raised his hand and the ribbon that Hua Luyun had bound his long hair with flew into his hand, and a golden bell on it was shaken to emit a clear and pleasant sound. Oh, what's this then? If I'm not mistaken, this is the wind chime of the Listening Wind Pavilion, isn't it? The Listening Wind Pavilion, a notorious intelligence organization that occasionally does some housebreaking, is unmistakably a devilish sect. Jianghu said, listening to the wind is rain. Where it passes, blood rain, killing countless. Hua Luyun, what else do you have to say? Li Xinghe's 2 fingers formed a sword pointing at the center of Hua Liuyun's brow, and his voice steeply became cold and stern. At this time, the entire square was in chaos. Countless disciples with Li Xinghe jumped out and began to accuse Hua Luyun. 3 people become a tiger. 100 people become a power. 10,000 people with the same hatred. Its power will be able to tilt the sky. The man who sits on the stone pillar and forgets to play is like a lonely boat under this great situation. And the sky is abandoned and the earth is disgusted. Shu Qianming pushed aside the crowd and rushed to the front to stop Li Xinghe, somewhat flustered as he began to explain. Saint's son. Ouch, Saint's son. Brother Lu Yun is the older brother of the Flying Immortal Sanctuary's King Tu Xian. Are you mistaken? Seeing Zhu Qianming, whose face was shocked and wrong, the corner of Li Xinghe's mouth hooked up slightly. The prey he had set his eyes on had never been able to escape. Ma Anshan, Shangba village. Brother Qianming, don't worry about it. They are just the same village. Even the Flying Immortal Sanctuary can't harbor the Hearing Wind Pavilion Devil Cultivator, right? Li Xinghe said as he raised his hand and drew a picture in the void. A huge mirror reflected a land of green mountains and green water. His first step was to expose Hua Liuyun's relationship with Wang Tuxian and that group of heavenly pride from the flying immortal Holy Land and break his golden body. Tianlong County in the south. A flying boat stopped and landed over a small, dilapidated village. And on the flying boat a disciple of the free sect walked into the village and opened his mouth to the woman who was washing clothes at the edge of the village and asked, "Auntie, may I ask how to get to Ma Shan Upper Dam Village?" The washerwoman glared up at the youth. Auntie, your whole family is auntie. My mother is only 16 years old, you call me auntie. Roll. What Shangba village? Never heard of it. The youth was not annoyed. He walked into the village and asked around. But his brows were furrowed. No one here has ever heard of Shangba village. Not only the youth. In this small village not far away from the deserted mountain, Luonet's heavenly character first-class killer Tian knew also face ugly. He took a map and kept comparing. On the map this location is clearly labeled as the village of the Upper Dam, but in front of his eyes is a deserted cemetery. It's gone. What's going on? Why is there nothing? He angrily pulled in an old farmer who had gone up the mountain to cut firewood and pointed at the withered question in front of him. Where's the village? Where's the village of Shangba here? The old farmer was full of fear with his sword on his neck. What village? There has never been any village here. He has never seen any village in his whole life living in this place. Immortal. Immortal, are you remembering wrong? Tianru's long sword cut out a splash of blood red. The old farmer's eyes revealed unwillingness, and his fingers pointing at Tianru couldn't stop trembling. I'll you up. Immortal. He lifted his steps and rose, but he saw the sky covered with radiant green shirts, countless silhouettes tumbling between the clouds, and they stopped and landed in a small village from time to time, seemingly inquiring about anyone's whereabouts. Fairview Academy? Tianru's brows furrowed. Not long ago he had heard that Mr. Bai Tao of the Fairview Academy had disappeared, but he didn't want to be lost here. With that thought, he looked down from the clouds over the land. I don't know if it's a psychological effect, but the vastness of the earth is like smoke and fantasy, and it seems to be lurking in endless danger and horror. Above the Prosperity Sex Square, the sound of the zither sounded. Li Xing has suddenly twisted his head to look at Hua Luyun. His fingers plucked in the air, and the wind in the mountains passed over the earth, seeming to be the sound of the zither. The sound of the zither rolled, but it revealed a sense of eeriness. There's no way someone would have no followers. Why did Shangba village disappear? Hua Luyun, where on earth did you come from? Hua Luyun raised his head. This was the first time he had spoken since Li Xing has outburst. It's also unlikely that there will be a village, per capita, of great emperors, favoring me out of a waste, right? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I must have my own shining points. How can I be a waste? This shouldn't be. This shouldn't be. Li Xinghe wiped the cold sweat from his forehead as he stared deathly at Hua Luyun. It doesn't matter if you can't find the other side's heel, as long as you make him turn his back on the world, so that the people of the world can slander him and loathe him. You can likewise spoil his luck. The road he came on was a mess, and the road, full of evil spirits, was as dirty as it could be. Flower Luyun, I have long since found out that you were wanted when you were in the Southern Kingdom, and that the Southern Kingdom's Grand Priestess, Shu Daoshan, personally chased you from the Imperial City into the evil ghost abyss. Tell me, you were only at Foundation cultivation. How did you escape from the evil ghost abyss? Have you not long been but a shell? And your soul has been replaced by the forbidden. Meanwhile, the Southern Kingdom bordered with the Easy Sect. The Grand Priestess of the Southern Kingdom, Shu Daoshan, gazed at the evil ghost abyss forbidden area with its gloomy winds, and for some reason, dots of green shoots were sprouting from the edges of the black earth of this forbidden area. Strange. Strange. Why has this forbidden land been so quiet lately? And why have those monsters suddenly stopped acting like demons? He hesitated and raised his steps toward the evil ghost abyss. He walked carefully and cautiously. 1 step, 2 steps. After walking out for dozens of miles in a row, apart from the black earth were barren graves and dead trees, withered vines and dim crows. There wasn't a single ghost shadow in the entire forbidden land. It was really quiet and a bit weird. Hello, anyone? He inclined his head and shouted, the echo swinging through the layers of mountains and traveling far and wide in the empty evil ghost abyss. Chapter 30. Luyun has always been a bodhisattva. In the Easy Sect, Li Xinghe's face was as heavy as water. He had a feeling that when he wasn't prying into Fa Liuyun's past, everything seemed to be perfectly normal again, and everything seemed to be happening smoothly. But when he went to try to peer in, he was like a man sitting in a carriage, and every time he opened the curtains, what he saw out of the window was a different scene, an unknown life. Damn it, I've met Schrodinger's past. He looked towards Hua Luyun, who was still blandly playing the long zither, and only felt some numbness in his scalp. Although the other party did not make any movements, did not have any expression, he felt the taunt, the kind that came from a silent mockery. Their fights were never of the same magnitude. Everything he knew seemed to be what the other side wanted him to know, and the world he saw seemed to be what the other side wanted him to see. It was a crush from the unknown. He swallowed and spoke again. Hua Lu Yun. I don't care about the path you took when you came here, but in my immortal-seeking city, under my eyes, you can't wash your hands of colluding with the Devil Dao organization. All of you can't escape my eyes. Pass on the order of the city master to close the net. Li Xinghe snorted coldly and spoke into the communicator magic treasure in his hand. In the immortal-seeking city, a huge protective formation rose into the air. Countless city guards instantly surrounded the floating fragrance courtyard, and the sound of a crossbow bowstring being pulled resounded from the watchtower in the city lord's mansion. Passing on the order of City Master Li, seeking immortality city is under martial law. All people are not allowed to go out or leave the current location they are staying in. Violators will be shot on the spot. The sound of the commandment spread throughout the city through the great formation, and countless panicked vendors on the streets were shot on the spot with bows and crossbows for not heeding the advice. At this moment, the entire immortal-seeking city was under the control of the city lord's mansion. Li Xinghe was not a holy son without real power. Within the boundaries of immortal-seeking city, no matter what chamber of commerce, which family head, or where the young masters come from, those who make a move will be directly executed. This is the city lord's mansion, and this is the control of a great clan over the mortal city. In the lobby of the floating fragrance courtyard, the golden-armored cultivator barged in with a large number of city guards, and countless warblers were controlled on the spot, and even the men and women who were fighting soundly in the room did not escape. Not even one of them. Officer, what's wrong with the officer? I didn't say we'd be sweeping pornography today. There were Johns crouching in the corridor holding their heads and shouting, while others struggled and fled outside. Whoever moves, dies. The golden-armored cultivator coldly grunted as several swordlights flashed, and several cultivators who fled towards the outside of the building died on the spot. He stepped in front of a naked man. Zhang Jinpin, right? Scout of the Palace of Angry Blood. Take him down. 2 city guards came forward and escorted Zhang Jin Needle. They looked at Zhang Jin Needle's eyes full of dislike, only because when they first came in, the goods were receiving customers. The object was still a fat woman whose appearance was difficult to talk about. This money deserves people can earn. Not in vain to take this name. Soon the entire floating fragrance courtyard was caught clean, with only a few leaks standing in the lobby looking at each other. There was shock and disbelief in their eyes. Of the hundreds of people in the Piu Xian courtyard, only a few of us are good citizens, and the rest are all scouts? While they were amazed, they were also quite curious in their hearts. Curious why these powers don't develop them. Are they not smart enough? After exiting the puffing fragrance courtyard, the golden-armored cultivator walked through one alley after another, and soon he arrived outside a small farmhouse. Although there are many people caught by Cao Xianlu, but they are just some small characters that can't be brought to the surface. The real big fish are all outside, and these are the basis for convicting Hua Luyun. How's it going in there? He walked to the courtyard door and opened his mouth towards the 2 cultivators guarding the door and asked, "Elder brother, it's quiet inside." The other side should have given up resistance. The golden-armored cultivator nodded and raised his hand to slowly push the door open. Seeing the condition of the courtyard, he instantly changed his face, only to see the small courtyard of a dozen square meters lying full of corpses. The pungent smell of blood coming from the nose. The walls, tables, chairs, wooden doors and beds are full of blood. Most of these people were at the Jindan stage, but there were still 2 people at the Yuanying stage, and the cultivator nailed to the wall in front of the lobby inside the door was actually at the God transformation stage. The golden-armored cultivator's hand holding the long sword trembled slightly. The God of Transformation cultivator fights could easily overturn the river, and now there was a God of Transformation in this immortal-seeking city that died silently. It was hard for him to imagine what had happened here. Quick, go to the Star of Heaven tea house. The sword rose up in the air, and soon several people arrived at a tea house on another street. Seeing the closed door of the room, a sense of uncertainty came over him. With a trembling hand, he pushed open the door to the room, and a body tipped out and leaned against him. The bright red palm prince covering his golden armor pulling out a blinding blood red. God transformation stage. Another God transformation stage. He gulped, his eyes looking through the doorway into the temple. In front of the tables and chairs, on the stairs, by the counter, everywhere there were already cold bodies. At this moment, several city guard cultivators stopped behind him with their imperial swords. Commander Wan Fong, all the forces in the city strongholds are in trouble. No one is alive. Only Luonet's Tian Ru escaped because he traveled to the southern kingdom. Cold sweat fell from Wan Fong's forehead in drops. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Over the years many forces have been testing each other, and likewise checking and balancing each other. Not only are they sending scouts to the Easy Sect, but the Easy Sect is likewise sending scouts to other families. Even if they were found, Most of them were ransomed with money, and very few of them were slaughtered directly, and they were slaughtered together with people from dozens of forces, which could be said to have pierced the sky. In a shaky voice he began to ask, any live ones? The city guard behind him shook his head. Where are the survivors? There aren't many bodies. Report it. We can't cover this. A few of the city guards nodded, not to mention that they couldn't handle it. I'm afraid Li Xinghe was also hanging on. On the easy sect square, Li Xinghe stumbled on his feet and almost failed to stand still. His eyes rounded with anger as he violently turned his head to look at Hua Luyun, his voice carrying a chilling tone. It was you. Who killed them? Hua Luyun continued to play his long zither with a faint smile on his face. Elder brother is joking. I'm a foundation establishment cultivator, a bumpkin from the village. I need Cloud's help to kill a chicken. Who would I dare to kill? Speaking of which, Cloud hastily raised his hand. She could prove that Hua Luyun was indeed timid. Not to mention killing people, it would take effort to step on an ant. Lord Saint's son, Luyun has always had a bodhisattva's heart. How can you wrong him? Li Xinghe twisted his head to glare angrily at Yin Duo, his face full of hostility. You shut up, Hua Luyun. You're provoking a war, provoking the devil sect to target the easy sect. What are your intentions? Hua Luyun didn't speak anymore as he closed his eyes and continued to enjoy the music. Well, this matter is not so easy to uncover. You are ultimately 100% too close. Letting go of the heavenly fury, the disciples of the Palace of Prosperity listened to the order, and immediately set out to the southern kingdom to protect the heavenly fury. Receiving the order, several flying boats immediately left the square. Hua Luyun raised his head in surprise, his mouth slightly open, shocked, reaching out to point at Li Xinghe's nose, full of horror, opening his mouth to question. Protecting heaven's wrath? Sacred son of the free sect, how dare you openly collude with the Luo net killers? Is there any justice? Is there any law? Is there still a righteous ethos? Chapter 31 Teaching the Sisters and Brothers. Hearing Hua Luyun's sophistry, Li Xinghe trembled with anger. I'm trying to prevent you from killing yourself, asshole. Above the square, a crowd of easy sect elder disciples saw the two fighting, and their original accusing voices had long since disappeared. It was really that this situation was quite bizarre. The holy son of the Hall sect had actually suffered a dark loss against the chief of 100 Flower Peak. At this time, Li Xinghe was also doubly anxious. His cards were about to run out. Not only did he fail to hit Hua Luyun hard, he even pulled a wave of fame on his opponent. Flower Luyun, even if I can't prove that you colluded with the devil cultivators now, but you can't escape from selling in the puffy fragrance courtyard and damaging the reputation of the easy sect, you still have to accept the punishment. Elder brother, it's selling art. Ha ha ha, ridiculous. How can a place like that be clean? You're just selling. We all saw it. Elder brother, I didn't. Don't accuse me. Sinner, I have patronized your business, and so has senior sister Morong, and you still want to argue? Li Xinghe spoke with a red face. A hand pulled Morong Yu, who was watching and eating melon, over. He now desperately needed someone to stand up for him. Morong Yu, who was watching the excitement, froze and dropped her melon in her mouth. Killing her did not expect the topic to suddenly involve herself. Hearing the surrounding senior siblings discussing it, her cheeks suddenly reddened and she hurriedly waved her hand. No. How could I possibly go to that place? When the crowd of disciples saw the color of Morong Yu's face, their hearts instantly understood. This is obviously a weak heart. Hiss. Normally, senior sister Morong is icy clean, but I didn't expect that she would be this open in private. That's not true. You don't even look at whose disciple she is. Yu Linglong, the woman who played half of the men of the easy sect in the palm of her hand. Faced with such a scene, the panicked Morong Yu just kept waving her hands. No, Li Xinghe, he wronged me, she explained, and that nervous look managed to turn around some of the wind reviews, but at that moment, Li Xinghe once again made up for it. Sister Morong, don't be shy. Isn't it just ordering a male model? He, Flower Luyun, has the face to sell it in the puffing fragrance courtyard, and still won't allow anyone to buy it? Morong Yu, who was desperately trying to explain, stiffly twisted her head to look at Li Xinghe. Her face twisted and the corners of her mouth twitched uncontrollably. OMG, what kind of sin had she done to be involved in this fiasco? At the off chance, Pearl jumped up and raised her hand. Eldest brother, when little Curtain grows up and earns money, she will also patronize your business with Sister Morong. Okay, this time, even if he had 100 mouths, he wouldn't be able to say anything. Senior brother Yuchen, would you go with little Curtain? The corners of Yuchen's mouth trembled slightly as he raised his hand and touched the beetle's small head, his voice soft as he opened his mouth. Good girl little Curtain. The business your eldest brother is doing is only for female customers. Eldest brother, I won't be joining you. When he said that, everyone's head at the scene buzzed. If they remembered correctly, before Li Xingha had said that he had gone to take care of Hua Luoyun's business, and he was the one on the scene who was most certain that the business Hua Luoyun was doing was not clean. For a moment the entire square fell into silence, all gazes simultaneously turning their heads to look at Li Xingha. Li Xingha's eyelids fluttered madly. His mind was constantly pondering over the countermeasures. Just now he was in a hurry and said the wrong thing. He didn't expect to get himself into a ditch. Senior brothers and sisters, it's true that I went to the puffing fragrance courtyard and ordered flower flowing cloud, but we didn't do anything. He spoke in a panic, but the scene continued to fall silent, and it was clear that no one would believe him. After all, he was the one who said it all before, and now he's coming back to deny it completely unconvincingly. Seeing the crowd pointing and seeing the eyes of the peak elders dodging, Li Xingha finally became anxious. He rushed to Hua Luoyun and pulled the other party's sleeve. Flower Luoyun, say something. Hua Luoyun disgustedly yanked his sleeve back from Li Xingha's hand. Don't misunderstand. All of you senior brothers and sisters, the Holy Sun came to our hospital to spend money. That's paid for. It's normal business behavior. Li Xingha froze as he stiffened and looked at Hua Luoyun. What kind of talk is this dog talking about? What does it mean by normal business practices? Does he not think he wants his money back? Seeing that the scene was in chaos, some elders from the Deacon's Hall immediately began to maintain order. In any case, the introductory competition still had to continue. Li Xingha also happened to take advantage of the situation. He took a deep look at Hua Luoyun and then rushed to the immortal-seeking city with his sword. So many people had died there. One could imagine what kind of turmoil would come next. Flower Luoyun, on the other hand, was driven off the stone pillar, deprived of the qualification to continue playing the background music of the grand competition. Morong Yu, because she couldn't stand the way the crowd was looking at her, likewise chose to avoid it for the time being, but it was Yu Yuchen who stayed behind. He pulled the beaded curtain and walked slowly to Hua Luoyun, holding his sword rather respectfully and bowing. Yu Yuchen, meet eldest senior brother. He hooked his waist and lowered his head, eyeing Hua Luoyun's toes, waiting for the other party to return the salute. Unbeknownst to him at this moment, what Hua Luoyun wanted was not to return the gift at all, as he hurriedly snatched a portrait from Yun Duo's hand. After taking it into his hands, he measured it against Yu Yuchen. The man on the portrait is handsome and noble, but not as shocking as seeing it in reality. Originally he thought that the portrait had been embellished, but he didn't know that the portrait only embodied 3 parts of Yu Yuchen's charm. His senior brother. For brother has a job I want to introduce you to. Yu Yuchen raised his head with some suspicion. He didn't need to think about it to know what his own senior brother was playing at. Just this time he looked up, he saw the portrait in Hua Luoyun's hand. He immediately tightened his body. His feet staggered back a few steps. His heart even more set off shock waves. Li Xingha hadn't lied. Hua Luoyun was really a Luo net killer. Really a person of the devil's path. He is the owner of the Meteor Butterfly Sword, codenamed Meteor Shower. Eldest senior brother. How did you get the portrait of second senior brother? At Hua Luoyun's feet, Shu Curtain pulled at the hem of his coat, standing on her tiptoes to similarly survey the portrait in his hands. On the other side Yu Yuchen's heartbeat was in his throat. Damn it! He had just been shocked, and had forgotten to take away his weaknesses under his too quick retreat. Now that the bead curtain was so close to Flower Luoyun, it would be as hard as hell to bring it over again. The hand he held on the hilt of the sword at his waist trembled slightly. To say that Hua Luoyun was only at the foundation establishment stage, he resolutely didn't believe it. Did the deaths of so many people of the Devil's Way in the City of Immortal Seeking really have nothing to do with Hua Luoyun? He didn't believe it. He gritted his teeth and spoke word for word. Shooting stars. Rain. Hua Luoyun, who was looking at the portrait, raised his head to look blankly at the sky. Where? To the side. Cloud hastily tugged at the hem of his coat. Ryuan, talking about you? Rouge code name. Hua Luoyun reacted instantly as well. He looked at Yu Yuchen with a somber expression and lowered his head to mutter in Yun Duo's ear as he asked, to kill? I'm a little scared. Cloudy, why don't you go on? Yun Duo looked at Hua Luoyun in dismay. But I can't beat him. What should we do then? I've taken all the money. Where's the 50 spirit stones? Hearing the two of them plotting loudly, Yu Yuchen's face was unsightly as he kept making glances towards the bead curtain. Jubilee, come over here, to my side. Pearl curtain pulled on the corner of Hana Luoyun's coat. Eldest brother. Second brother is running away. Yu Yuchen,